हम आए हैं आपके सामने प्रारंभ करने डे नंबर 4 ऑफ द टेपे सिगमेंट टूर्नामेंट और मेरे साथ है द अमेजिंग ग्रैंड मास्टर सहज ग्रोवर। सहज भाई, क्या हाल चाल? आज क्या हमें कैमरा पे फिर से अंधकार दिख रहा है?
अंधकार तो नहीं, बट न्यू रिफ्रेश्ड कलर्स दिख रहे हैं हमको एकदम कैमरे में। बट हमें प्लेयर्स नहीं दिख रहे अभी। आई थिंक दे विल जॉइन वेरी वेरी सून। बट व्हाट अ एक्साइटिंग डे, बिकॉज अर्जुन तो खेल ही रहा है नील्स के साथ। आई थिंक दैट्स ऑफ कोर्स ऑलवेज गोना बी गुड, बट आई हैव टू like very 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 important matchups. One is of course Magnus versus Nodirbek, and कल नॉदरबेक ने खुद कहा था कि वो ये टूर्नामेंट सिर्फ इसलिए खेल रहा है क्योंकि मैग्नस है यहाँ पे। दैट्स इट। तो आज
उफ।
हमें पूरा एकदम नॉदरबैक का एकदम व्हाई ही प्लेड दिस टूर्नामेंट, और इट विल बी वेरी वेरी क्लियर। एंड देन सेकेंडली वी हैव जू जिनर प्लेइंग अगेंस्ट यागिस। सो एक 14 ईयर ओल्ड प्लेइंग अगेंस्ट जू जिनर। टिकू भाई।
भाई दैट्स गोना बी एक्साइटिंग। यागिस ने क्या ही कल बैक एंड फोर्थ गेम थी अर्जुन के साथ। आई वुड स्टिल से मे बी अर्जुन के ब्लैक पीसेस के साथ भी ही वाज द वन हु वाज इन कंट्रोल फॉर लेट्स से मोर पार्ट्स ऑफ द गेम देन यागिस, बट ऑफ कोर्स व्हाट अ बैटल इट वाज। बोथ प्लेयर्स हैविंग अमेजिंग चांसेस बट एट द एंड एंडेड इन अ ड्रॉ। एंड वो E5 मूव, फाइनल मूव काइंड ऑफ शोड how tricky Yagiz can be even under time pressure. And of course, you mentioned Nodirbek, Sahaj, if we can go to that camera. मतलब ये क्या रीजनिंग हुई भाई कि मैग्नस की वजह से ही खेल रहा हूं? मतलब मैग्नस से हारने का इतना क्या शौक है प्लेयर्स को?
भाई, आई थिंक वट एवर हैपन्स दिस इज एन इंसेन स्ट्रैटेजी, बिकॉज इट्स वेरी लाइकली कि 5 साल के अंदर, 10 साल के अंदर मैग्नस इज नॉट गोना बी प्लेइंग क्लासिकल चेस और वेल एनी फॉर्म ऑफ चेस। इट्स वेरी ही इज वेरी क्लोज टू at least he's not as active these days. Matlab, he's close to not maybe he could retire as well. And Nodirbek is trying to get those games against the goat of chess before that happens, as many games as possible, because her game ke sath I think Nodirbek is going to improve, and that would help him dominate for the next however long he possibly can.
Yep, and I'm gonna tell you one thing, chat. आज दोनों games पे focus करेंगे. I think we're gonna split it like not exactly in the middle, but somewhere in the middle. हमारे पास two camera setup भी है, so we can have both games in front of you. It will be Magnus against Nodirbek, a star clash, and let's not forget कि दोनों leaders हैं. And if one of them wins, he will be leading the TePe Sigeman tournament. So super important for the tournament standings. And of course, Arjun Nils is very important as well because Arjun is playing the lowest, in the guy lowest in the standings. So he could potentially join the leaders and at least take a claim to the partnership to the standings. कि भाई मैं फर्स्ट आऊंगा। ये पार्टनरशिप वर्ड कहां से रिसर्च भाई? आपका नेट डिस्कनेक्ट हुआ और मैं भी थोड़ा ब्लर हो गया भाई।
भाई, ब्लर तो मैं भी हो रहा हूँ थोड़ा सा, बिकॉज आई एम नॉट श्योर व्हाट जस्ट हैपेंड, बट या आई मीन I think we also need to talk about the fourth matchup, which is Andy Woodward against Jordan. And Jordan, by the way, made a draw yesterday, so against Zhu Jiner in a. I mean, I would say Jordan was winning at some point, but Zhu Jiner fought back valiantly. And now Andy Woodward versus Jordan, bhai, that's at least an interesting matchup to say the least, because Andy is a tournament leader. He's on 1.5 out of 2, and he's playing as white. Technically, a chance to beat Jordan and maybe take sole lead.
एब्सोल्युटली। सो बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग गेम्स हैं। कल हमने 4 रिजल्ट्स प्रेडिक्ट किए थे, बट ऑफ कोर्स एक ही हुआ अंत में रिजल्ट। बट आज में भी द एक्सपेक्टेशन इज लेस नंबर ऑफ रिजल्ट्स में भी आज भी उल्टा होगा सहज भाई। एंड देयर वी सी नोदरबेक, द ओनली रीजन एज यू मेंशन ही इज प्लेइंग दिस इवेंट। व्हाट इफ मैग्नस थोड़ा बीमार हो जाए, आज आए ना भाई, उनका स्टमक एक हो जाए, कुछ हो जाए और 5 ही पे ड्रॉप पूछ ले, तो देन क्या नोदरबेक रिग्रेट करेंगे टूर्नामेंट खेलना?
भाई, इमेजिन अगर वो जो मैग्नस ने विवेक के साथ किया था, राइट, वो जो टाटा स्टील रैपिड एंड ब्लिट्स का जो इवेंट था, जब विच बिकेम आई बिलीव क्वाइट फेमस, वेयर मैग्नस ऑफर्ड अ ड्रॉ ऑन मूव 5, मैग्नस 5 साल में फिर से ड्रॉप हो जाएगा, सो नॉर्दर्बेक मना करेगा क्या यहाँ पे? दैट्स अ वेरी गुड क्वेश्चन।
एग्जैक्टली, एंड आई थिंक वो सवाल का जवाब हमें बहुत जल्द मिलेगा। चैट, वी विल आल्सो गो टू अर्जुन्स गेम ऑफ कोर्स, बट मैग्नस का अराइवल देखना है टू द बोर्ड। एंड सहज भाई, वो क्रिकेट बैट है कि टूथब्रश पता नहीं, बस टेपे लिखा हुआ है उसके ऊपर। वेट कर रहे हैं मैग्नस का। क्या चल रहा है दिमाग में उद्वेग की अभी?
I'm guessing he's locked in completely, because he's playing, the best player in the world. He's playing with the black pieces, which, Nodirbek also said कि black है उसके, which is a bit better, which is, I think, the second time I've heard this quote from an Uzbek player this month, which is कि, कि black से prepare करना is a bit easier. So I think he's happier that he's gotten black, but at the same time, I think the goal is to try and hold basically the and try to improve.
Yeah, absolutely. Magnus से खेलने की opportunity, classical chess, to be honest, not many players will now get it. Imagine, yeah, Magnus playing this event, he's playing Norway chess. We don't really know उसके बाद वो classical chess खेलेंगे भी कि नहीं खेलेंगे सहज भाई, honestly, because Norway chess is the only tournament he usually plays, and अगला वाला अगले साल होगा, who knows if he plays next year. And yeah, golden period for chess. The final few tournaments for Magnus, maybe in classical chess potentially, and there we see all the four boards, the bird's eye view, उड़ती पंछी कैमरा लेके घूम रही है सहज भाई वहां पे, and we also see Arjun there sitting in front of Nils. आज अर्जुन को जीतना ही होगा मुझे लग रहा है.
Absolutely. But speaking of Magnus, I feel like he's played a lot of over the board events in the past, 2 months or so. Considering this, and then उसके बाद Norway chess भी होगा, and freestyle was another one. Krenke was another one. I mean, so he's played so much in this past. No, I mean, generally that's not what we are used to seeing.
Yeah, agreed. I think Magnus, of course, loves chess, Chad. I think he has a lot of interest in his life: football, fitness, poker, the other interests that we've heard of. But I think chess is the number one love for him. Of course, that's why he's so good. He loves the game, and of course, जैसा आपने कहा कल सहज भाई कि over the board खेलने का मौका उनको मिल रहा है, so he's gonna play his A game, of course, and his usually his B game is enough, सहज भाई, as we once heard, I think at Norway Chess last year, that was enough to win the event. So let's see आज कौन सी game आती है. And chat, question to you, the predictions coming in from you before the games begin. First, Arjun versus Nils. Arjun के लिए win, draw या loss. What is your prediction, chat? What is your prediction, Sahej bhai?
I think game wise, results wise, hard to say, but like one thing I can guarantee with like 100%, result is के Arjun की prep आएगी board पे. Like I'm predicting Arjun will have more than 1 hour and 26 minutes after move 15. That's my prediction.
I also have prediction सहज भाई कि अर्जुन आज क्रेजी कुछ खेलेगा if possible, because पहले white है उनके टूर्नामेंट में. The only guy who has not played white so far. So I am guessing कि आज अर्जुन कहेंगे या भाई शुक्रिया भगवान सफेद पीसेस दे दिए, व्हाइट पीसेस मिल गए. सो आज तो मैं खुल्ला खुल्ला भाई फुल मोड में चेस खेलूंगा. सो सहज भाई, अर्जुन ऑफ कोर्स चैट भी कह रही है कि जीतने के चांसेस काफी है, कुछ लोग ड्रॉ भी लिख रहे हैं, एक बंदा लॉस भी लिख रहा है. बट व्हाट अबाउट मैग्नस? व्हाट इज योर प्रेडिक्शन फॉर मैग्नस कार्लसन? बिकॉज मैग्नस wants to beat Nodirbek, because that could potentially also seal the event for him, because उनके strongest दो जो challengers हैं, they are Arjun. He's drawn Arjun. If he beats Nodirbek, तो winning chances बहुत high.
That is true. That is true. But I feel like everyone is a challenger, and of course, these two players will be chasing. I mean, or well, will have the highest chance of chasing him. But let's not forget there's Andy Woodward, who's performed really well in Grand Swiss as well, and then there is Jorden. I mean, who's just became 27-30, and of course, let's not forget Erdogmus and Zhu Jiner. Matlab, I feel everyone is capable of playing extremely good chess. So they're all going to be chasing him. But from Magnus, I think he will try to beat, of course, Nodirbek as much as possible. And Nodirbek will just solid run. What happens? That's a very difficult question. I feel like if Magnus gets one of those Magnus type positions, I feel like Magnus will win. But at the same time, I also think if Nodirbek gets a Nodirbek type position, then Nodirbek will win.
By the way,
क्योंकि लास्ट टाइम आपको याद होगा टाटा स्टील मास्टर्स में नॉर्दरबेक ने मैग्नस को एकदम मैग्नस की तरह ही हराया था. वो जो क्वीन पॉन वर्सेस क्वीन की हम बात कर रहे थे, वो भी ब्लैक से ही
yeah.
हराया था बाय द वे. सो
Sayesh bhai,
दैट कुड
by the way,
हैपन.
we have liftoff in 3 games, but Magnus is nowhere to be seen. So let's go full screen on Magnus. He is late. Magnus Carlsen is late, right? I mean, he's not arrived just yet.
Why he's
By typical.
smiling. He's smiling. Look at this. Nordberg is smiling. He knows. He knows this is on purpose.
Wow.
Wow.
Magnus Carlsen is late by as expected. कोई legendary moment से पहले Magnus late होते हैं, तो आज कुछ तो crazy होगा भाई.
मतलब at least Magnus late है. I would see this as a form of respect from Magnus. मतलब you know कि Magnus इसको at least कहीं ना कहीं पे कुछ value देता
पता है, मैग्नस वॉशरूम में पानी नहीं आ रहा होगा 5 मिनट के लिए, और हम लोग, मैग्नस, मैग्नस, दिस इज एन इंपॉर्टेंट गेम फॉर मैग्नस. वी डोंट रियली नो दो लाइक व्हाट इज द रीजन बिहाइंड हिम बीइंग लेट, बट आई डू अग्री विद यू. लाइक पार्शली आई डू अग्री विद यू. जब भी कुछ आइकॉनिक मोमेंट्स, इंपॉर्टेंट टूर्नामेंट्स, वहीं पे वो लेट होते हैं भाई हमेशा.
You can see Nodirbek is smiling right now. I mean, he understands why Magnus is late and he's just kind of soaking it all in, but
Why he's smiling?
it's actually
Look at him.
super funny.
He's hiding his smile. He's hiding his smile. Wow. Wow.
That's very, very crazy. Chad, I would not say that this is a form of disrespect or anything along those lines. I just think this is something that Magnus does. And maybe in the past he used to do it to get in your head, but now I think it's become a habit. Yeah? And you could also argue that by being late, he's also,
Let's
by the way,
go.
we have handshakes.
He's
Let's
here,
go.
bhai. He's here, bhai. It is a signature move, bhai. It's not disrespect, bhai. It's a signature move for Magnus now.
No, he
उसके
just
बिना तो
showered. Look at him. He just showered. Magnus just showered. He was just late. Yeah, let's go.
सहज भाई, आई एम टेलिंग यू, जो कॉन्ट्रैक्ट आया होगा ना मैग्नस का कि भाई ओके आपको 6-7 गेम खेलने, आप विड्रॉ नहीं कर सकते, इतना फीस ये वो ये, उसमें एक लाइन होगी भाई, एक गेम में लेट आना प्लीज. कंटेंट भी बनाना है हम लोगों को. इट इज नॉट अ सरप्राइज चैट, इट्स वेरी ट्रेडिशनल. बाय द वे, मैग्नस इज हियर, एंड बाय द 3 मिनट ऑलरेडी डाउन ऑन द क्लॉक. अगर ब्लिट्स होता, नोटबुक वुड हैव ऑलरेडी वन.
भाई अब इसके बाद प्रॉपर एक साइकोलॉजिकल मूव क्या होती है चैट. लाइक यू अराइव लेट एंड देन उसके बाद आराम से आप पूरा एकदम नाम लिखो, फिर हर पीस को आप एडजस्ट करो. लुक एट दैट, लुक एट दैट. मैग्नस एडजस्टिंग ईच पीस आराम से. मेरे को कोई हरी नहीं है यहाँ पे चैट. दिस इज दिस इज अ प्रॉपर साइकोलॉजिकल टैक्टिक इन चेस बाय द वे, व्हिच अ लॉट ऑफ
या.
प्लेयर्स यूज.
And by the way, finally, the first move on the board is D4. Let's go, Magnus. On the board played. वो भी था आराम से मक्खन की तरह, मतलब पॉन को पुश किया और क्लॉक को प्रेस किया. कोई जल्दी नहीं है. अगर लंदन खेल देंगे तो इस पे बिल्कुल मतलब 4 चांद लग जाएंगे. And he gets up again, भाई.
भाई it feels like Magnus completed the whole trifecta, yeah. Like in this sense, like he arrived late, aram se pieces adjust, and by after making the first move, he leaves the board as well. This is psychological tactic to get inside your opponent's head. Ki bhai, I don't care. Like it might be important for you, but it is not important. It's not as important for me, and this is how he gets, let's say, a psychological advantage.
I have to be honest. I feel like we always debate this. Yeah, who's the biggest content creator, chess creator on the planet? Is it Hikaru? Is it Levy? Is it like? But I feel like it's actually Magnus, जिसको कैमरा और स्ट्रीमिंग सेटअप की जरूरत ही नहीं है कंटेंट क्रिएट करने के लिए. वो अपने लिए नहीं, वो सबके लिए कंटेंट क्रिएट करता है भाई. मैग्नस इज द रियल कंटेंट क्रिएटर भाई. देखो, कॉफी भी आ
और
गई,
मे बी
पानी
ही
भी आ
जस्ट
गया.
वांटेड सम कॉफी भाई. वो कंटेंट क्रिएटर नहीं, कॉफी क्रिएटर है भाई वो.
भाई अभी
लेट्स गो.
चिप्स भी आएंगे, अंकल चिप्स आएंगे, हम
भाई
बैठ के भाई
इज
मैग्नस
इट
भाई.
पॉसिबल? टिकू भाई, इज इट पॉसिबल? इज
ओह
इट इज इट
भाई,
प्लीज? Man,
इतना
if
कंटेंट.
Magnus plays Bishop F4 now, he is the best content creator of chess, period.
भाई परेश ट्रैवल को साइड हटाओ.
Oh,
ओ मिस्ड बाय ओ नो. It would have been the iconic moment of 2026 so far, but okay, yeah, still pretty close by. Number 2 to Sindar win the candidates.
अरे यार. But okay, we have QGD or Catalan on the board, depending on what Nodirbek plays. It can either be E6 or it can be C6. C6 would make it Slav, and E6 would make... Oh, he goes for Slav. Interesting. एंड इससे ये एक चीज़ गारंटी होगी कि अब मैग्नस कैटलन नहीं खेल पाएगा, बिकॉज कैटलन यूजुअली E6 के अगेंस्ट खेली जाती है, एंड कैटलन इज मोर यूजफुल व्हेन दिस बिशप इज ब्लॉक्ड. अब फॉर एग्जाम्पल, आई कैन ब्रिंग द बिशप आउट एंड आई कैन कैप्चर द पॉन ऑन C4. दैट वुड बी आइडियल फॉर मी. तो दैट्स व्हाई यू शुड नॉट प्ले G3 राइट नाउ.
अगर मैग्नस ने यहाँ G3 खेल दिया सहज भाई, जो हमारे एडिटर अपना वो
भाई
एडिटिंग
धोएंगे मेरे
सॉफ्टवेयर
को.
पे जो लगे होंगे टक 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 उसके बाद ओए
वेट कर रहे
मैग्नस
होंगे
G3
भाई वो
भाई
उसके G3 खेलने का। भाई तो
भाई
रुक, तेरे
कम
को
ऑन
अभी बताता हूँ मैं।
cat one diamond membership giveaway if Magnus plays G3 भाई one diamond membership giveaway if 1 month अगर मैग्नस ने यहाँ G3 खेल दिया सहज
यू
भाई
नो मैंने बोल तो दिया है, बट 3.5K गेम्स ऑन G3 इन दिस पोजीशन।
with a decent record for white. Like it doesn't have a bad record at all. Like of course strategically it's not best, but online chess you can get away with
No,
it.
no,
But
it's very
classical,
good. It's very good. I mean, G3 is a proper line, but like my point is
भाई
it's still not Katarn.
देखो देखो सहज भाई पलट गए पहले कहते G3 नहीं खेल सकते यहाँ पे suddenly it's like
भाई डर लग
hey
रहा है
it's
यार,
very good it's
ऑनेस्टली।
very good
डर लग रहा है भाई, बचा रहा हूँ मैं अपने आप को। बाय द वे, what is the one line you will never play against Arjun? Tiku bhai, don't look, don't look. What is the one line you will never play against Arjun? Go.
bomb cloud
No, 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 no. Like serious answers only. What is the one line you will never play against Arjun if you were black? He plays E4. Don't look, don't look.
G6
Okay, modern. You're very close.
अच्छा yeah G6 I would not play like, because I would not give him the
Mod.
center and allow him to just steamroll me yeah
Bhai, Dragon.
oh oh
We have
भाई
Sicilian Dragon on the board chat against Arjun Erigaisi. भाई दम तो है बंदे में, निल्स में। ये तो मान, like you have to give it to him. You have to give credit where it's due, भाई।
सहज भाई क्रेडिट की बात आई तो मैग्नस की भी चाल देखो भाई मतलब क्वीन टू C2 भाई आई नो इट्स नॉट लाइक अ ओ माय गॉड सरप्राइज बट क्वीन C2 कुछ हटके भाई कुछ अलग
Oh, this is actually one of my favorite moves in this position against Slav. Usually knight c3 or queen c2, but queen c2 is so nice because and now, by the way, Carlsen will play g3. Like at some point, he's gonna play g3, bishop g2, castle करके. This is gonna happen. This is one of the lines. But of course, the difference is टिकू भाई के पहले अगर आप g3 खेलते तो pawn से c4 मर रहा था. But अब c4 मारोगे तो I can capture back with the queen. And also in many ways, he takes नॉदिरबेक अवे फ्रॉम थ्योरी।
या
बिकॉज स्लाव के अंदर आप नाइट सी3 खेलते तो बहुत बहुत मतलब 15-20 साल की थ्योरी इन लाइक इन 10 different scenarios, it's heavily analyzed, but queen c2 is kind of a sideline which I don't think Magnus has played before. I could be wrong. I mean, I'm sure in blitz or rapid it's possible, but um, yeah, I think Nodirbek is kind of out at least for today.
या आउट ऑफ प्रेप फॉर श्योर ऑलरेडी सो काफी इंटरेस्टिंग सेटअप फॉर नोदिरबेग जो अब सोचेंगे जो भी टाइम मैग्नस का शावर में एक्स्ट्रा गया है वो अभी उनको रिकवर होगा एंड मीनवाइल सेज बाय गोइंग टू अर्जुन नाउ लेट्स गो ओवर द ओपनिंग मूव्स वन बाय वन कि क्या चल रहा है एंड अर्जुन टू योर पॉइंट इज प्लेइंग क्विकली बट मे बी टेकिंग अ बिट ऑफ टाइम मे बी द ड्रैगन वाज बिट ऑफ अ सरप्राइज या
I think for sure Dragon was a surprise, but he does play Bishop E3, which is the main line. We are headed towards the Yugoslav attack with F3, Queen D2, Bishop C4, and long castle. ऐसे आप G4 H4 के लिए आप attack करते हो. But we know that it is not Arjun's prep, and nobody plays Dragon without completely knowing everything about Dragon because it's too risky. So I think Nils will blitz out some prep here. I think Arjun के लिए the ideal scenario is कि he has prepared for this exact scenario जहाँ पे उसके पास एक ऐसी sideline हो जो मे बी निल्स ने कल मतलब कल रात को या आज सुबह ना देखा हो।
भाई साहज भाई आई डोंट नील्स ने आज सुबह कल रात तो क्या देखा है बट ऑल आई नो इज कि अर्जुन फ्रॉम दिस पोजीशन जहां उनके पास सेंटर है एक ओपनिंग जहां पे ट्रेडिशनली वाइट ऑलरेडी gets an attack yeah if he wants to like f3 already played g4 next move could be played after you castle or queen d2 like already ready to attack I feel like Nils is playing with the pot of boiled water गोल है कि मैं वो गर्म पानी से कॉफी बनाऊंगा बट अगर हल्का सा भी स्पिल हो गया यू कुड बी बर्न्ट योर सहज भाई एंड मुझे लग रहा है निल्स 0 out of 2 पे मे बी यू वांटेड मे बी अ सेफर ओपनिंग चॉइस जहां पे रिस्क कम है अर्जुन आज धोएंगे और धोएंगे कि भाई थाला को भी शर्म आ जाएगी सहज भाई व्हाट डू यू फील
भाई the likelihood of that is so high. But you never know. You never know. Let's see how much he has prepped. It could be that he has looked at Dragon you know, um, before this tournament and not on the night itself. But let's see. Let's see. It is possible.
Yep, very interesting. And chat, I want to ask Sahej to take us through, let's say, the next 5 moves जो सबसे लॉजिकल होती है वाइट के लिए. Just take us through this opening की ड्रैगन से आजकल क्यों नहीं लोग खेलते हैं, क्यों वाइट के लिए अच्छी मन जाती है. Will take us through a main line, Sahej bhai. How can the game look like if people just follow the the well-trodden paths?
So, like in this moment, after he just played Queen D2, Black usually goes short castle, White goes Bishop C4, Black plays. You can either take on D4 and play Bishop E6, or you can go Bishop D7. Um, I would say दोनों ठीक हैं. Like, but Bishop D7 is the old classical line where जहाँ पे मतलब it's like 20 move theory. I'm just gonna show a couple of lines here. Long castle, Rook C8, Bishop जाता है, takes, B5, A3, A. This is it's like this is just one variation and it's 5 moves deep. Yeah. Basically, from the moment when Arjun has played Queen D2, that's one variation that goes 5 moves deep. And line there are maybe 20 variations like that that maybe go 10 moves deep
Wow.
in dragon, and inside those 20 there will be like little sidelines that will go 3-4 moves deeper. तो इतना आपको याद रखना पड़ता है ड्रैगन के लिए. एंड इसीलिए ज्यादातर लोग ब्लैक से तभी खेलते हैं जब ये एक सरप्राइज वेपन हो. अगर आप बार बार ड्रैगन खेलते हो और मुझे पता है कि आप ड्रैगन खेलने वाले हो, then it's a big, like a very, very huge risk. So you have to employ it quite strategically. I think at this
Agreed.
level, I really cannot remember the last time someone played dragon, let's say in the last 3-4 years. Okay, maybe
Yeah.
in the past, of course, World Championships में भी खेली गई हैं, but I'm talking in modern chess.
Agreed. Very double-edged opening, and Nils अभी कुर्सी पे भी नहीं है, so maybe he's walking around trying to remember the theory here. Meanwhile, let's go back to Magnus. We have a very interesting decision, Sehez, by taken by the goat of chess. That is, he just took on d5. Wanna get your thoughts? What's the planning here? Because usually Queen c2 हमने खेला है. My logic is preparing for like that dc4 move, right? कि आप मारोगे मैं queen से मार सकता हूं अब. So why queen c2 and then the c takes d5?
Oh, Magnus, I think, got Nodirbek out of his prep, I think, with this. Because what he essentially did is Magnus ने बोला कि ये आपने C4 C6 के बाद अगर मैं पॉन टेक्स पॉन यहाँ पे मारता हूँ, आप पॉन टेक्स पॉन मारते हो, देन अगर हम पीसेस के सॉर्ट ऑफ फ्यूचर के बारे में सोचते हैं तो मे बी नाइट कम्स आउट टू C6, बिशप गोज आउट टू G4 और F5, वेरेवर पॉन ऐसे E6 पे आता है, बिशप D6 पे आता है, ना आप कासल करते हो, राइट? दिस वुड बी द नॉर्मल सेटअप हाउ इट लुक्स लाइक. मैग्नस ने बोला कि ठीक है, आई प्ले क्वीन C2 एंड I'll give you the option to play pawn takes pawn here if you want. But Nodirbek says, you know what, I'll play G6 and I'll keep it more closed. And now Magnus says कि now if I take on these pawns in the center, आपने G6 ऑलरेडी कमिट कर दिया है. इसका मतलब आप बिशप को D6 से तो नहीं निकाल सकते अब, बिकॉज ये साइड आपकी एकदम वीक हो जाएगी. एंड इफ यू पुट द बिशप ऑन G7, देन ये डायगोनल कौन कंट्रोल कर रहा है? तो आई फील लाइक this is some change in the move order, which is I think done to kind of try and get Nodirbek out of his prep. But I'm not sure if
I
I'm not sure if he's out of prep yet.
I kind of agree. Basically, exchange Slav है, but White ने खेला है Queen C2 and Black ने खेला है G6. And White can actually just kind of, for example, Bishop F5, just play Queen B3, which would just transpose to the normal Queen's this Slav exchange. But Black cannot take the G pawn back. So very
Huh.
interesting setup by Magnus here. Still completely equal chat. I don't think this is a problem for Nodirbek, but of course, maybe if he's not experienced in these structures, there could be an opportunity for Magnus.
I don't know. I feel like this pawn on G6 is it's an interesting nuance in the position, because generally pawn G6 पे नहीं होता in scenarios में. Like let's say if after C4 C6, if I want you to play G6 ना, then I have to play a move like E3 for example. मैं E3 खेलता हूँ because I'll say okay, you cannot capture the pawn anymore, then you'll play G6 and ठीक है, if you were to take the pawn like this, then मैंने भी तो E3 पे pawn अपना predict कर sort of provoke कर दिया है, and then I can no longer play bishop f4 in this position. So there are very few scenarios where you will play g6 and my bishop goes out to f4 essentially. And okay, I have also haven't committed g3 as well. Yes, you can say knight c3 में possible है, but knight c3 में g6 कोई नहीं खेलता. Like this is not really as common. You generally take, you play e6, these are the, or you play a6, which is another form of Slav there. So an interesting nuance here. And I think you can see just by the way that Nodirbek is focused on the match, ke he wanted a game. Thoda late start hua, but he has a game in front of him.
Why he has a game. At least that's what he wanted. You mentioned no, he that's why he's playing the tournament. He Magnus hai. And I think that's why many players actually playing this tournament. Without Magnus, I'm not sure if Arjun would play. And even Yagiz, for example, like it's a golden opportunity for him to play Magnus here. And it's going to be very, very interesting to see all these battles. Magnus playing classical chess after almost a year will be interesting. So Magnus getting his steps in. I wonder if we can have that bird's eye view, Sahej Bhai and chat. Want to get your opinion on how many results we're going to have today. Sahej Bhai, take us through a 10-20 second breakdown of each game and the number of results you expect. Chat, take a guess.
I Okay, firstly, I think we've already done a deep dive on Magnus versus Nodirbek with what's happening still in opening phase on the bottom right corner of the screen. And on the bottom left, we have Arjun and Nils. We also did a deep dive here. It's a dragon. Arjun sochte hue. He's definitely not in his prep. He doesn't have that key idea which we were talking about earlier. Yagiz versus Zhu Jiner is particularly quite interesting to me because I feel Zhu Jiner has started with this E3, B3, knight F3 kind of a setup
Hmm.
to get him out of his prep, or I'm not sure what the strategy there is, but it looks like it's working because Yag is already 10 minutes behind on the clock.
Hmm.
And then there is Andy versus Jordan, which I cannot, even if I tried, I cannot break this down in like 10 seconds by. There is no way because that's
Hmm.
what's happening. I think let's go there and let's actually try to figure out. I believe it's called the Lion Variation. It has a very cool name, but we should definitely
Wow.
do a deep dive on this game to see क्या चल रहा है because look at this Tiku bhai after knight c3 e5 so Jordan of course trying to play for a win here um he's also giving him pawn takes pawn जो basically कोई player मारता नहीं है but knight f3 knight d7 and look at this rook g1 and g4
Bhai Sahab. भाई आई मीन चेस में मतलब कई बार लगता है कि यार देयर इज सो मच ब्यूटी हिडन इफ यू आर रियली क्यूरियस यार rook g1 and g4 just kind of going gung ho instantly castles who cares development who cares attack pehle bhai like it's crazy how chess has evolved and we can see already Van Foreest thinking although of course he's ahead on the clock but after this g4 move you have to sit down for a think and कैसल करने से पहले थोड़ा कापोगे सहज भाई एज ब्लैक हियर
yes for sure actually आप g4 directly भी फेंक सकते हो यहाँ पे which is the beauty of this variation. But yeah, भाई इस game में Andy is on 1.5 out of 2 and if he wants to take the lead, like okay, you cannot expect a better opening than this. I feel.
अग्रीड
Look at this bishop e7 also Jordan plays भाई also giving
भाई
him those dark squares भाई यहाँ पे एकदम proper आग लगेगी. So मजा आएगा बहुत. Um, yeah, and by the way, while we say all of this, Arjun, who's now 10 minutes behind, is still thinking.
भाई वो हमारा वेट कर रहा था सहज भाई उस बोर्ड पे जाने का बिकॉज इंस्टेंटली ही इज कैसल्ड ही इज लाइक भाई दिस इज माय डे टुडे तो मेरे पे ध्यान दे एंड ही कैसल्स इंस्टेंटली सहज भाई एंड नाउ आई एम लुकिंग एट द पोजीशन d5 is the only move for black is that true सहज भाई
Yes, this is still theory. Takes, and then knight c6, bc6, bishop d4, e5, bishops. This is all theory until this point. You play knight e4 and इसके बाद आप छोड़ देते हो. But for most elite grandmasters, this is where the preparation begins. And this is, by the way, move 14 chart. So this is, it can be some really, really deep preparation from Nils. But let's see what he has in store. And the idea that I'm talking about कि अगर कुछ एक छोटा सा कोई एक ऐसी मूव जो निल्स ने मे बी ना एनालाइज करी हो यू कैन एक्चुअली डी कोड अर्जुन फेस एट लक मेरे को यहाँ पे 10 चालें पता है बट इसने कल क्या नहीं देखा होगा दैट्स एग्जैक्टली व्हाट अर्जुन इज थिंकिंग अबाउट राइट नाउ आई फील यू सी ही टेक्स ऑन c6 दैट्स अ गुड मूव बिकॉज pawn takes pawn was the let's say the main approach there black goes pawn takes knight as well and now you have bunch of moves bishop h6 is there bishop c4 is there and he goes for bishop c4.
Wow. And I saw this, right? We saw this at the candidates, Sejbhai. I
Yes.
think we
Guess
saw
by
this at the
who?
candidates.
Guess by
Zujiner,
who?
kya? Zujiner?
No, no, no. One more,
Then?
one more, one more. Come on.
Okay,
You
who was
know
it?
this. You know this. I'm sure you know
I
this,
saw
Tikubai.
this.
Don't look. Don't look.
No, I'm not
I'm
looking.
sure
I'm
you
trying
know
to
this.
किसने
It's
देखा
in the
था?
women's section. It's in the women's
Yeah,
section.
yeah, I know. That's why I said Zhu Jiner in the women's section.
Yes.
Was it Vaishali against last round that she won?
Yes, yes, exactly. Against
Oh,
Lagno. This was Vaishali
why?
versus Lagno.
Okay, so using Vaishali's prep by that one of the candidates, and look at it, like I say, women's chess by eyeballs near. Look at this, Arjun, of course, learning from Vaishali there. By the way, Bishop C4 ke baad, Nils clearly has had a look at that position and he finds the best move, pawn to e6. Sahaj bhai, this time we will not see a easy victory for Arjun here as the white pieces. So what is the plan for white here? How can he move forward? Let's go full screen. I really want to see Arjun's and Nils' expressions here.
After e6, bishop b3, I believe is the main move. Or you can try, and then you try to play on the king side essentially. I think Vaishali के game में भी something ऐसा ही कुछ हुआ था where she tried to attack on the king side, but her opponent gave a pawn. She gave a bunch of pawns, and then she didn't have to launch that attack. But
Yeah.
regardless, this bishop on b3 was a very very important piece to sort of defend on the queen side. I think that's what Arjun wants. तो वो sideline तो आ गई है board पे. I think, but I'm not sure if Arjun has looked at this on the day itself.
I think he might remember this though. I think e6 was the first preference of the engine by far. So याद होगा, and bishop b3 the first preference of white here. So that's great. फिलहाल के लिए सब चंगा लग रहा है सहज भाई. Now the thing is, मेरा engine, I would love to check yours as well, but bishop b7 best कह रहा है. That's first of all not like trivial to me because I would rather keep the b file open for my rook. And even after bishop b7, white ki best move is knight a4, one of the best moves. Like these moves are not easy, I feel, for either side. How easy it is, Sejbhai, for you?
No, no, I think this is h4, knight a4 are pretty typical because you want to control the c5 square
Hmm.
in the long term. Maybe you play bishop c5, maybe you go knight c. Also, भाई black कभी future में a5 a4 तो खेलेगा ना, because आप queen set,
Hmm.
अगर आप queen set पे नहीं attack कर रहे हो तो फिर आप क्या कर रहे हो उस position में? तो when you play a5, knight a4 is going to be a useful move.
By the way, Vishwishan played, so clearly
क्या
Nils
बात,
Grandelius,
wow,
you
nice.
know, up to date with this opening prep. So that's looking great. And now Arjun ki kitna dekha hai. Now, as you mentioned, Sejbhai, h4 is definitely one of the best moves. Knight a4 as well. Rook h e1 is the third most popular, best move.
आपने
And I'm
कौन
going
सी
to ask,
बेस्ट न्यूज़ बोली एक बार फिर से बोलना.
so knight a4 best दिखा रहा है, h4 second, rook e1 third.
Will you believe me that only one move is on my laptop here right now
क्या
out of these
बात कर
three?
रहे हो?
Take a guess, Teku bhai, which move is it? The
h4,
top
yeah?
move, h4 is not one of them.
वाओ. सो आपकी तीन मूव कौन सी है भाई?
तो 50-50 तो guess करो.
ओके, नाइट ए4 होगा फिर, आई थिंक.
Knight a4 है. That's move number 2.
हाँ.
The
ओ
top is
वाओ.
bishop g5,
ओ वाओ. एंड
and the second is knight a4, and third is bishop c5.
बिशप c5. ओके,
भाई
दैट्स अ
मतलब
मूव आई वुड.
this really shows how nuanced chess really is, because like just having a slightly different laptop can have such a different like view on each position, yeah. And I'm
भाई ये तो
guessing the difference is like 19-20 का फर्क, but all of them lead to like so many different possibilities, and we are saying this is best, that is best, but हमें कुछ नहीं पता है. Like we are just saying it जो हम पढ़ पा रहे हैं at the end of the day.
भाई, दिस इज सच अ ग्रेट एडवर्टाइजमेंट फॉर अ न्यू लैपटॉप.
Bhai,
बेसिकली.
your laptop is very strong, no?
हाँ, बट स्टिल यार, सच अ
Yours is
डिफरेंस.
i9 as well, no?
Yeah, but I think yours might be better because जैसे मैं moves खेल रहा हूँ तो white की value बढ़ रही है. So clearly
Ne-
your engine knows something which mine doesn't.
Bhai,
Very
it's
interesting.
very nuanced. I'm telling you, it's only saying that because एक और laptop आएगा, it's gonna say something else. And I've tried doing this. Like even if you play against like a weaker engine, वो आपको एक चाल बताता है. उसके बाद आप थोड़ा थोड़ा उसके साथ खेलो. Like try to
Yeah.
play it out, and you'll understand why it's saying that as well. So I think yeah, point 3, point 4 is just completely nuanced and has no real world applications at least.
Got it. Very interesting though. I think although the plan may definitely there's real world application key. If you go
Hmm.
h4, it's very clear what your plan is. You want to go absolutely crazy on the king side. If you play, a move like bishop c5, that signals, okay, I'm going to play on the dark squares. Knight a4 also in that theme. So very interesting. Usually king b1 is always something you can consider, but maybe it's too slow for this position because काफी crazy hai. So Sahaj bhai, critical moment in the game, Arjun thinking, and I'm going to ask you a question. Maybe that's also insightful for the chat. It is for me. अगर अर्जुन ने यहां कोई ओपनिंग फाइल बनाई है, my guess is he's kind of looked at all of these moves. So उसका डिसीजन अभी ये नहीं है कि बेस्ट चाल क्या है, उसका डिसीजन ये है कि इन H4 नाइट A4 बिशप C5 whatever रुकी वन में से बेस्ट चांसेस मुझे यहां विन के लिए कौन सी देगा, उसने चारों देखी हुई है.
I feel like that is true, but this can also really backfire for you. Simply because I feel, let's say आपने देखा है कि इस पोजीशन में आपको H4 खेलना है एंड यू डोंट रिमेंबर आपको H4 कब खेलना है. आपको ये पता है कि आपको H4 खेलना है, बट एंड मे बी इन दिस मोमेंट H4 इज फाइन, but in the next move it is much better because of some tactical, reason or some strategic reasoning or whatever. But I'm just saying, if you are trying to remember, it's much better to have no memory of a position than to have like you know half of it essentially.
That's a fair point. That's a
But
fair point because हम ऐसे ओपनिंग को देख रहे हैं, अर्जुन को नहीं पता क्या खेलने वाला लेंस. So if you have 4 or 5 options prepared, it can confuse you. Definitely a good point there. And सोच
it
रहे
can
हैं
also
अर्जुन.
confuse the player himself as well. And
Yeah.
okay, but what's making me say this is because he has 1 hour and 15 minutes in a 1 hour 30 minutes. Like in 90 plus 30, I mean, Tikuba, you and I both have played like a lot of classical matches like this. When you are 1 hour and 15 minutes, like no, doesn't matter I feel your level, that indicates that you're not in prep anymore. Like आप 15 मिनट एक्टिंग करोगे तो कैसे, तो मतलब कैसे चलेगा, राइट? अब कोई इतना स्ट्रक्चर्ड नहीं होता इन दिस.
Maybe it's prep, but it's not fresh prep. So maybe I've
Yeah,
looked
it's
at
not
this
fresh
earlier.
prep, that's for sure,
Maybe
yeah.
Vaishali ने खेला. I saw this at that point when the candidates ended. I went deep into this idea, and now I've not looked at it for the last 2 weeks. But now this happens, I play it on the board. So something like
No,
that
no.
feels very logical to me.
It looks more like to me that, oh, my opponent has played Dragon. I saw this idea that Vaishali played. I remember that game briefly. Let me just play that and put the bishop on b3 and let's see if he makes a move quickly. To know if उसने ये भी देखा कि नहीं. Because remember that bishop c4 idea, but which Vaishali played, had very few games overall. So looks like Nils was prepared for that, and I think Arjun is out of prep here completely. But that doesn't mean that he's in trouble. I mean, of course, it's a slightly better position still. He can still play on, but yeah, Nils is better prepared. That's for sure.
Very interesting. Now, does better preparation equal to better results is a question we'll get to know very soon because Nils not high on confidence right now, right? Though losses ke baad, I mean, it's very hard to sometimes believe in yourself, especially the position is complicated. You're playing a tougher player, stronger player on paper. It's not going to be easy with the black pieces in an opening, which is known to be risky also. So it's काफी interesting. Maybe it's time to catch up with the Magnus Carlsen game as Arjun thinks.
So this is where we are with the Magnus Carlsen game. I think knight c3 was played and black goes knight c6. Bishop f4, bishop g7, e3 and short castle. And here Magnus is thinking he did get that, difference between the bishop on f4 and the black bishop being on g7. So white's bishop is a bit superior in comparison. However, knight h5 is a big threat now. इस bishop को kill करने के लिए. So Magnus would have to play a move like h3. I feel, to create some space for the bishop. Otherwise, he's in some trouble. Or, Magnus could create some kind of, let's say, an imbalance with a move like bishop b5. कि ठीक है, you can play knight h5 if you want. I might take on c6. I might play bishop e5. In either scenario, let's say I take, you take. I take on f4, black takes on c6. In this, okay, we have an imbalance where it's double bishop versus double knights, black ka structure, c6 ka pawn thoda sa weak, and so on and so on. But I think it's up to Magnus whether he wants a calm game or not. Let's see what's going to
I
happen.
think game, yeah, I think structure ऐसे ही काम थोड़ा बहुत तो रहेगा ही. I wouldn't expect something insane to happen, but Magnus is thinking and he is slightly behind on the clock right now. And of course, h3, I love that move. Bishop bachana, bahut zaruri. And the queen can be a target on c2, I feel. Like bishop f5 is a free tempo. So I would love to play bishop d3, but then there is knight b4. So I'm not in time for this. So very interesting. Nodirbek now comes and takes his seat. And Magnus Carlsen, I mean, he would really love to win this game because for him, would you say Magnus ke dimag mein, not objectively, in Magnus's mind, who do you think is the strongest competitor in this tournament who could win the event? Not beat him, but win the event, Sahaj bhai.
100% Nodirbek. Like it's without a question, it's Nodirbek. I mean, rating wise,
Exactly.
performance wise, in every single scenario, it's Nodirbek right now.
Exactly.
भाई
I
टाटा
agree. So
स्टील
that's why,
जीता ना वो अभी तो जीता
हाँ,
हो टाटा स्टील भाई प्राग मास्टर्स भी
exactly.
जीता हो.
So if he can beat Nodirbek, I think that basically guarantees कि Nodirbek event नहीं जीतेगा. And that's why I think he would love to win this. And of course, white pieces hai. Always gonna push with the white pieces. Very interesting chat. So Magnus Carlsen thinking in a very solid position right now. And Sehaj bhai, let's go to Arjun's game because he's chosen a move and it is indeed. भाई निल्स ने मुंह पे हाथ रख दिया है भाई ऑलरेडी ये क्या हो रहा है
ये देखा आई मीन उसने देखा होगा बट उसको याद नहीं है शायद. मे बी ही इज जस्ट ट्राइंग टू रिमेंबर हिज प्रेप. But this doesn't mean that he is in trouble yet. It could mean that he's in trouble because if he doesn't remember, because I see the top move is pawn takes pawn here, and good luck finding this if
सहज
you
भाई
don't know the prep.
I I want to show you a variation, and this is I don't think this will happen over the board, but I want to show you the best Indian variation. One of the best top two mein hai. So h4 d takes c4 best move as you mentioned. By the way, the only move in the position for black. Okay. Now queen f2. So I sidestep. I'm not going to trade queens. Attacking your queen. Queen c7 only move for black. And now h5 is one of the two moves for me. So एक pawn दे दिया. I just give you another one. E takes f3. आपने दूसरा ले लिया h6. Like basically h6 to me is so paradoxical because I would love to open the h file सहज भाई. ये alpha zero वाली move तो लग रही है but ना alpha है खाली zero लग रही है मुझे. Like what is h6? Like ऐसे ideas when you have you would love to open, like take on g6 open the but no h6 भाई इंजन अलग ही होते हैं भाई.
I think it's known as the power of h6. Yeah. Basically, this is was popularized by Alpha Zero, essentially, where he started going h4, h5, h6, and sometimes even sacking the pawn, sometimes keeping the pawn on the sixth rank because it you know in the long term this king is gonna have back rank problems. It's gonna have problems around the f6 and g7 squares, and you just play around that. I feel that's essentially the idea. But after d takes e4, queen f2, queen c7 you can play h5, which is I think very 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 sharp, but there is also another line here which is knight takes e4, which forces Nils to be extremely precise. So in this position knight e4 is the only move, pawn takes e4, c5 another only move, just sacking a pawn, bishop takes c5 and now आपका rook मर रहा है and you have to sack that as well, bishop e4, and guess what, white should say no, I don't want your rook, and white should play rook e1 in this position, which is okay. I think this is a bit difficult to evaluate. Black is completely equal if not better because black's bishop on g7, this dragon bishop is amazing, some attacking possibilities with a5 a4, white कभी h5 से attack करेगा तो bishop सब बचा के बैठा हुआ है. White के case में b2 pawn is still a bit weak, so
That's
this
why I
is
like
how the
h5
game
सहज
could
भाई.
go.
That's why I like h5 after that e
Hmm.
takes f3 because वो pawn f3 पे है ना, you never have the e4 square for your
अभी
pieces.
अब क्योंकि डेप्थ कम है ना लैपटॉप की, आपकी वेट करो आप.
अच्छा अच्छा
अभी आपको भी एच फाइव
अच्छा
नहीं, अभी आपको एच अभी तो भी आप 10 अभी थोड़ा वेट करो आधा मिनट इसमें, फिर देख बोलोगे आप एच फाइव नहीं, नहीं एच फाइव उतनी अच्छी नहीं है.
chat. The main point is though, regardless of what Arjun plays, has Nils seen this exact position after h4 at home? Because I have to be honest, d takes e4 is not the first move that comes to mind, Sahaj bhai. Like, I feel like up center de rahe ho, apne ye c6, c6 pawns rakh rahe ho, bishop on b3 now opens up. I get the c4 square. I can simply move the queen away. Like, is it the first move, if you were in this position, no prep, would come to your mind as the first choice?
Pawn takes pawn, 100% not. I think that's the last move I would look at. I'm looking at, okay, भाई मैं कैसे attack करूँ? Should I play a5? Should I play c5? And the more I leave the computer, the more, like, the difference here, chat, is that it's 0-0-0 if black goes pawn takes pawn, and it's 0.5 if black doesn't. So that's already, I think, a huge reason. Also, हम कहते हैं कि generally initiative के against खेलना चाहिए. सॉरी, इनिशिएटिव के साथ खेलना चाहिए, उसके अगेंस्ट नहीं खेलना चाहिए. बट हियर इनिशिएटिव इज ऑलरेडी गिवन टू अर्जुन, एंड यू ओनली हैव द ऑप्शन कि आप मटेरियल ले लो. इफ यू डोंट टेक इट, देन या यू आर जस्ट वर्स.
I you
लुक
are
एट हिम,
worse.
बाय
I
द वे,
think
Nils इज नॉट हैप्पी. लुक एट दैट.
exactly. By Nils literally half praying from his body language that he can recall what was the best move. It's the kind of body language I would have if I remember something. देखा हुआ है, but याद नहीं आ रहा. I know. Imagine you are a witness in some investigation and you're asked a question. You trying to recall कि भाई क्या शक्ल थी उस बंदे की, and but आपको exactly याद नहीं आ रहा है. And that's the kind of feeling I get from his expressions. And D takes E4, I agree with you, looks very, very tough to find over the board. So Arjun right now in the driver's seat. And you know what? I agree with you. A5 is the move I would think. Is that a logical try? But A5 ke baad, it's already +1 se zyada evaluation for white. So
या
Nils
करेक्ट भाई.
cannot go wrong here.
Yeah, true. And by the way, as you were saying, by the way, amazing analogy. I'll try to note it down somewhere. But Nils थोड़ा वो आपने वो मूवी देखी है, Lincoln? Have you seen it?
No,
Um,
I've not seen it.
it's he looks chat में अगर किसी ने देखी हो भाई, he looks literally like the main guy, no? Without of course with the proper hair. उसके थोड़े ज़्यादा बाल थे, but I was thinking about this like from the beginning, basically.
Hmm. Very interesting. Very interesting, actually. And Nils, by the way, I think has played in this tournament Andy Woodward and Magnus. So two very tough players. And next he plays Erdogmus, and then he plays Nodirbek. So I'm just putting myself in Nils' shoes right now. Imagine yourself, chat. ठीक है? आप दो गेम खेले हो, दो स्ट्रॉन्ग प्लेयर्स से, दोनों हार गए. You know, अगले दो गेम्स are against Erdogmus with black, and उसका अगला है Nodirbek. I mean, there's a real situation where you could be 0 out of 5, and this could turn out to be the worst event of your lifetime, Sahaj bhai.
नहीं नहीं
So,
नहीं, those things don't happen to Nils भाई.
but I know, but like एक fear तो रहेगा ना भाई. Like my next games are even tougher. So I think not tougher, but let's say equally tough at least. So I think Nils must be feeling the pressure. You want to be off the scoreboard, scorecard. Sorry. जब क्रिकेट खेलते हो, you might be Sachin, you might be like a Virat Kohli, you might be some of the crazy batsmen, but zero पे you want to hit those first runs first. थोड़ा confidence आता है, वो नहीं मिला अब तक Nils को.
Hmm. I mean, he did play against Magnus in round two, and also Magnus played that crazy Benoni, which I think nobody in the world could have expected. But yeah, I think he still has to continue doing what works the best, and let's see. Nils looks like Doctor House. क्या बात कर रहे हो भाई? No, absolutely not. Doctor House तो नहीं भाई. I think Daniel Day-Lewis for sure.
Yep, very interesting chat. And position wise, I think Nils के लिए एक tough decision है, and it's not gonna be easy to take. And जो time advantage है उनके पास, I think it's gonna disappear likely on this move itself, Sej bhai. And if we can have maybe the Magnus and the Arjun game in the two camera setup, Sej bhai, I think both these games super important for us. Magnus also has made a choice. He's chosen Bishop to E2, not the first move that comes to mind, because ideally you want to put it on d3, and also आपने बताया था कि h3 खेल के I want to save my bishop, but he does none of it. So what's the idea behind this bishop e2? Very interesting, mysterious
Okay,
move.
I'll keep it different. I think Bishop E2 is just Magnus playing it really slow. And he's just saying, if you want to play Bishop F5, I can just move my queen. If you play Bishop G4, it's fine as well. And remember, Bishop D3 was not possible because Black could play Knight to B4. and
Hmm.
to avoid that, he plays bishop to e2, and to not give up his bishop pair. And now I think he can go short castle, bring the rook to c1, and at least there is one difference in the position is pretty symmetrical. Like the same pawn has been traded. अगर आप knights की formation भी देखो, एकदम एकदम exactly same जगह पे है वो. And I feel the one of the biggest differences is that white का जो bishop है वो जो f4 पे पड़ा हुआ है, and black का जो bishop जो king के आगे g7 पे पड़ा हुआ है, that bishop is a bit bad. White का bishop is way better. तो एक वो छोटा सा positional advantage for Magnus, and I think he will just try to squeeze like Magnus, and that's it. Whether he will
Hmm.
succeed or not, I don't know why, because Nodirbek is, he's very similar in this sense. And if you make one mistake, he could also do that exact same thing to you that Magnus does to other people. So you never know.
Yep. And Nodirbek will be ready for that challenge, of course. And so I think, what do you think about the time control, by the way? Very interesting nowadays, chess is getting faster and faster, chat. We have so many classical time controls, right? I think Blitzka, we know it's usually 3 plus 2. There's one time control, right? There'll be variations, but limited. Rapid, we know it's 15 plus 10, 25 plus 10. Like, and 15 plus 10 is the more common one, but both, like, there are two options. Classical, we have, there's this world championship format, 2 ghante without increment. Then there's increment of the 40th move, same for candidates. Then sometimes you have two time controls added, sometimes it's one. Sometimes you have this format, like, 90 minutes, 30 seconds, and then one time control. Sometimes there is another 15 minutes. Sometimes you have the novice chess format, jahan pe, like, so which classical time control, if you had to choose only one, and that would stay till the for the next 5 years, let's say, that's the only classical time control. Also, by the way, the WRHS format, जहाँ पे
So
60 minutes होता है.
are we talking about which tournament would I commentate, or which tournament which tournament would I play?
Good question. I would say let's say as both, as a player and as a commentator, which one would you prefer? अगर एक ही रखना होता
As
आज
a
से.
player, I will tell you that I think 90 plus 30 is perfect for me. I think I really, really don't like the 40 minutes, like the 30 minutes more you get after 40 moves. मैं हमेशा लाइक वो टूर्नामेंट चूज करता हूँ जहाँ पे आधा घंटा ज़्यादा नहीं, बिकॉज आई फील लाइक एक वो मोमेंट आता है कि एक क्लासिकल में ना एक बिल्डअप होता है, बिकॉज यू यू
Hmm.
यू you think a lot in the opening, and then you battle it out first. एक वो साइकोलॉजिकल बैटल रहती है ओपनिंग की, देन मिडिल गेम में आप कुछ बढ़िया सी कैलकुलेशन करते हो, देन एंड गेम में आते आते ना इट फील्स लाइक ओके, नाउ इट्स completely quick pace, fast pace, and all of that. And then suddenly after move 40 you get another half an hour and फिर से game slow हो जाता है. So
Hmm.
that completely breaks the flow for me, and so I prefer if it's 90 plus 30. I have not played actually these fast classical type of
Hmm.
matches, which is 45 minutes or 60 minutes, or I would like to, but I like 90 plus 30 to play for sure. To commentate, I would say rapid is maybe one of the nicer ones, or maybe like fast classical, because उसमें उतना slow नहीं है, because
Hmm.
where players are thinking for a long time on move, sometimes on move 3 4 5, as we have seen in Grand Swiss or events like that. So I would say rapid and fast classical would be my favorite there. And what about you, bhai?
I would agree 90 plus 13 both, I think. That's my take, because I think fast classical I like, but I think it's not been tested enough for me to be convinced. I also like that format though, in the same boat as you. But I prefer 90 plus 30, I think, for both, because basically what I don't like is कि इतना tension build up हो रहा होता है ना, the same logic as you said, but like we're building up to that climax in the game जहाँ पे कोई blunder करेगा and suddenly both players get like half an hour and it just dissolves the tension completely. So I love the sync we have there. And Chad would love to know which classical time control would be your favorite. I think. Do you prefer the extra time that players gain after 40 minutes? Yes or no is the main question, I think. And right now, of course, both players, all four players, actually having enough time on their clocks. But as we saw yesterday, time trouble can be a real problem in the final moments. Both Arjun and Erdogmus could have won that game if they had an extra 5 minutes at the right moment, Sahaj bhai.
Exactly, and many times it often comes down to those 5 minutes, and if the match doesn't go your way, and I'm guilty of this so many times, because sometimes it happens when I'm playing a match in the morning. The match is at let's say 9 a.m. I'm not really a morning person, so sometimes you show up at 9:02, 9:03. Sometimes you show up at 9:10. It happens. We all make mistakes, and you know, this happens कि let's say you're 10 minutes late for your match, and then you realize कि वो 10 मिनट अगर आप थोड़ा पहले आ जाते तो maybe it could have helped you think you know, properly at the right moment, and that feeling is one of the worst you, I think, face as a chess player. Then you really learn कि भाई your actions have consequences.
एंड मुझे दिख रहा है चैट पे इंक्रीमेंट का भी डिबेट चल रहा है. यू नो चैट, आई थिंक सहज भाई एंड आई बोथ हैव प्लेड ओवर द बोर्ड चेस बिफोर इंक्रीमेंट्स वाज अ थिंग. Some of you might have. If you have, do let us know in the chat. I really prefer increment though. I think without increment, basically, like, you might have like two extra queens on the board, but you could lose that game, which I find a bit ridiculous sometimes. Like, um, so I kind of like the increment. It makes sure that if you have a completely winning position, you're not gonna lose just because there's some odd pawn that black has on a6, even though you have three queens lined up. Sage, by your take on that
But
one, the increment.
that's fair. I think you have a pretty fair call on this, but I feel like, firstly, I don't have a lot of experience in playing 2 hours with no increment, at least not recently, not in modern chess. Yes, I've played on a lot of games on those Russian clocks that we all remember, those
Yeah.
analogs wale jo clocks rehti thi. I've played basically my entire childhood was,
By the
you know,
way, I
basically
have that
playing on
clock
them.
here. If we can go
Arey,
full screen on the
amazing!
Arjun
Show me,
game,
show me.
I can
It's been
show
so
it to you,
long.
chat. So this is the clock I think Sahej bhai is talking about.
Bhai, ek
Analog
baar
clock hoti hai. And this
beautiful.
basically,
Where did you get this?
I imported this from the US, I think 2 years back, something like that. And it still
Nice.
works. I don't know if you can hear the tick tock, tick
Yeah, yeah,
tock.
I can. It's
So
very
this
nice.
is the clock chat. Basically, it doesn't have any like battery, anything. It just runs on springs, by the way. As far as I know,
Yeah.
you basically tighten this. You basically tighten the spring in this watch from here, and it just runs on the spring. There is no like mechanical anything, no battery, nothing for this one. You tighten these springs, and it just works for the next
Yeah.
whatever hours. So crazy clock, and it was amazing to play. But first of all, the flag, the red flag you see on top, sometimes people used to align this slightly in your favor. Yeah, halka sa,
Yeah,
like
like that's how you knew
हाँ
somebody was trying to, you know, like cheat in chess in that
हाँ.
in the sense कि अगर थोड़ा, because वो झंडा जब भी ऐसे अब गिरता था, that's how you know कि
So
it's this is how, by the way, we used to play chess like basically 15-20 years ago. So it's very 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 important to
and
show this. Look at
so
that, yeah.
now I'm gonna pull this clock, and that flag will go up as you can see, and I can basically pull the flag to different extents in both the clocks. And वो कब गिरेगा पता नहीं. You never know when the
हाँ
flag will fall. So that's why you
भाई.
can see this flag. I think 12
Yeah.
बज रहे हैं, but दूसरे वाले में हल्के से कम 12 बज रहे होंगे. And it's
नहीं नहीं, दूसरे
very
वाले में तो गिर गया ऑलरेडी, दूसरा वाला गिर गया, बट एक
हाँ
वाले में
हाँ.
एक वाला अभी भी है. बट चैट, यू नो, दिस बिकेम लाइक अनदर वे टू होल्ड योर, लेट्स से, टू कीप योर नर्व्स काम. दिस बिकेम लाइक एन इंपॉर्टेंट थिंग. लेट्स से आपके पास टाइम प्रेशर है, राइट, और आपने घड़ी एकदम फटाक से दबाई, उस फोर्स की वजह से झंडा गिर सकता था आपका. दैट वाज पॉसिबल.
Exactly. So these clocks, and of course, you don't know in the last few seconds how many seconds do you actually have. You could have 5 seconds, you could have 50, or not 50, maybe like at least 25. You could have. It's very hard to figure out. But it was an experience playing in these, but not something which my heart can handle now, Sahaj bhai. Very tough. Let's go back to the board.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. I think the digital watches are, the clocks are, I think, much nicer because you have the increment. But I think this also brings another. By the way, we do have a move on the board. Nils did play pawn takes pawn. So the best move,
Wow.
and the which we were calling, let's say, a difficult decision for Nils has happened. And now we could see Queen F2, where that variation with Arjun sacrifices a pawn, that could happen. Number one, Arjun could go into the end game with knight takes e4. Arjun is thinking. I think it's going to be a long one for him. But yeah, let's see. But yeah, coming back to it, why like digital clocks and, you know, talking about the entire, you know, time format and everything, I feel having no increment only adds like another, let's say, factor for me. Maybe if you are three queens up and you have like 1 second on your clock, maybe you don't deserve to win in that sense, because clock को भी 1 second पे आना ना देना was your responsibility as well. So I don't know. Maybe this is how I feel like every format has its own advantages and disadvantages, and if I had to choose one, I would choose 90 plus 30 and like to play. If I had to comment it, I would choose rapid. But I think I also will say कि classical without increment is the best to cover. जितने हमें ड्रामे देखने को मिलते हैं when like in candidates, नॉर्वे चेस, द टेबल, भाई वो टेबल बैंगिंग क्यों हुआ था? क्योंकि इंक्रीमेंट नहीं था पहले।
True.
नहीं तो वो नहीं होता, नहीं तो मैग्नस कब का कन्वर्ट कर चुका होता वो पोजीशन।
Agreed. And I think the only drawback is that when you're trying to play, when you have, well, I remember GCL, yeah, when it didn't have increment, I think in those cases, sometimes it's not even chess going on the board. But I think in classical chess, that's rare because you will not have both players at the same time, usually having just 10 seconds, 30 seconds on the clock.
नहीं नहीं
So,
नहीं, मतलब आई थिंक लाइक अगर आप रैपिड और ब्लिट्स की बात कर रहे हो तब इन भाई वो दैट इज क्रेजी, लाइक इफ यू प्लेइंग रैपिड एंड ब्लिट्स लाइक ईडब्ल्यू से भाई दैट इज लाइक प्रॉपर, लाइक यू नो लेट्स
uh,
गो लाइक देन एनीथिंग इज फेयर। बट इफ यू आर प्लेइंग ओवर द बोर्ड विदाउट इंक्रीमेंट लाइक यू आर, दैट्स हाउ यू नो दैट यू मीन बिजनेस इन चेस, लाइक बिकॉज दैट्स क्रेजी।
agreed. So great discussion there. Love it. And Chad, of course, there are different answers. There's no correct answer, wrong answer here. Meanwhile, after D takes C4, Arjun has been thinking for 4 minutes. Nils does look convinced with his choice. So maybe it was more about recollection and, of course, making sure he remembers everything. And now
Or maybe
Queen
he just
F2.
calculated.
Also possible, actually. Also possible. He did take a lot of time. 16 minutes to be exact. And now Queen F2 is the only move, Sahaj, by right? There's nothing else. I cannot trade queens. Otherwise, there's no attack. What was the point of playing H4?
या ट्रू, क्वीन एफ टू और नाइट टेक सी फोर ऑल्सो इज पॉसिबल भाई टू गो इन टू द एंड, लाइक सब कुछ कैप्चर करके लाइक नाइडी फोर एफ ई फोर क्वीन डी, आई डोंट नो समथिंग लाइक दिस, एंड डबल बिशप्स वर्सेस डबल बिशप्स। ठीक है, आपका पॉन सी सिक्स पे थोड़ा सा वीक, मेरा पॉन ई फोर पे थोड़ा सा वीक, बट मे बी आई कैन से मेरा पॉन ज़्यादा एडवांस्ड है एंड आई कैन पुश अ बिट, बट ओके टफ टू से, एंड द अदर ऑप्शन इज ऑफ कोर्स क्वीन एफ टू।
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, somebody in chat saying ki I would love to see
भाई
overnight matches. Like people don't have access to internet and they think overnight about the adjourned position and then come back. That's exactly how chess used to be played earlier. In fact, people will gather their seconds, their team, analyze the position. That's how I think Karpov or Kasparov, I think that knight G2 move. I don't know who was, I think Kasparov played knight G2. If I'm not mistaken, the crazy endgame there. Like you could analyze with your friends, by the way, your teammates after the adjournment on a single day, then come back the next day and just play chess. Said by like a completely different world with no computers, yeah.
भाई दैट्स या दैट वाज अ कंप्लीटली डिफरेंट वाइब, वेरी वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग। एंड या अब आजकल तो गेम एडजन्स नहीं हो सकते, बट या
Yeah.
some shogi title matches still have adjournments. Really, I did not know this. And you know, I've been trying to like learn this as well, like shogi or go or something like this, because I find it very very fascinating. You know, actually Grishuk is a master level player. Grishuk, of course, the world blitz champion and a former 2800. He is actually a master level player in go.
Wow. Maybe that sparked his curiosity. Would make a lot of sense. I think many players play poker, many players try out other forms of strategy games, so it would totally make sense. And also, Sajbhai, as Arjun thinks, there's a very interesting move and position on the board in the Andy Woodward versus Jordan game, जहाँ पे Rook has now come to H5.
Yeah.
I remember a
So
distinct game जहाँ पे sorry to cut you off भाई, वो वहाँ पे Prag एक बार ऐसे ही कुछ Rook H5 खेले थे. Then he put the Rook back to H8 and then he castled. And
क्या
both
बात कर
players,
रहे हो भाई? वो
हाँ,
आप ही
there
का
was
ही,
a
भाई वो आप ही का ही गेम तो नहीं था जो प्रग ने आपको
नहीं, नहीं,
हराया
नहीं.
था?
And
आपने
by
जो
the
प्रग को
way,
हराया था?
glad you called that out. In my game, actually, I played Rook H6, not Rook H5, but that's the one I
So
lost against Prag, not
crazy.
the one I won.
Look at this
But
flex, bhai. Look at this flex.
but like there's a game chat. You can search this. जहाँ Prag ने खेला Rook H5, then he puts the Rook back to H8. Both players forget, and then he castles. So why crazy है? And Rook H5 played, but I don't think Black's gonna castle here. सहज भाई G4 का जवाब H5 से, yeah, काफी logical.
Yeah, and by the way, just wanted to point out because yesterday I think a lot of people in the chat were saying कि भाई top level पे आप ऐसे long castle देखने को नहीं मिलता है, right? And I think to an extent, chat, you were right. Like we see it less, but today at least we have, I think at least two games because एक तो अर्जुन का ही है जहाँ पे long castle हुआ है, and दूसरा I think Andy Woodward, he's gonna castle on the long side as well. So at least 2 out of 4 games we will have a long castle, which I think is very interesting. And Magnus could as well castle on the long sides. You never know. So
Yeah.
interesting day.
भाई एब्सोल्युटली प्लेयर्स आर रेडी फॉर बैटल। बाय द वे वुडवर्ड का टाइम देखो यार, He's so behind on the clock. Like time pressure की बात हम कर ही रहे थे. Very hard to imagine Woodward managing that now from this situation. So very interesting situation here. So let's go back. Which game shall we? Let's go to Magnus for a second because Magnus took like 15 minutes almost, Sahej bhai, and he now played h3. So he's been taking a lot of time for these moves, which came naturally to you as well. Why did he take 15 minutes to play h3 here?
15 minutes to play h3. Well, जैसे ही वो power of h6 होता है वैसे power of h3. I think he just wanted to not allow knight h5. By the way, like a6 was a mistake from Nodirbek. Just want to point that out there. And a6 h3 के बाद भाई ये कहीं ना कहीं transpose हुई है line. 100% because this definitely rings a bell. I'm just trying to connect where it has it transposed. I know bishop f5 queen b3 के बाद ये exact transposition है. तो ट्रांसपोजिशन आया कैसे? I played queen c2, you played g6, and I took on d5. So that would transpose with knight c3, a6, takes, h3, g, something like this. So basically in this position, after c4, c6, queen c2 खेला ना मैंने. If I played knight c3, you went a6. I played, let's say, something like pawn takes pawn, bishop f4, knight c6, e3. ये g6 की ट्रांसपोज तो हो गई. ऐसे आई है
हाँ,
भाई. देखो बिशप
क्वीन सी टू
g7,
पे
queen
नहीं है
c2.
बस क्वीन सी. हाँ
Same
यस,
position ना.
but queen c2 you would not play in this position, no? Like because
Because
bishop.
I was checking in the
Hmm.
previous position bishop e2 के बाद भाई इस position में हमारे पास थे around 30 games. Yeah, 30 games or so, more or less. Bishop e2 से
Hmm.
पहले, yeah, 32 games, like something like this.
Hmm.
A6 and castle, A6 and h3 के बाद it feels more like there's a lot more top
Got
level
it.
games. I see of Andrekin, I see of okay actually, and Donchenko as well. And Andrekin has played a lot of games here.
Understood. So basically, we've transposed into more normal setups. That's understandable. Because of course, like even though the queen c2 was weird and other moves were weird, but the structure is quite understandable. काफी common structure hai. And now bishop f5 played, attacking that queen, free tempo. But Sahaj bhai, I think queen b3, I'm guessing, should be automatic. But my only question is, what after knight a5? Because जब ब्लैक ने कैसल नहीं किया होता है, कई बार वी गिव दिस चेक एंड कम बैक एंड देयर इज दिस थ्योरी रिगार्डिंग दैट वेरिएशन, बट नाइट
Yes.
ए5 क्या खेलेंगे हम लोग यहाँ पे?
भाई क्रेजी यार लाइक कुछ आप टिकू भाई कौन कोच कोच रिवील तो कर दो अपना.
भाई ये तो मैं पहले खुद खेलता था भाई.
ये तो
इसलिए.
अच्छा ये क्या खुद खेलते थे आप.
हाँ.
Because apart from all of this, like if the fact you know this opening is also very very impressive. Right? This is not very well known. But knight a5, there is queen a3 or queen b4 essentially, and you are just saying कि आपका knight a5 पे कुछ नहीं कर रहा है. Actually पता है best move क्या है यहाँ पे? Take a guess. टिको भाई देखना मत.
क्वीन
देखना मत. Take a
ए3
guess.
की अच्छा
Black
क्वीन
to play
b4 के
best
बारे
move.
में है.
Queen b4 के बाद हाँ. Chat, take a guess. Best move for black. Very, very thematic. And I would say this is not a trick. This is more like thinking 2, 3 steps ahead.
b5.
That's a fair move, not even in top 3 though.
Oh wow.
I think, but that's a good move. I would consider that 100%.
Let me think. Is it knight e4?
94, not even in top 3, bhai.
Wow भाई.
94 also I would consider. But okay, I think I would not ask the question if if the answer was not difficult.
Rook e8.
It is indeed
हाँ
rook
bishop f8 का idea.
e8 because bishop f8 and the queen pe thoda pressure e5 and that's good and chat found it. Wow, amazing.
Oh wow. By the way, knight a5 on the board. So very likely we're going to see this. कि Magnus Queen कहाँ चलते हैं is a crucial decision for Magnus Carlsen here. Queen a3, Queen b4 में से how do you choose though? Maybe Queen a3 is a bit safer
I
because I
Magnus
have
chose.
b4. I chose, yeah? Oh, he chose
हाँ
b4.
मैग्नस बोला भाई मैं आप मतलब मैं ऑलरेडी सब सोच के बैठा हूँ.
सब
But
सोच के
rook
बैठा हूँ.
e8, rook e8 is hard though to find. Either Magnus missed it.
Very interesting actually. कि ये position, Queen, by the way, if you look carefully, chat, does not have many ways of coming back. b3, c4, सारे squares covered हैं. c3 खुद के knight से covered है. So if, for example, I put the bishop somewhere attacking like any piece attacks the queen, it's almost trapped. So you have to be very, very careful with this. Anybody who's single can relate. सहज भाई क्या करें अब?
Amazing. VK Mehta ji saying Magnus play London system. Bhai, I know it looks like the London system, but it is not. It's sadly not London system. This is basically Slav exchange is what we call it, but it came from a weird, like a kind of a move order, more or less. And I would say it's favorable for Magnus for now, but if Nodirbek finds the next, let's say two or three critical moves, he will be fine. You know, many since that interview of Roman with Oniak, Tikubai, I'm sure you
Hmm.
have seen it. And chat, if you haven't seen it, I would highly recommend that you check it out because you understand, what Sindarov is doing, how he's kind of improving so fast. And Roman with Oniak also worked with Nodirbek as well and closely with the Uzbek team. And I don't know, in moments like this, you remember he was talking about every chess player has these 17 skills, yeah? And I was thinking कि वो 17 skills कहाँ पे apply होंगे, कैसे apply होंगे, and whether it works in a position like this, because this feels one of those 17 skills to me. But the follow-up is very, very critical for black. And I
Hmm.
feel if you don't find this resource, you could be like immediately worse.
And I agree. I think this is famous principle chat. Sunaoga, you must have heard this. Knights on the rim are dim, and the knight on a5 is absolutely that. Also, the queen on d8 is now tied to protecting that knight for at least a while. And I really want to play the queen somewhere to connect my rooks, which I can't do until I move the queen. So there are some, hindrances for black to complete his development. Now the knight could come to c4 on a good day, but right now it's heavily controlled. So I think rook e8 makes a lot of sense, and it really puts a question mark in front of white's plan. होता है ना? Like, there are multiple ways to challenge white here, but if you challenge his entire premise, the queen on b4, the most dangerous piece, then you can create problems, stronger problems. If you attack your opponent's pawn, the max you win is a pawn, but if you attack your opponent's king or queen, you could just win the game on the spot.
Yeah, exactly. Nicely explained. I feel रुकिए तो एकदम oh wow,
Wait,
played.
chat. Nodirbek OP in the chat once. Come on, deserved, man. That move was not easy. He mentioned, as Sahajbhai told us at the start of the stream, that he's playing this tournament just to play Magnus, and he is using that to his advantage. What a great move, great find. Because you would think Rook E8 का point है E5 खेलना, but that's not the point here to play E5. The point is to maybe prepare Bishop F8 and put this queen under the scanner. So, question to you, Sahaj, by where do we put that queen? What is our next move here? How do we make sure a queen does not get captured?
I think you just go castle and bishop f8 ke baad you can put the queen on a4 and it's not really a big deal because the queen can run back to d1 square. Yes, if your rook was on d1 or anything along those lines, then it would be a bigger worry. And Tikubai, in the beginning when we kind of started the stream, I read someone in the chat said ke, it was an interesting statement and I didn't want to comment on it until I verified it myself, but it is true. I just want to say that the credit goes to that guy who said this comment. So I'm just repeating what you're saying. Nodirbek actually has a higher record against Magnus across all formats. Did you know this? Against like Nodirbek versus Magnus, Nodirbek is ahead, head to head. Like,
Oh,
and
plus
you know
four,
what the
yeah?
difference is? But the
Hmm.
difference kya hai?
Hmm.
Nodirbek, I think is let me check the exact results. It's a bit ahead for sure. But yeah, never mind. But yeah, that is crazy to me though, overall.
Very interesting, yeah. And also, I remember that famous Blitz game that he played at the World Rapid Blitz a few years back when he was still a youngster, and Magnus was completely winning. Nodebek with the black pieces came back and just, I think won against Magnus, if I'm not mistaken, and he was in contention for winning the medal at some point. So he's always been a talent who's kind of put pressure on Magnus, defeated him at Tata Steel. So this is not something which Magnus will also take lightly, and we saw that with him coming late, Sahaj Bhai.
Of course, of course. And of course, Nodirbek being one of the players who has defeated Magnus in classical as well, which is a huge, huge, huge achievement.
Very interesting. Very, very, very interesting things happening in the chess world as they always are. कुछ भी खोल दो कभी भी ट्विटर खोलता हूँ सहज भाई कुछ ना कुछ तो मुझे क्रेजी दिखता ही है
Actually,
I don't know
never
why.
mind actually. Never mind actually. It is wrong in that sense. But yeah, never mind. Scratch that. So Chad is saying Magnus defeated him in free cell and what exactly, yeah. Magnus did defeat him, but I think the match was still relatively quite close. And if you remember,
Hmm.
I think game two, game three ke baad, Nodirbek was just looking completely on fire. Yeah, it was 2-2, I believe. And then it went on to Armageddon. And I mean, he still gave a very, very big fight, I would say, to Magnus overall.
Yeah, agreed. And Sahaj by chat. So, we are seeing this crazy game, of course, but Magnus is having a thing. So, let's take a 1 minute detour towards Arjun's game where we have a few moves. After d takes c4, Arjun did find the best move. He took his time, 6.5 minutes. Now, Queen c7, again, the best choice by Nils, and he just took 1 minute ahead. So I think it feels like he knows what's happening. Knight takes c4, the move you shared was the best. Knight takes, f takes, and you mentioned c5 as the pawn sacrifice Nils needs to make here to equalize the game. How easy is it, Sahaj Bhai, that he finds this move?
Okay, like in essence, I think when you know that something is there in this position, you tell Nils ke bhai kuch hai yahan pe, I think he will find C5 100 out of 100 times.
Hmm,
But he
interesting.
doesn't know. He doesn't know that, that something exists here. Then okay, then your chances drop, I think, significantly. And also if you look at the other, let's say, logical moves, h5 is not very far off. h5 also looks कि ठीक है g4 आ रहा है मुझसे थोड़ा डर लगेगा मुझे, but maybe that's what leans me towards c5. But
Yeah, h5,
I
I'm
think
really
he
doubtful.
finds it.
H5 he doesn't find. I mean, H5 looks very scary to me because G4 just feels like, okay, I could just play, this in bullet chess, yeah, just sack, 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 mate. And C5, however, it does make a lot of sense. Chat, keep in mind the bishop on B. Look at the bishop on G7, first of all the way pointed towards White's king. Now, which is Black's worst placed piece? The bishop on B7, which is looking at its own pawn. And guess where the White king is? On the C file. So who cares about the C6 pawn, Sahaj Bhai? Like, as Hikaru says, I literally don't care. Nils would just offer this pawn for free at 0% interest rate. Literally, because you open the C file and you open the bishop, you attack.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Exactly. C5 is a very, very difficult move, I think, overall. Let's see. Nodirbek stays at Magnus.
Yep.
Uh,
So
तो जो
काफी काफी इंटरेस्टिंग है सहज भाई सारे कमेंट्स नहीं पढ़ने होते हैं मीनवाइल लेट्स मूविंग ऑन सो एज ऐसे बहुत आते हैं भाई बहुत आते हैं मैं चार पढ़ चुका हूं पहले से तो मीनवाइल
Yeah. But I mean, I think at least for classical, it is true. I don't think Nodirbek has lost a game against Magnus, and Magnus has lost a game in to Abdusattorov in classical. So classical, mein, I think for sure Nodirbek is ahead.
by the way before we move to Magnus Nils always looks perpetually surprised somehow but he
Oh,
finds c5
bhai! No, this is
wow
yeah, that's very impressive from Nils. Yeah, very, very, very impressive.
Sahaj Bhai and chat, this is the kind of challenge which is going to be tough because basically Black has activated all his pieces now. The rooks will come to the B and C files likely at some point. And in fact, Bishop C5 is now the only move because Black is also potentially threatening C4. He's threatening Bishop takes E4. And if you take on C5, Black doesn't even need to save the rook. That is the crazy part for me. So, Arjun, I hope he remembers theory here. If he doesn't, this might go the other way as well.
Tiku bhai, I think this whole bishop c5, bishop f8 is not very difficult for a dragon player, and I'm sure you will relate to this because you remember when just gonna go a couple of moves back in this variation, so don't be surprised. In this position, when we were looking at d5, यही हुआ था game में जहाँ पे Arjun took knight takes knight, right? But instead of knight takes knight, I believe there is a separate variation here where you can take, I believe, black takes here, you take here, black takes here, you play bishop, not bishop c4. I think it's something like this. Knight c6, bc6, bishop d4, e5, and इस moment पे ना black bishop e6 खेलता है, basically asking white to just capture on f8. Now
Hmm.
I know it's not the same position, but the idea is not very far from it, because you are asking, and bishop f8, by the way, is known to be a horrible decision for white. In fact, white should play something like knight e4, and this is something we use as coaches. We use this as an example to showcase how an active piece is more important than material itself. In this case, the bishop, of course, does not take on f8 because the bishop is far superior. And अगर bishop चला आता है तो पूरे dark squares, becomes really weak. Now we can compare that to this position as well, because if white goes bishop c5, right? Now here black goes bishop takes e4, and note the difference here, chat and Tiku bhai, that in the other scenario, black had this pawn on c6. So I'm
Hmm.
just going to go back to that position like this, yeah. The pawn was on c6. That meant कि bishop e6 के बाद अगर मैं चाहता हूं तो मैं bishop को रख सकता हूं for the rest of the game, because no one is really attacking my bishop. However,
Hmm.
in this scenario, when there is no c pawn, if you
Yeah.
don't take my rook, maybe I play rook f c8, maybe I play rook a b8, and suddenly I have two rooks looking at open files over here, and then I'm asking, भाई आप कहाँ पे attack कर रहे हो? So in some ways, I think Arjun is forced to capture on f8, and I don't like that. I feel like it really gives away the initiative, and I think Arjun is gonna have to defend for a long time from this moment.
Agreed. And meanwhile, it's very interesting to me. Kaisi subtlety is that pawn on c6 was the Hamza Ali Mazari of this position, but and Arjun has taken that pawn, so it has been eliminated, and now it's all about Nils and the kind of grandeur and the courage he can show here to kind of go all in, not be fearful, and launch an attack. So, काफी crazy game रहेगी. Meanwhile, as Nils is onto the seat, said by, let's go and check out Magnus's game, because he did play the best move, castles. And after bishop f8, it's do or die. Queen a4. Of course, he'll find queen a4, but this was a neat dance. Yeah, first queen c2, queen b3, queen b4, queen a4, queen d1. Like a lot of moves wasted by the queen, and of course, black piece is also doing the same.
It's like this: one, two, three, four, and five. So basically, chat, if you think about it, in this position, because black is threatening e5, right? You can play queen a4, black can play b5, and you can play queen d1. This is the only way to continue the game. अगर आप queen को कहीं भी और रखते हो, if d1 की जगह b4 और a3 पे black can still play e5, b3 पे knight है, c2 पे bishop है, तो d1 only square बचा. So that's actually a nice point. The queen actually went from, in this position, it went to c2. That's the first time it moved. And now pay attention. It moved to b3 after that. And now b4. Then it will go to a4. And then it will wapas ghar pe bhai. Crazy.
The queen went to find herself, Sejbhai, but she's now back at home and very happy. So,
ये वो
निकली
थी
थी
जो
बाहर.
मतलब what is it called, like US में, like पढ़ने गई थी. I don't
हाँ, and
know.
वो गई थी बाहर. She wanted to find her, but then she realized home is best by.
हाँ,
I've also
चार
done
साल
that
हो
by.
गए फिर घर ही बेस्ट था, हाँ.
Huh.
हम्म.
But okay, anyways, I think jokes apart, Magnus, by the way, is still 10 minutes behind on the clock. That's always a factor here, Chad, especially when the position is not, crazy tactical and is better for one side. So, kuch bhi ho sakta hai. And Magnus is still thinking, why is he thinking? Is there another move? So, for example, the plan is e5, right? What if I occupy the e5 square myself and just play knight e5 here? I'm not as scared of the e6 move, for example.
You're not scared of e5, but I think you should be scared of b5. Because
Oh.
here I have e6, and ये queen आपकी सूखी trap हो गई. Like
Ooh.
without any compensation whatsoever. So, and you really need the light squares. I mean, I often, okay, he plays queen f4 now, but this is something that I don't really understand about chess, and um, it's something that I also think about constantly a lot while I'm playing myself. कि जब ऐसे moments आते हैं ना कि जब only चाल होती है तो player सोचते क्यों हैं? But when this thing happens to me myself, I find it कि मैं भी कुछ moments पे like 2 minute unnecessarily position को देख रहा हूँ. Like I feel like it's a phenomenon that really should be like understood better.
Hmm. Agreed.
Zoran is asking the best ever Fischer from 1970 to 1972 or current Magnus. Um, I feel like that question is a bit like not nice for Fischer because I think Prime Fischer should be compared to Prime Magnus as well. And I think a lot of people will still choose Prime Fisher in that scenario. But I think here I am not so sure because it still looks like Prime Magnus. But I'll choose Fisher. Why? Because Fisher was way ahead in comparison to other people.
Agreed. And you know what? I think Nodirbek would love to find out the best way possible. Queen a4 played. Now, what's the best plan? Apparently, again, the b5 move that doesn't change. As we discussed, knight on a5 needs a square to go to. That will give it the c4 square. So b5 will happen. Then queen d1 Sahaj, and now of course rook c8, for example. Very logical move after b5 queen d1. If you can have it on the board, I think Nodirbek is in the game absolutely with knight c4 incoming. And sometimes, I've played this
But
structure as white.
typical.
Sometimes it also feels like, black, this knight on c4 is the irritating square piece, right? I can't play b3 because then the knight on c3 becomes loose. I give up the a3, b4 squares for the bishop on f8 later. So it's always difficult to deal with this knight coming to c4. And that's Nodirbek's real plan.
Yeah, and on the other hand, White can try some g4. But by the way, g4 is one of the best moves here. Yeah? G4 and move the bishop and then knight e5, like h4, h5. Let's go attack. भाई game चाहिए था नॉर्दरबैक को भाई वो वही देना है उसको.
Hmm.
That is exactly. Oh, saying bro, Magnus would beat him easily. I don't, not so sure about that, but yeah. Okay, maybe like with the current technology, you never know.
Yeah. Oof, this is such an important game. This could be the tournament decider, by the way, between Nodirbek and Magnus, unless Arjun catches up or Yagiz catches up. So super important game for both players, and I'm still trying to understand what Nodirbek is thinking. Is he feeling confident about his position? Maybe not as much. Queen a4, nice
भाई
find.
नॉर्दरबैक का तो पता नहीं. But I'm sure. Oh, but some good development on the Arjun versus Nils board because
Hmm.
Nils, I think, defended his rook, and for me, that's a major W. Because अब भाई like थोड़े बचे आप because वो बिशप
Sahaj bhai,
F8 दे देता हो भाई.
I
And
have
such
to
a
say one thing.
it's a
I'm
weird
really
sentence, right?
no, I know, but it's. I'll tell you why I'm laughing, chat, because I'm looking at the first preference of my agent,
मैं नहीं
and
कर रहा भाई वो. नहीं, मैं
and
तो मेंशन ही नहीं
you
करूंगा
could
वो. नहीं, वो
you
मूव है ही नहीं.
if if Magnus came to me and told me कि भाई मैं goat हूँ and I am telling you this is the best one, I would say चल Magnus. Like छोड़ो play
आई
Magnus,
विल
I would
से
say चल
नहीं
Magnus.
भाई, तुम
There
होगे
is
गोट घर के, बट नहीं, मैं नहीं खेल
हाँ,
रहा ये. नो, आप कुछ भी कर लो, मैं नहीं खेलूंगा ये.
you you couldn't convince me to play this move, unless my life was on the line. Like, I mean,
भाई if your
bishop,
life is on the line, that's even more reason to not play it.
yeah,
Like it looks
bishop
like pure.
takes a7 Sahaj by. What is that move? Wow.
भाई ये पता है, ये मूव ना हम बहुत डिस्कस तब भी कर रहे थे चैट. आई एम नॉट श्योर इफ यू गाइस रिमेंबर द लास्ट डे ऑफ द कैंडिडेट्स व्हेन वैशाली वाज प्लेइंग अगेंस्ट लागनो.
Hmm.
Similar situation was happening. I mean, we discussed it, a few minutes back as well, how the opening was kind of similar. वहां पे भी wishes थे, and we were talking about this whole bishop takes a7, bishop takes a7, and just it feels so risky because you don't have one file, you don't have two files, but you have three files. And भाई अपने बिशप पे कितना भरोसा है आपको? That's the question at the end of the day. Like I know it's a very powerful piece, but three files and all major pieces on the board, bishop is just looking at the b2 square looks, I mean, scary is an understatement here. I'm not sure, chat, if you will agree, but for me, it's an understatement. हाँ, rook d1, queen d1, I mean, rook takes d8 के बाद, भाई, I think that hardly makes a difference. Firstly, rook d8, I will go. Bishop takes a7 के बाद, I'll have something like queen e5, hitting b2. आप c3 जाते हो, bishop takes c4. Look at this, bishop h6 का check का threat. It's just, you have to calculate a bit deep and really, really precise in a position like this.
The only logic I can see of bishop a7 is if I'm convinced I'm going to trade the rooks. So, for example, bishop a7, black's only move is bishop e4. I'm going to play rook takes d8. I'm hoping for rook takes d8. I'm going to play some. I can't even go rook d1 now. Like, I'm just hoping I trade the rook somehow, and maybe then that's just an extra pawn. I can push the a pawn and win the game. Otherwise, there is nothing like you could have a cyclone hitting my face telling me to play that move. I'm not going to do that. So I think very tough move. Arjun likely will not play it. What are his alternatives, Sahaj?
भाई वो रुक डेट बिशप ए7 तो नहीं देखा, और कोई ऑल्टरनेटिव है नहीं भाई. देर इज g4 विच इज अनबिलीवेबली डिफिकल्ट. um I don't even know what is g4 because bishop takes e4, pawn capture हो रहा है, threat भी आ रहा है उसके साथ, not a very human move. I think Arjun will take on a7, but I think he will
Really?
also take some time.
No. No
Yeah,
chance,
भाई.
bhai. नहीं भाई. He doesn't
भाई
take on a7.
मजबूरी है ना.
Chat.
I don't think I think मजबूरी है because I don't think he wants to. I mean, and let me tell you, chat, nobody wants to take on a7 here. You will want to avoid it for as long as possible, but I feel he doesn't have an option because either you have this position with an extra pawn for your opponent, or you have the same position with one less pawn for your opponent. Like, and of course you will say, भाई ठीक है danger है, but कम से कम pawn तो कम है तुम्हारा. कुछ तो है मेरे पास. इतना जो king तो आपका वैसे भी unsafe है queen side पे.
Wow. Chat, I think we both are kind of at a tie here. I think he will not play bishop a7. Sejwai says he will play bishop a7. He's kind of forced to. He doesn't want to, but has to. Chat, what is your take? Do you think Arjun goes for the best move in the position, bishop a7? Yes or no? Crucial choice because it is risky. For example, the other move I might consider is, for example, h5, trying to launch an attack, but it's simply not enough. Bishop takes e4, an attack, there is simply no attack. So I think Arjun needs to make a critical choice, and yeah, it's not going to be easy.
I feel there is a chance because it has written Arjun all over it. I feel like there are some players who just have a knack for these things, who are naturally more inclined to look for those imbalances, look for extremely dynamic positions where calculation matters a lot. I feel Arjun is one of those players, and I think he will definitely go for it. Question for you, Tikuba, and question for the chat. Who do you think is the best calculator from India?
That's a good point. I think calculation is something that you likely have to train early in your chess years when you're a youngster. I think I remember I played a tournament somewhere in Europe at some point, and Gukesh at that point was in IM, and he played this tournament 9 rounds, and he had a score of 7 on 7, by the way. And that's how he got his second GM norm, by the way. 7 on 7. So yes, we're talking about streaks, right? The candidate streak for Sundarov. Of course, not the same competition, but like, and at that point, I could just see like players calculate like those games after they had lost. Like they were trying to figure out where that they went wrong. Like calculation with Gukesh was an absolute beast, even as a youngster. So I feel
I
Gukesh, for me, is the
I
best calculator.
I have to say, I'm looking at the chat and I really hope that Gukesh, I know
Sees
I'm
this,
not
yeah.
sure how much Gukesh is looking at our stream, but I really hope that Gukesh is looking at the chat right now and is looking at, because this is, I feel like in almost a year I've never seen Gukesh being spammed like that in this way, where a skill of his is being appreciated, and I 100% agree that he is definitely one of the best for sure. And I had the privilege of actually analyzing with him in the GCL itself, and I remember it was some game, and he had just played against Vishy sir, and he had just joined us, and it was completely unplanned. We had no idea, and it was me, Sagar, and then I believe it was Gukesh as well, and वहां पे बैठे हम, एंड गुकेश पहले बैठते ही, फर्स्ट थिंग, द मोमेंट ही सिट्स डाउन एट द कमेंट्री रूम, गेस व्हाट इज द फर्st thing Gukesh did, Tikku bhai? And chat, guess what's the first thing he does? Like, of course, there's a game going on. Some players are
Hmm.
still playing. So commentary chal rahi hai, but analysis bhi chal raha hai. What's the first thing you would do if you are the best calculator from your country?
Find a queen sack or something, yeah.
You see, chat knows. Chat knows the
Engine
answer,
off,
and it is,
yeah.
he
Ah,
turned it off. Exactly. And the first thing,
wow.
like, उसने पूछा भी नहीं सागर से. Like, he just went there and he was just like, no, 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 let's just switch it off and then let's talk. And it was very, very nice, very I think humbling, because by you could see the difference. Yeah, you could feel the difference, and that doesn't happen often.
True. And I think I'm also hoping that maybe somebody from, somebody who has a connection to his team will show that to Mukesh at some point, because clearly people have a lot of faith in him. We all do. And the World Championship will be a treat to watch. I also saw some people saying Sindarov is a great calculator. He indeed is. That's why the World Championship will be crazy. And in fact, Sindarov is in great form, but form is temporary, class is permanent, and it's going to be a cracker of a World Championship to watch at the end of the year. So be ready for that one. But meanwhile, Arjun is still thinking. He's been thinking for a while in this position, 9 minutes almost now to be exact. Maybe it's time to look at the Magnus game quickly, Sahaj. Just kind of a brief look there, what's happening, because b5 was played by Nodirbek. Queen d1 played in just 3 seconds, flash speed by the god of chess. And now knight to c4, as discussed, the crucial move, attacking the b2 pawn and bringing an active piece into the game. How do you tackle this? You can't play rook b1 to defend the pawn because the bishop attacks the b1 square. You can't play queen d2, queen c2 because the queen would be hanging. Queen b3 would be, of course, at least a repetition. So what does, white do here to save the pawn?
Good question. Great question. There's multiple answers, I feel, but they all revolve around touching this pawn at some point. B3 to खेलना ही पड़ेगा आपको. And I think this is a move that Magnus does not strategically want to play, because then you cannot go queen b3. You also weaken the c3 square a bit. Black can go rook c8, let's say, in the near future, put some pressure here, maybe push the pawn on e6, bring this bishop out like this. So b3 is always a move that you really want to avoid. So that's option number one, but it does kick the knight away. You save the pawn, everything is good. You can still focus on the queen side with this knight e5 g4 business. And the other, by the way, he goes b3. But and the other option I was talking about is just going g4, and then bishop jab hatega is diagonal se, then you play rook b1 or queen c2. But Magnus has answered that question for us. Now it is on Nodirbek. Where do you put your knight? You have three squares. It's a3, b6, and d6. And Tiku bhai, which square optically looks the least likely to you?
I think knight b6 looks rather weird to me, because the knight really doesn't have any future there, right? No good squares to go to. Knight a3 was my problem point, because that's what I was worried about. That knight sitting there till the end of the game, right? I cannot attack it in any shape or form. And also combined with the bishop on f5. Now you're controlling the c2 square as well, which I kind of understand now where that g4 move was coming from. Yeah, उसको धक्का लगाओ बिशप को पीछे, थोड़ा पीछे भेजो ताकि एटलीस्ट C2 का कंट्रोल में ना हो.
Yeah, absolutely. But I feel like this info is wrong, Sahaj bhai. Gukesh asked Sagar bhai why best player from India is NM Sahil Tikku bhai. When did this happen, Tikku bhai? And why is Mandar bhai
I
revealing these,
at at some point I think people will
truth
start
bombs?
guessing, will guessing. At some point people will start speculating कि भाई maybe this is my alt account. मंदर भाई भाई इतनी तारीफ तो मेरे पेरेंट्स भी नहीं करते मेरी. Thanks a lot मंदर भाई, but yeah, it's not really believable.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. But yeah, those are the three options. Of course, he will tell us which one just in just a few minutes. I feel like knight a3 or knight d6. I agree. b6 के बाद कुछ हो नहीं रहा. At least d6 के बाद आप e4 पे तो जा सकते हो. b6 के बाद आप कहाँ जाओगे? And a3 is somehow the best move though, which I'm not sure if it's so easy, because it is difficult to put your knight on the corner of the board. You know, because okay, there is an attack brewing on the king side. You might need the knight. Knights are great defenders. You might want to keep the knight a bit centralized, but let's see.
you know, Chat and Sahaj bhai, I think होता है ना, there's this like move of the day. Sometimes we thought about doing the candidates, so 2 दिन बाद हम भूल गए थे करना. लेकिन if there was supposed to be a move of the day, it will 100% be pawn to g4, because just a 20-second look at the Zhu Jiner Erdogmus game, guess what Zhu Jiner just played? We're seeing this in every game. We saw it in the Young Forest game. We saw it in this game. Arjun's game is very likely, and now here as well.
भाई
Wow. So what
क्या
is
यार
happening?
एकदम खतरनाक भाई like firstly, okay, like since we are on the game, like let's also explain how this game progressed. So generally speaking, Zhu Jiner is a bit, let's say, lower rated in comparison to Yagiz. And generally,
Hmm.
what happens is that if you're playing with the white pieces, you're playing against a much stronger opponent. You keep things solid. Let's say Berlin हो गई, Petrov हो गई, आप कुछ Slav exchange जो Magnus खेला by the way, like it moves like that where you exchange pieces quickly and then you wait कि आपका opponent कुछ overpress करेगा एंड उसके बाद आप उनको हराते हो लाइक दैट्स हाउ द
Hmm.
जनरल वे इट गोज बट जू जिनर has completely shifted there because she started with knight f3 e3 and then b3. This is I think a variation which is highly double edged. Like कुछ भी यहाँ पे ट्रेड नहीं हो रहा है कुछ भी ऐसा कुछ सॉलिड सी पोजीशन नहीं है. यू कैन ऑल्सो सी शी इज नॉट टेकिंग द सेंटर शी इज प्लेइंग d3 like not d4. And then by the last move I feel is just her saying okay, okay like if it wasn't clear to you the first time, I'm here to win, let's go. G4 h4 f4, let's just launch an attack on the king side. And do you know what the best move for black here is, Tikubai?
Yeah, I did have a look, and it is actually castles walking into the pit voluntarily. Not an easy choice for anyone. I think e5 would be my choice. I feel like that's the kind of break we're used to, like a flank attack countered by a central counter break. That would make a lot of sense to me, especially when the bishop is not on g2, putting pressure on d5. But Yagiz, who's arguably the strongest youngster we've ever had in the history of chess, is totally capable of castling here, Sahaj.
Yeah, for sure, but he's gonna take a long time to think. Also earlier we were seeing Yages ke paas kam time tha, but now he has more time on the clock, but still that time pressure issue जो अर्जुन के साथ था, that he still has to monitor really well. And let me say कि a position like this is maybe the worst you can face because you don't really have a structural understanding of this position. I think because this is not something you see often. ऐसा नहीं कि कुछ IQP है या फिर कोई किसी एक specific तरह Carlsbad structure है. It's not a typical structure, so you don't have that intuitive feel that you do because of course just like any aspect of life अब जितना चीज को ज्यादा देखते हो उतना आपको अच्छे से समझ आती है वो. So ये structure I think आप बहुत कम देखते हो in comparison. So Yagiz would have to think more to make good
Yeah.
moves, and that could target his time, and that could be Zujiner's basically entire strategy here.
Yep, agreed. And I think we saw him yawning there. So he's clearly taking his time. And of course, time pressure is an issue for him. So let's see how it works out. Meanwhile, let's jump to the game of
Arjun
Magnus, जहाँ पे I
or
think उसमें कोई
Magnus?
moves हुई नहीं अभी in the Arjun game. So Magnus में, by the way, knight a3 was played. And Magnus thinking, you know what, this is too much counterplay for black. Let me play bishop d3 and remove that active bishop. I think a very pragmatic move by Magnus
भाई
here, but also
इस गेम
exchanges
में
the. Hmm.
एक्यूरेसी क्या है भाई? सॉरी टू कट यू ऑफ बट इस गेम में एक्यूरेसी क्या है? इज इट लाइक इनक्रेडिबली हाई?
It's very very high for both players. I think that's understandable. 98.9 for white and 99.1 for black. So technically black is a point two ahead, but it makes sense. काफी कोई crazy opening नहीं है. I think solid position, so totally understandable. But it also means कि यहाँ से किसी के लिए भी count outplay करना दूसरे को आसान नहीं है, and especially after this move says bishop d3, which kind of brings the tension down in the position जो थोड़ी build हो रही थी. So I feel like this might be moving towards a draw. I'm not sure if either side can kind of outwit the other here. What do you think?
No, no, draw though I think very, very far away from that because I think an imbalance is about to be introduced in the game because black will play something like rook c8, white can take on f5, black can take on c3. So मेरे पास bishop, आपके पास knight, that's an imbalance on the board, and of course it keeps the game going. And of course, let's not forget, just one pawn has been traded right now, Tikubai. It's been like almost like okay 1.5 hours only, but like still a lot of time has passed since the game has progressed. 17 moves has been played, but only one pawn has been traded. Is that only means that there's a lot of chess yet to be played. And of course, if you take bishop d3, strategically at least this would be a mistake.
Yeah, yeah.
कुछ क्वीन टेक्स के बाद मैग्नस तो या अगे फिर से हम वही बात बोलेंगे एंड चैट बोलेगी कि वी आर सेइंग द सेम थिंग अगेन एंड अगेन. बट एट द एंड ऑफ द डेज गाइज यू हैव टू understand that every one of Magnus's opponents also knows this, and yet it still happens. Yeah, so we have to keep trying to understand why it happens. We have to keep addressing when it happens. in this position, when black plays bishop takes d3 and queen takes d3, I think there are very few people in the world you can say, okay, this player is extremely dangerous here as white, and that player is Magnus
Hmm.
Carlsen. Because you know that point one, point two ka advantage, 6 घंटे chalega match, and one mistake from Nodirbek could be lethal. So, you know why I asked you, Tikubhai, earlier that what was the accuracy of the players is because I noticed that Magnus kept asking those only move questions to Nodirbek throughout, and Nodirbek is responding with the best moves. For example, b3 and knight d6 and knight a3. If I'll ask you optically, Tikubhai, in this position to choose between knight d6 or knight a3, I mean, I think it's not that clear. Most people would choose knight d6 here, and this is one of those strategic
Hmm.
questions that Magnus is asking here. Yeah.
Hmm. No, for sure. I think that's why he's the GOAT. Yeah. He will give you these choices, and I think it's an opportunity for his opponent to go wrong. But yeah, Nodirbek is up for the challenge for sure. And as he mentioned, chat में किसी ने लिखा, he thinks a draw is a good result, which it indeed is, with black against Magnus. But also, Magnus, by the way, after 2 rounds of TePe Sigeman, is actually gaining rating points. So, 1.5 rating gain हो रही है उनकी. So 2841.5, and if he were to win today, I mean 2850 के बहुत बहुत करीब पहुंच जाएंगे वो सहज भाई. Like he's still getting rating at 2840. Wow.
Yep, the only 2800 player in the world, and yet he's somehow still gaining rating. But chat will say that is crazy, but this is not the first time it has
Okay.
happened, chat. This has happened before.
Okay. Something has happened. It's worth observing. Let's go full screen and
No.
let's straight jump to Arjun's game, because the unthinkable has happened. You know, Dr. Doom is Tony Stark. Sahej bhai, what is this move? Bishop takes A7
By
played.
by the way, chat mein people were saying, you always say that Arjun plays this and he never plays it. Look at this chat. He has played it because this has Arjun written all over it. Now, while I'm happy he played the best move, don't get me wrong, I'm very happy that he played the best move. It just looks so scary, bhai. Like imagine bishop takes e4 के बाद जो sacrifices जो just captures possible है. Like rook a2, bishop c2, queen c2, bishop b2, queen e5, rook b8, rook b3, rook b2. I mean, these are all the moves that are possible within a two move distance. एज इन
And
आपने ब्लैक को दो चालें दी, मैं इन तीनों में से ये सब टारगेट कर सकता हूं ऑन इन द फ्रॉम द एरोज दैट आर बीइंग शोन टू यू, एंड आई एम श्योर आई मिस्ड अ कपल.
and these arrows were sponsored by Mr. GM Hikaru Nakamura. But
Welcome to today.
welcome to today's stream. Today we'll be drawing some fancy arrows. We can't play like Hikaru, but we can act like him. But okay, anyways, I think I agree with this edge in principle. This looks very, very double-edged now. And Nils, of course, kind of would have. I'm not sure if he expected Arjun to take that pawn as well. And after every move, he looks rather stressed. But I'm sure he's calculating in his mind. Chess players don't need to look at the board to do so. But now bishop takes e4 seems to be one of the only moves. There's also queen e5 as an alternative. Guess what? Threatening queen takes b2.
भाई
Game
लाइन
over.
दिखाए हो, लाइन
Ah,
दिखाए हो
let's
एक बार.
go. Let's go. Look
भाई
at that
भाई
line.
टेक इट अवे टिकू भाई, टेक इट अवे. बिशप b6 के बाद, या बिशप e4, बिशप टेक इट अवे.
Hey, I meant directly, Sahaj bhai. Even after just bishop takes
भाई
even queen
भाई एक
e5.
बार just humor me, just go
हाँ ठीक है.
trust.
So bishop takes e4, bishop b6, attacking the queen, trying to win the rook. Queen आती है e5 पे, threatening अपना उल्टा checkmate. अगर आप यहाँ पे कुछ करते हो तो भाई king गया तो game बची नहीं, the game is gone. So rook takes d8 is the only move. If you play c3, you are lost as white, or close to lost. You have to take on d8 with check. Rook takes d8, bishop takes d8, and rook. You have no rook on the board, but queen takes b2 check, king d2, bishop c3 check, king e2, bishop takes c2, and now you up. I mean, you can take on c2, but you can also play bishop b6 apparently, which is ridiculous. But
ओके,
okay,
बिशप
I mean,
b6 तो नहीं होने वाला भाई बोर्ड पे. वो क्या ही होगा, बिशप c2, क्वीन c2 के बाद किंग f3, क्वीन f5, किंग e2, क्वीन c2 is a repetition.
wow.
Chat, that's a repetition. And you remember someone, I believe it was someone in the chat who did mention bishop b6. Basically, after bishop takes e4, so this is the moment that Nils is thinking. If he takes on e4 and Arjun plays bishop b6, that entire sequence is forced. For the next seven moves, each move is forced, or the side who doesn't play the only move loses the match.
Oh, this is exciting. Suddenly the game has kind of turned on its heel. And also, by the way, after bishop takes a7, of course, he can take on e4. The only other alternative is queen e5 directly, by the way. Again, threatening queen takes b2. And now, rook takes d8 is not the move now. It changes. Now you have to find c3. I know, chat, these are engine lines. But again, like this is the move they have to find. There is no other alternative. Allowing queen takes e4 with check.
नहीं नहीं check नहीं
Not
है
check,
भाई.
actually. Cutting off the king, actually. Not check, actually. This,
But
this would be
check
even
है,
worse,
like
yeah?
bishop h6 check is a very dangerous threat though. That I agree, and I
Yeah.
think उसी के साथ साथ alongside bishop h6 check, he's also threatening to take the pawn on g2, and that leads to like one of the more fascinating positions of chess, where
Yeah.
let's say you play bishop e3, black takes on g2, queen g2, bishop g2. By like look how beautiful, just like visually this is, because you have these three monstrous pawns, and black has these three monstrous pawns, and it's like टेक्निकली लाइक मटेरियल वाइज कंप्यूटर कह रहा है 0.19 भाई, बट किसको विश्वास होगा यहाँ पे 0.19. Like this is a typical example of how engines saying equal has zero zeros, and but how that means nothing in chess, because to a human this game is anything but a draw.
Agreed.
Anything but a draw.
Agreed. And practically, I might even take the white pieces purely because that H pawn can be a hindrance in some lines. And
Hmm.
also, my king is closer to the center in some cases. But okay, it's still equal and anybody's game. One mistake and the opponent just queens. So, what a position. And it's going to be amazing. Let's see what happens. But bishop a7 is the current live position. Nils is still thinking, does he have the confidence edge by to kind of go for this crazy endgame? Not an easy choice for him. He does look a bit, like not super happy with the position at least. That's the bare minimum.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. But I mean, Arjun has taken the risk. He has, played the best move. And even though he was surprised, so I mean, he has done his job, but it is very, 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 very risky. And I really cannot stress this enough how risky this position is for Arjun. Bhai, mere dimag mein, like the thoughts, like if I just try not to look at the engine and I'm looking at the position itself, it looks like, I do have those, like maybe one extra pawn, but the sole reason where black's king is just insanely safe and white's king is just in so much danger is makes me prefer, at least practically, Nils's position. But by chat is also asking where is
Hmm.
Maggie. So let's do a quick roundup of the games. Let's take a quick look at Magnus versus Nodirbek, how he is doing, because he's taking a long time to think here after bishop d3, where Nodirbek captured the bishop, queen takes आता है, and now he plays e6. So that slight long term 6 घंटे वाला edge जो Magnus type वाला edge होता है, वो बोर्ड पे आ तो गया आई फील. एंड नॉदिरबेक इज
Agreed.
नाउ गोना सफर. उसको गेम चाहिए था भाई, गेम तो मिल गया उसको.
Agreed. And also, जब भी आप ये e6 और g6 खेलते हो ना, like this always has drawbacks. Yeah, it's always difficult to play this structure. Of course, luckily you don't have the light square bishop as black here, stuck on d7, but always can give you weaknesses to attack. So Magnus can totally squeeze for a long, long time here, Chad. So ये लंबी game हो सकती है, and Nodirbek should be on his guard. So very, very important game today, Chad. Let's see what happens. Magnus plays rook to c1. काफी लॉजिकल चाल, bringing the rook to the open file. Rook c8 by. Let's continue.
Yeah, rook c8, and okay, good bishop, good knight, maybe bad knight, but we'll see. So slightly better. By the way, we do have a super chat by Kilwa Gamer. Thank you so much for the super chat. It says, keep doing good work, guys. I love GM Edge, but not Tiku Bhai, but I like his analogies. More entertaining, Bhai. Thank you so much. Thank you so
Thanks,
much for
bye.
the love. But Bhai, also Tiku ki analogies are OP. Let's go.
Thanks, भाई. वो बट नॉट हटा देते भाई.
हाँ भाई, बच्चा वो तो आई थिंक चार शब्द हटा देते भाई, इतना इतना बढ़िया. लाइक एक्चुअली दो शब्द हटा देते, लाइक बट नॉट की जगह बस ऑल्सो लगा देते भाई, बट जस्ट दैट्स इट. इट वुड हैव बीन द बेस्ट.
But okay,
what a wholesome
भाई वो
comment though. Thank you so much.
जब भी when in doubt go to chat gpt copy paste and figure out वो खुद ही बोलेगा maybe you should do this और 4 डैश आते हैं उसमें साथ में.
हाँ हाँ,
But
बट
anyways,
लेकिन याद रखना जब भी चैट जीपीटी से करते हो वो डैश हटा के अपना खुद का डैश डालना
हाँ.
है. दैट्स हाउ यू नो, दैट्स हाउ यू स्टे अहेड ऑफ द गेम.
Agreed. And by the way,
वो लोग अभी भी नहीं कर रहे भाई आजकल ये. लाइक आई एम स्टिल सीइंग इट एवरीवेयर, लाइक
I
इन
think
ईमेल्स एंड लाइक समटाइम्स
people,
इवन ऑन व्हाट्सएप भाई. दैट्स रिडिकुलस.
yeah, people now think it's okay, and I think it's kind of okay. Like everybody expects the other to use chat gpt and AI in some way, so it's kind of like okay, I am using chat gpt. Yeah, there's nothing crazy. But yeah, हम कौन सा पेपर दे रहे हैं सहज भाई की मतलब बोर्ड का एग्जाम की चैट जीपीटी से कॉपी कर लेंगे तो इशू हो जाएगा. बट आई गेट योर पॉइंट. आई थिंक
Actually,
it
question
feels
to
like
Tikku bhai, question to chat. How many of you have actually asked like ChatGPT how to improve at chess? And was it like a, let's say, a fruitful conversation? Was it like a good conversation? Like, आपने कुछ like you think you grew from it?
good question actually. I've not necessarily gone deep into this. Of course, upper say advice always I've asked, but I think surely it can help, but it's going to be more strategic rather than very very nuanced because it doesn't understand chess in the traditional sense. So
But
I would
it's
say
good.
ki,
You know, I felt that it is very good at explaining chess concepts, but it's not good at playing chess. Like it's not like वो बोलेगा कि ये स्ट्रक्चर के लिए आपको ये करो, but वो फिर दूसरे स्ट्रक्चर के बारे में बात करने लग जाएगा. Like it feels it
hmm,
doesn't have the technical knowledge, but I feel like it's really good to improve at any level. Like आपको ये बता देगा like नॉदिरबेक क्या डिफरेंट कर रहा है, like you know
yeah.
and things like that. So it's very interesting.
Yeah, also like for example, it can consolidate advice available on the internet, right? So basically, if you want to build a let's say training plan, or if you want to consolidate your games and जो भी advice आपको मिली है, you can input all of that stuff into one place, and it can give you something out. I think it's great for that. Maybe someday you might have something even better. Of course, there are tools available to improve your chess, anyways, apart from ChatGPT. But yeah, I think overall, always a helpful tool, regardless. I think, but Sahaj bhai, meanwhile, Ruxi खेला है नोदरबेक ने. I think nothing surprising so far. But also, by the way, Andy Woodward Jordan की अब dead equal है. So काफी ups and downs again. But
भाई डेड
no
इक्वल
game.
तो कहीं से नहीं है भाई वो. लाइक
हाँ मतलब
अगेन आप वो
objectively.
भाई भाई लुक एट दिस टिक्कू भाई. आप सिर्फ वो बार देख रहे हो भाई. पोजीशन देखो भाई आप. व्हाट इज ये. देखो
But
डेड इक्वल. यू
भाई
हर्ड
भाई देखो
दैट
देखो
चैट
देखो
राइट.
देखो देखो
भाई
देखो देखो.
एक
भाई
सेकेंड.
देखो
भाई अब डेड इक्वल लग रही है.
भाई
लुक एट
देखो
इट
नाइट टेस्ट
नाउ.
थ्री खेलूंगा. देखो नाइट टेस्ट थ्री खेलूंगा मैं. Because
हाँ
I just wanna avoid any drama.
भाई टिक्कू टेस्ट यहाँ पे चलेगा यार. हंड्रेड
I
परसेंट
can
भाई
do
ये
it.
पोजीशन
I
क्या
can do
बात
it.
कर रहे
I can do it. Let's go.
हो. नो. व्हाट आर यू सेइंग भाई. नो
I
वेज.
can do it.
Like,
I can do it. I'm in.
you think you can draw this against, let's
No,
say,
no, no. Not
Jordan
draw
as
this.
as
I'm
as
saying if you
white?
play a few moves, likely the game will still be equal. Let's say after 5 moves or so. Like
Bhai,
it's not gonna
doubt
change
it. Yeah,
much.
look at the moves. 95. You have to play Queen H1 only move. You will play. You
Queen
will. Okay. Explain to me why
H1.
not Queen G2.
मैं तो Queen G2 सोचा था भाई. Not Queen
Why
H1.
exactly? But Queen H1. And look at this. Bhai, Bishop G4 के बाद White has to go Knight G1. कहाँ से normal है? I'm sorry.
Okay भाई. गलती मेरी है भाई. मैं चेस खेलने लगा
भाई
था.
ये फ्री स्टाइल हो गई. Queen H1 पे बैठ गई है तो.
Wow, Queen H1 and Knight G1. You know this is gonna be in some puzzle book, yeah. Some strategic ideas
Crazy.
of, count defending against an attack and Queen H1, Knight G1. किसी book में तो पक्का आएगा. What a concept, भाई. Oof.
Yeah, it will be very impressive. But of course, that is only if he plays knight e5. I mean, he can also go knight takes e3 and then uske baad bhi I think white's choice. Okay, question to chat. Tikubai, not for you, but question for chat. Chat, what is more logical for you here? Taking with the pawn or taking with the queen? Think of it like like I'm really trying to understand like how people view chess with this. Like I'm really, really curious about this. Queen or pawn? Like without any thinking. What's more logical?
Good question actually. Hmm. चैट कह रही है टेक विद किंग. वाओ भाई ये कौन सा किंग है आपका भाई जो 2 कदम चल सकता है.
Queen, 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 pawn, king. Okay, queen, queen. Wow. Chat, will you believe me that queen takes e3 is actually almost a blunder here in this position? And pawn takes e3 is the only move to survive in the game. So,
बट क्वीन
अगर हम
इट
लाइक एक बड़े स्फीयर में सोचें, एक अगर वो 95 खेलता है तो यहाँ पे एंडी वुडवर्ड को क्वीन H1 और नाइट G1 निकालना है, और
Hmm.
अगर वो 93 मारता है तो उसको पॉन से रिकैप्चर करना है वापस.
Hmm. But very tough. I think queen takes does look more natural. But yeah, F takes E3. Wow. The idea of
I mean,
queenside
both
castles. Yeah.
scenarios are very difficult, no, Tikubai?
Very tough position. So clearly, यहाँ पे time pressure is gonna be a big factor. Chat करिए Arjun game. Do we have? We have a move, and he actually played Queen to E5, the second option available in the position. So Queen E5 played, and now Pawn to C3, blocking that huge mating threat on B2. And अब दो ऑप्शन है, रुक टेक्स D1 मार सकते हैं या फिर डायरेक्ट क्वीन टेक्स E4 मार सकते हैं. सहज भाई यहाँ पे is there a chance Nils could go wrong?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I'm smiling. You know, not. I mean, of course, the game progression is actually quite nice, but I'm also smiling at the. And we have another super chat from the same person, who now says GM Arjun Erigaisi will win this tournament with the help of Tiku Bhai's
भाई
analogies. So wholesome.
usually
Thank you so much, Bhai.
thanks a lot भाई. Usually it would be one negative comment, one positive cancelling out, but ये super chat बड़ी है, so you know I'll have to take it. Right? तो 400 रुपए की है तो 4x value, right? So I kind of take it भाई. Thanks a lot भाई.
Nice, nice. No, no, wait. It's not about the
Meanwhile
value. It's more about what he
अब
like the
1000
fact
रुपए
that
देने
he
की
did it
गाली मत दे
again,
देना
and
भाई,
you
because
know,
then it will all go negative again. But anyway, but
still,
सहज भाई,
still
this
nice
looks
of you, Bhai. Thank you so much.
this is very interesting, yeah, to me, I think. कि अब white का king after queen takes e4 is stuck. It cannot go to b1, and bishop h6 is a huge threat. So Arjun has to simplify, and that endgame looks very likely now.
भाई मेरे को ये नहीं समझ आ रहा कि why is queen e4 stronger than bishop e4, and I'm trying to not make the move because then I'll see the answer,
Hmm.
but it's still an interesting question because I think bishop e4, bishop आगे गया, that cannot be a bad thing.
Good
um
question, actually. Good
so
question,
why
actually.
is it considered so bad?
Because I mean, it does look very interesting, because bishop e4 ke baad I'm again threatening bishop h6, and your king basically is kind of stuck. So it does make some sense. Hmm.
Yeah, exactly. So chat, एक क्वेश्चन है आपसे, ठीक है? विजुअलाइजेशन का क्वेश्चन, ठीक है? टफ क्वेश्चन. दिस इज अ टफ वन, एंड like try to, of course, like visualization helps with your calculation, and of course it will make you think a bit harder, and it's a two move visualization. So मैं arrows के साथ बनाता हूँ, and then you will tell me if you can solve it or not. So I'll make the moves, which is black plays the move bishop takes e4. White then responds with bishop to e3. Black plays bishop to f8. Okay, and now white goes queen to f4, trying to offer a trade of queens. Okay, black to play.
Ah, nice one.
So
Chat निकाल
arrows
देगी.
बनाया chat, तो it has become a lot easier. But generally जब ये इसकी classes होती हैं, इसकी training होती है chess में, कभी भी ऐसे arrows नहीं बनाए जाते, कभी भी, because it
Very,
ruins your vision, it ruins the way you think.
very nice. I think this ability to find these puzzles is crazy, Sehjbhai. And chat, to of course, I have no doubt will find this answer. And I feel
Nice
like,
chat, very nice. Bishop, I think a lot of people have said it. Tikubai, please reveal it.
yeah, it is a beautiful queen sacrifice. And what typical puzzle rush double bishop checkmate. And you might have, your entire force ready to attack, but the king is stuck on c1, and it is good night for today. Khatam.
Beautiful tactic. That is possible. This is why I was thinking, why not bishop e4? But as I was looking at this variation, it kind of showed me what was the problem. And the problem is that there is just one way forward for white, and that is to take on d8, number one. And after rook takes d8, another only move, rook to e1, telling
Hmm.
my opponent कि भाई ये bishop और queen pinned है. पॉन स्टिल एक ज्यादा है वाइट के पास, बट ये क्वीन हट नहीं पा रही है, बिकॉज दिस रुक ऑन e4 इज फॉर एवर अंडर माई होल्ड.
Hmm. Wow. Okay, that's a very nice move, actually. And you bishop h6 again, bishop e3 stops that important check. So chances Nils could go wrong, but I mean, for somebody like Nils, I would expect him to find all of this and just take with the queen Saj by like I don't expect Nils to make a mistake.
Yeah, I think like this is a complicated enough position that I feel a player who is as strong as Nils can make a mistake, right? Look, if I
Hmm.
think in a situation like this, understanding the difference between queen takes pawn and bishop takes pawn, maybe it's simple for Nils, but for me, definitely this is looking difficult to say the least. तो
Hmm.
बिशप ई फोर
Agreed.
के बाद लाइक आपके जो थ्रेट्स हैं इतने सारे थ्रेट्स हैं आपके पास इट जस्ट फील्स लाइक यू आर अबाउट टू चेकमेट सो या
Yeah.
बट क्वीन
And
ई फोर आई
Arjun,
एम गेसिंग द आइडियाज यू वांट टू टेक ऑन जी2 राइट टिको भाई सॉरी फॉर टू कट यू
yeah,
ऑफ
yeah, and bishop h6, of course, in the air as well. So if you don't play bishop e3, I will checkmate you. But of course, we will. And Arjun, meanwhile, calmly drinking sips of water, so he's seen everything. And I'm hoping he's calculated that end game where hopefully he will have some chances to push that a pawn quickly, very quickly, and create winning chances. इतना अटैक बनने के बाद कैसे एक एंड गेम आती है सहज भाई एवरी सिंगल टाइम या यू थिंकिंग ओके चेकमेट होगा h4 खेल दिया है f टेक्स क्वीन f2 भाई क्रेजी टैक्टिक्स एंड सडनली एक बिशप एंड गेम में घुस जाते हैं हम लोग तो यू नीड टू बी एन ऑलराउंडर टू प्ले गुड चेस या खाली अटैकिंग गेम से नहीं होगा एंड गेम खेलनी ही पड़ेगी भाई
या करेक्ट एग्जैक्टली इट्स अ वेरी यू हैव टू बी यूनिवर्सली क्वाइट गुड can we take a look at Carlsen's game for sure? Any updates there, Tiku bhai? Oh, just now
यप
Nodirbek has made a move, queen to
या
b6. सो रुक c1 रुक c8 के बाद छोड़ा था हमने नाइट e2 आता है ओपनिंग अप द सी फाइल ब्लैक प्लेस क्वीन टू b6 एंड नाउ द मूव वी हैव बीन वेटिंग फॉर टिकू भाई दिस इज इट कुड हैपन राइट नाउ
g4 की
g4 h4 कुछ तो आ रहा है भाई समथिंग नाइट
I
e5
mean,
इनमें से कुछ तो आएगा भाई
yeah, 95 looks very natural to be honest. Like so good, by the way. Bring the knight to the center. Typical London knight as well. Attacking f7 Seedha could be a fork someday on the d7 square. Could be transferred via d3 to c5 in some cases later on. Kafi logical move hogi. And of course, h4, g4 always because queen has gone to b6 on the queen side. Let's build up an attack on the king side now. So Magnus के ऊपर है what plan does he want to choose. If he wants a draw,
भाई
he can exchange queens and just exchange rooks and just take a draw. But I'm guessing he wants more.
you know ever since it rarely happens I think after you are familiar with like the rules of chess and like the themes of chess how you think is different but ever since you mentioned that thing about the rectangle na, like I think about it consistently before I launch an attack and again I was doing the same thing here that technically speaking black's queen is not on the queen side on the king side white's queen is looking there at least so you can
Yeah.
count it as an attacker नाइट भी मेरे पास ज्यादा है आपका ये नाइट नहीं है यहाँ पे एंड ये रुक तो मतलब इट्स नॉट रियली अ डिफेंडर राइट इट्स लाइक यू आर अटैकिंग विद अ होल लॉट मोर पीसेस एंड सो दैट्स व्हाई 95 g4 h4 type of moves works so well in this position that was a beautiful concept that you showed the other day.
Thanks, man. Agreed. And I think the only counter black is ki c file openness. So while you build up this attack, I can quickly trade off rooks. And if you don't trade rooks, then I gain control of the c file and I gain instant counterplay. So that's why it's not gonna maybe work without a mistake from Nodirbek, but Carlsen can initiate the attack at least. And if Nodirbek goes wrong, doesn't create counterplay on time, then he has a genuine chance to put pressure. By the way, Nodirbek ने एक खतरनाक सा स्टेयर दिया वहां मैग्नस को तब भी दिया था जब उन्होंने हराया था मैग्नस को एट टाटा स्टील 2023 आई थिंक इट वाज सो नोदबेक विल नॉट मेक इट इजी विल बी वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग टू लुक एट दिस मीनवाइल सहज भाई
I
अर्जुन
mean,
की गेम में
like
हाँ
I think I think it's definitely a flex for Nodirbek to say that I have a plus score against Magnus in classical. Like for sure, yeah.
100%
That's
100%
that's a
100%
flex for anyone, I think. Like और मैग्नस को भी उसने तब हराया था when Magnus was okay a world champion, okay, technically.
ट्रू
Okay, well,
ट्रू
2023, not really. He had just given it up, but like he was,
he's always been the goat regardless the
yeah.
strongest player
ऐसा नहीं
on
कह
the
सकते वो
planet
पीक में नहीं था वो मतलब
हाँ
okay maybe he was if it was 2008 9 okay maybe that's different but Actually, no, we checked 2007 में already he was or 2008 में he was 2600 already. So
Yeah. By the way, chat, let's go full screen and let's go to Arjun's game, whose opponent has just played queen takes c4 on the board, and now rook takes d8. Apparently, is the best move. I think bishop e3 looks also very natural, just preventing that bishop h6 idea instantly. Sehaj bhai endgame aane wali hai, and hopefully he's done his bishop endgames. Let's see what happens. A tough moment for both the players. Grandelius, by the way, 10 minutes behind chat on the clock. That could be very useful for Arjun. Let's not forget, only 19 moves done. 21 move, 21 moves pending hai bhai. So this is not easy for either player. Even in an endgame, there's a lot to calculate. And imagine chat, okay, let's imagine कि queens are traded off, एक rook trade हो चुका है. Now we are in an endgame जहां we have a couple of bishops and a rook each. Do I push the A pawn? Do I bring the bishop forward and push the B pawn? Do I push the C pawn? Does black push the E pawn? Does black push the F pawn? Maybe you have to take on H4 first. There are so many little choices, and maybe just one of them is the correct way for black and white. So it's not going to be easy. Endgames may, the consequences of making a mistake are much higher. For example, let's say in the middle game or the opening, you have one badly placed piece, the other pieces compensate for it. But in the end game, you only have 2 or 3, 4 pieces. So if you make a mistake with one piece, it's going to hurt you really badly. So I think very important to hold on to time here, and Arjun should have a lead because of that. But of course, he needs to find the best moves here. Bishop h6 check is a huge threat. He needs to stop that bishop coming to h6. Otherwise, imagine the bishop coming there, it's over. White bishop to e5. Okay, I don't think that's possible. I don't know how the bishop can dance to e5, but again, the queen cutting across the white king on c1 is definitely an aggressive stance for the black queen. By the way, I see Nils mumbling something. I don't know what he said, but he seems to be extremely focused on the position. Arjun, by the way, typically never looks at the board. Yeah, that's true. Arjun never looks at the board while calculating. He'll look at the walls, he'll look at the posters, he'll look at other players, but he'll not look at the board. Very, very common. Chat, by the way, how many of you can actually play chess blindfold? Would be very interesting. If you can, do type yes in the chat. If you're forced to play a blindfold game, do you think you could visualize the board? Very important skill as a chess player because it's important for calculations. Arjun likely is staring at just the wall. He likely doesn't even know what he's staring at, by the way. You might meet a chess player on the subway or maybe on like a restaurant, and you might notice them staring at you, but they might just be thinking about a position. Very, very natural. No clue. Yes. Okay. I mean, fair enough. I think it's not an easy skill to develop, but definitely helps you. So you can definitely go to chess.com/vision and you can kind of guess the square. So basically, a square will be highlighted and you have to kind of guess, okay, which square is this one? So it's a good training exercise. Also, just playing with your friend over a phone can be very helpful. Just call your friend, yo, bro, what's up? E4. And he's like, okay, bro, why are you not? Okay, I mean, fair enough, but I think find good friends then. Rook to e1 is a suggestion by Vineet Bhai. Let's see how good is rook to e1. See, you attack the queen. Makes a lot of sense. But the problem is, I can just play bishop h6 check again. So what are you doing now? So the king is the issue. While the king is the issue, you have to solve that problem. So bishop h6 check, a huge problem for white in the position. So you have to play bishop e3, which also gets the bishop out of the rook's attack, or you have to take on d8 with check. Only two options make sense here to me. Sehaj bhai, what do you think?
Yeah, bishop e3 I think is one that makes the most sense because rook d8 I feel actually no, rook d8 maybe is more logical because bishop e3 ke baad you give an extra option to black can play rook c8, and even though it's not possible right now because I'm guessing there's rook d7 which hits the bishop, not really hitting the bishop, but it more importantly hits the pawn on f7, the golden pawn. That could be a problem. So I think he will take on d8 first, and as I said, bhai, he takes on d8. And now I think he will go bishop e3 to guard this bishop h6 check, or he goes rook e1, which is also fine. This is more direct played, by the way. Bishop h6 check अगर अब आती है. By the way,
Why?
this is
What?
not, no, it's not correct. Yeah,
Oh,
that's
thank
what I
God,
was
bhai.
just wanted to say. It's actually completely fine. It was the best move in the
Why?
position. And bishop h6 check में अब bishop e3 है हमारे पास अभी भी.
I saw rook g1, that is rook stop on g1 for a second. I was like, Arjun is trying to defend the pawn when it's made. Why, for 1 second, I had my heart in my mouth, Sahaj bhai. Like, I mean, that was
Oh,
crazy,
you
yeah.
thought Rook G1 खेला उसने?
Yeah, because on my board, the rook got stuck on G1. That's why it showed a blunder, yeah.
ये
So
ऐसा
I
कभी
thought,
हुआ नहीं है, like बहुत बहुत रेयरली होता है अब यार. But on a brighter note, on a very exciting note, like black is gonna take on G2 and queen takes G2, bishop takes G2 के बाद we are seeing that endgame we were talking about, where it's bishop, like just pure bishop ending. Like अगर आप द्वोरेस्की की एंड गेम मैनुअल की बात करते हो तो दिस इज द पोजीशन यू विल सी ऑन द लास्ट पेज with like 50 pages of annotations inside कि white ऐसे भी खेल सकता है, ये खेलेगा तो ये होगा, like everything will be booked there. But yeah, this is bishop endgames like god level pro max.
okay, chat, question for you. Let's imagine we do get this end game, which is almost guaranteed now in some shape or form. Which color would you prefer, white or black? Because you have 3 pawns on the queen side, but then black has 3 pawns on the king side, and it's not clear, which pawn should you push first. Do I have to trade rooks? Do I have to trade bishops? Like, it's completely unclear right now. Do I have to save the h pawn, or do I just let it go and focus on pushing my pawns as white? Which color would you prefer, white or black? Say it, what's your take?
Bhai, I have a question for the chat, and I think I will choose white here for sure because, of the main things that you mentioned, that in the H pawn kind of creates hindrance for the G pawn, and that optically at least feels के white के लिए pawns push करना easier होगा. एक और E pawn भी थोड़ा control में है, F5 नहीं आ सकता क्योंकि ये मरता रहेगा हमेशा. तो black has to, like, I think invest a lot of moves to kind of push the pawns forward. So I will choose white for sure. बट हमारे लाइक्स कितने हुए हैं भाई? हमारे 500 लाइक्स हुए हैं? बिकॉज आई हैव अ मेंबरशिप लेवल क्वेश्चन फॉर द चैट. सो डू वी हैव 500 लाइक्स ऑन द स्ट्रीम? इफ नॉट, चैट एक बार 500 लाइक्स कर दो भाई. एक बहुत बढ़िया सा सवाल आया दिमाग में, दैट आई फील लाइक वी शुड नॉट मिस दिस अपॉर्चुनिटी.
So, Chad, you heard Sahaj Bhai. Let's get 500 likes, and he's gonna ask a membership question. Let's go. And by the way, um, question ready hai. Super chat from Mandar Bhai. Arjun versus Tikku will be a treat to watch. Bhai, I've played Arjun twice, and I lost once. And both times I played him, once he was 2150, and I lost that time with the black pieces, and once he was 2350, and I drew with the black piece at that point. So both times Arjun, like, he's so calm, he doesn't even, like, like, I remember, like, he would not say anything after the game, like, yeah, very nice, yeah. Very sweet guy. And वो आधा पॉइंट जो मैंने रेटिंग ले लिया, सॉरी भाई. मतलब अर्जुन would have been 2760 right now, भाई.
अरे अमेजिंग अमेजिंग. बट भाई लाइक्स होनी हो भाई, 300 पे कर सकते हैं क्या?
नहीं 500 तो मिनिमम भाई, दैट्स बेयर
500
मिनिमम
तो
भाई.
भाई, ऑल्सो लाइक वी हैव अ लॉट ऑफ पीपल वाचिंग एज वेल, तो 500 तो होने चाहिए. बट या, एन इनसेन क्वेश्चन इनकमिंग, बट ओके, आई कैन कीप दैट क्वेश्चन एज वेल बिकॉज एंड गेम रहेगा. तो विल सी हाउ दैट हैपेंस. बट यस, लाइक करो चैट ताकि एक बढ़िया सा मेंबरशिप क्वेश्चन विल बी इनकमिंग. So now Nils is thinking, of course, to whether he should take on G2 or not. And we can also, in some way, argue Nils is thinking that he doesn't want to go into the end game, because if he goes into the end game, even Nils realizes कि ठीक है, white के लिए थोड़ी सी better लग रही है क्योंकि white के pawns push करना, will be easier and all of that. Of course, in the back of his mind, he will know कि बाहर यहाँ पे equal क्या रहा होगा. I feel like a lot of chess players, because they've analyzed so much chess in their life, they have an idea कि बाहर तो ये कहेगा, but वो एक practical element होता है, वो एक uncomfortable सी feeling होती है which you cannot get rid of.
Hmm.
That's why I'm guessing he's thinking whether he should take on G2 or not. He's considering, can he play queen back to C6? Because with queen C6, I'm telling you, ठीक है, I don't want your pawn. Fine, I like, you can keep your pawn. But at the same time, queens बची हैं board पे, and maybe rook a8, some bishop c3, some sacrifice is possible because the king is still relatively unsafe in this position. Tikku bhai.
I do agree with you. My only worry for Queen C6 is Black basically lacks a plan then. I don't see what Black can do if I don't know what I'm going to play, but basically the time that he has, Nils, 30 minutes on the clock, with 20 moves to go. My worry is if it drags longer and at some point Arjun pushes the G pawn, he might not even get the G pawn and might be forced to trade queens later at some point. So he
Hmm.
will have to go very deep to make sure that white cannot just push the pawn and just save that pawn and he's forced. So the kind of calculation required to be sure, I'll just not take the pawn and be okay, might be a lot of time investment for him. And I agree with you. He senses this. Ki by the end game is probably equal, but it's going to be tough for me. So it's a tough choice for him. And we can see already 6 minutes taken on the clock, and it doesn't feel like he's close to a decision just yet.
Exactly, exactly. And 29 minutes overall, so he doesn't have a lot of time, as it is. 19 more moves have to be played before we add that 30-minute additional time. And, the critical moment is just gonna happen. He's gonna have to make a lot of accurate moves to stay in the game. Gonna be a difficult choice for Nils. Let's see what he does. By chat is letting us know, let's go to Magnus's game because some updates have happened there as well. And of course, the GOAT of chess playing against, well, Nodirbek himself, world number 4, Uzbek number 1. The man with a very, very clear mission right now to be the next 2800 in the world. Position is completely balanced. Magnus has not played g4 or h4, so he has not made his intentions clear that he wants to, attack on the king side. He has gone 95, has pushed the golden pawn, but at the same time, he's keeping an eye on the e4 square, keeping the idea of g4 alive. In the last move, Nodirbek has just played b4 to maybe vacate this knight to b5, put some pressure on the c3 square. कभी यहाँ पे outpost आ सकता है, knight c3 पे बैठ सकता है, rook c3 पे बैठ सकता है. क्वीन b5 खेल के आप क्वीन स्ट्रेट कर सकते हो एंड यू कैन से ठीक है भाई आपने अटैक नहीं किया था वैसे भी सो लेट्स जस्ट ट्रेड क्वींस एंड इन द एंड गेम आई एम completely fine. um, I feel still optically, Tikubai, I'm not sure if you agree with me on this, but I feel optically still it looks a lot better for Magnus. If I didn't have the bar to tell me this is 0 0 0s, I will say White has like a slight, comfortable long edge in the position. Would you agree with that? What are your thoughts with that?
I I kind of agree. I'm just thinking ki, if he did play b4, multiple ideas behind that move, of course. Um, my only worry is again, like it's Magnus is 10 minutes behind with 18 moves to go. um, how does he win this? Like at the end, there are two ways to win. Either you create an attack, you checkmate your opponent, or second, you're hoping to, potentially get to an end game, win a pawn somewhere and queen. And pawn जीत के mate करना यहाँ पे might not be easy because pawns बिल्कुल एक दूसरे के सामने हैं. Black also has the rook on the c file, so it's going to be tough to, for example, attack the a6 pawn for Magnus twice. So the logical attempt seems to be something like g4, launch an attack, but black has the open c file, and with more time on the clock, I wouldn't expect Nodirbek to give Magnus enough leeway, enough leverage, enough time to launch that. Let's play g4. Like that's the move that comes to mind. Like f3 ke baad g4 for me makes a lot of sense. How do you imagine black can counter attack this, initiative on the king side, Sahaj bhai?
By the way, he has not played g4, but that's a great question. Magnus has plays queen d2, by the way. But to answer your question, I think after a move like g4, let's say the queens get traded off, right? A move like g4 is still gonna be useful because instead of launching an attack on the king side, White or Magnus in this sense can justify a move like g4 by saying, "भाई मैं king side पे space gain कर रहा हूँ." At the same time, like I can play h4 h5 and चाहे इस पोजीशन में क्वींस है या नहीं है इज कंप्लीटली इररेलेवेंट. क्वींस हैं तो ऑफ कोर्स मैं किंग पे अटैक करूंगा. क्वींस नहीं भी हैं तो दिस पॉन स्ट्रक्चर, दिस पॉन चेन ऑफ एफ थ्री जी फोर एच फाइव रियली हेल्प्स मी अलोंग द एच फाइल समवेयर. चाहे वो पॉन एफ सेवन पे प्रेशर डालना हो, चाहे वो एच फाइल पे एंट्री के लिए हो, चाहे कभी जी फाइव फेंकना हो. लाइक देर इज मेनी आइडियाज देयर. So I think the a move like g4 is useful whether you play, whether the queens are traded off or not. And by the way, he goes queen d2. So he does make his intentions clear that if you want to trade off this knight as well, let's say if you want to play knight d7 to trade off this knight, I might even just go knight d3 or knight g4. Doesn't, I'm not sure exactly where my knight is going to go, but I will play this, and that means keeping another piece on the board. And then slowly h4 bhi aa raha hai, g4 bhi aa raha hai, h5 bhi aa raha hai, and bhai, I don't see how Nodirbek is gonna simplify on this file, number one. And number two, I mean, you will have to defend consistently for a long time here as black. I'm not liking this development for Nodirbek, but I feel like he's gonna be in some trouble here. Or at least if he draws this, he will have to play like really, really accurately.
No, for sure. And Queen D2 is also a flexible move, keeping all options open, right? Not really committing to anything. And what does black do? Like G4 is incoming at some point. And of course, there could be ideas like knight G4, for example. If you take, I take with the H pawn, even gaining more space. So what does black do? The only thing I can imagine Sahaj by is rook c1. That's the only move that keeps coming back to me. Just trade off rooks. But as I do it, I see the bar move up for white. So I am in the
Why?
same boat as you. It looks like the task
This
is
is
not
the
easy.
crazy part about chess, that you know that we are talking about a king side attack and black's king being unsafe and all of that, stuff. But in a position like this, after two rooks have been traded off, the best move here is to play queen c1 and trade off the queens too. Because endgame में the pawn is overextended, the knight is bad, knight can maybe go to d3, c5, attack a6 like you mentioned before, g4 तो मेरे घर पे मतलब कभी भी खेल सकता हूँ ये तो मैं. And even there Magnus has very good chances. Oh, but he has made a move. He's gone knight b5. That was the best move in the position. And now
Wow.
it's the moment of truth. Let's go g4. कभी तो खेलना ही है ये.
Bhai, I mean, Nodibek's understanding of the position is crazy, by the way. He took just 2.5 minutes to come up with the best move. And let's keep in mind, this knight is also kind of tying down the knight on e2 now because c3 square available hai. So if this knight ever moves, like rook c3, knight c3 ideas start entering the picture. So also puts pressure on the d4 pawn, somewhat can be useful. Can hop into d6, for example, and f5, or then e4 if you push the f pawn. So keeping the knight also flexible. Both players not committing to a clear plan, just improving their pieces bit by bit. So it's top level chess on display. 28 minutes for Magnus to play 17 moves. Not super difficult because the position is solid, but yeah, it's going to be a challenge for both players. By the way, huge update in the Arjun versus Nils game. Nils has made a choice and he's gone for the cleaner option. Queen takes g2, queen takes, bishop takes. And look at this, just zero point 0.1 seconds, by the way, Sahaj, by my my game shows कि भाई 0.1 seconds में A4 खेला. I'm sure it's more than that, but that means Arjun was ready with that A pawn कि जैसे ही आप मारोगे, I'm gonna push the A pawn.
Exactly. And by the way, in the chat, a lot of people, well, not a lot of people, one person asked कि भाई अर्जुन के winning के chances कितने हैं, and one person said 2%. And I humbly disagree. I feel like Arjun के जीतने के chances are way more than 2% here, because with his last move he has pushed the pawn and it's gonna go to a5. चाहे कुछ भी हो जाए, a5 पे तो जा ही रहा है, a6 पे भी जा सकता है, बिशप हटेगा, a7 पे भी जाएगा. Then of course the b and c pawn starts joining the attack. And my question is कि भाई आपके pawns push कैसे हो रहे हैं इस position में? Like, if I told you in this position after a move like a4, what is the best move for black? I think people will say, okay, let's try to bring the king like this to try and push these pawns, क्योंकि इस pawn को ही push करना है at the end. Maybe they will say e5, or I don't know, maybe they will say h6 and g5 ताकि एक passer create हो. But Tiku bhai, if I told you the best move, if you haven't seen it, I think it will be a big shock to you what the move here is. And chat, feel free to guess. The move actually is h5
Oh
in
wow.
this position. Like, how is h5? Maybe your idea is you want to go g5, pawn takes के बाद h4, h3 ऐसे करके push. But who
Bhai,
plays h5 in a position like
bhai,
this?
mistake. He played rook a8.
Exactly.
He played rook
Exactly my
a8.
point.
Wow. Rook a8, by the way, attacking the bishop. I think the plan is to put pressure on that a4 pawn. And that's why, for example, if you play bishop to e3, the move we were considering for so long, bishop c6 and goodbye to the pawn. So bishop e6 only move played in literally a second by Arjun. He's ready and it's now +1 for Arjun. He's in the driver's seat.
एग्जैक्टली A5 नाउ एक वो टेम्पो के साथ आ गया, रुक D8 पे एकदम घटिया. रुक A8 पे, सॉरी, इज नॉट रियली डूइंग मच, इट्स अ पैसिव पीस. एंड वंस अगेन टिकू भाई, H5 द बेस्ट मूव इन द पोजीशन, और अदरवाइज यू आर वे वर्स. I'm sorry, but I think Arjun is on the verge of winning this match. I feel like the chances increased by let's say like 20 to 30% with Nils's last move. Looks very, very difficult. We do have another super chat from Tikubai's alt account. But I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Mandar Bhai is saying, thank you so much for the super chat, first of all. Uh, But Mandar Bhai is saying winning a game versus Prague and draw versus Arjun फिर भी जरा सा घमंड नहीं इसलिए you are loved by many टिकू भाई सहज भाई is just jealous of you मंदर भाई इतना भी सच नहीं बोलना था भाई यार तो
अरे
आपने
नहीं नहीं
एम्बैरस
भाई,
कर
आई
दिया
थिंक
मुझे भाई
एप्रिशिएट सेंटिमेंट मंदर भाई, बट नहीं, ऐसा बिल्कुल भी नहीं है। आई थिंक सहज भाई, मैं, राकेश भाई, वी ऑल डेफिनेटली लव ईच अदर्स ग्रोथ, ये तो बहुत सही है। बाकी टॉकिंग अबाउट डिफीटिंग Parag and drawing Arjun, that happened when they were kids. So get them when they are young, bhai. That's my advice. But
भाई
go to tournaments, play little kids. Like at chess, unko harao, beat them, so that when they become world champion, you notice any upcoming talent, right? You hear about Arit Kapil, or you hear about some 5-year-old, like the youngest rated player in the world, right? We heard about some 3-year-old. Go and
या
play a
या
tournament where he plays, beat him right now, that you can boast about it later, yeah, like 10, 15 years later, Sahaj bhai.
एग्जैक्टली लाइक मैं अब बोलता हूँ मैंने फिरोजा को हराया हुआ है लाइक आई कैन बी प्राउड ऑफ दैट बिट ओके फिरोजा वाज लाइक 20 लाइक 23 2400 समथिंग लाइक दिस सो गेट देम व्हेन दे आर when they are a bit younger because otherwise if when they're older and they're super strong in this sense it will be impossible
बाद में साइमल ने भी कोई मौका नहीं मिलेगा भाई। बाद में यू कांट इवन डिफीट देम इन अ साइमल, सो या। And chat, it's going to be exciting now. Bishop b6 is a very nice move, because now if bishop c6, I can simply play a5. And these bishops are like, highways along a major route, like making sure you can really go full speed in your car, supporting that pawn. The bishop on b3 can later come to c4, even support the pawn to a6. Then the pawn can go to a7, and it's going to be very hard. Look at the bishop on g7. It was the star of black's position, Sahaj Bhai, and now it's blocked by a mere pawn, completely useless. And of course, the h pawn makes sense why it's the best move to some extent. Once you see the move, then okay, I'm going to play h5, I'm going to play bishop f6, I'm going to take the h pawn, move the bishop, and then start pushing the h pawn. But it's such a long process, and yeah, it feels like white ka plan is much simpler. I just push the pawn.
Yeah, correct. I think h5 and g5 is what I think makes a lot of sense. Like you take and then h4, h3 ऐसे करके. But that idea, I don't think he has. I mean, he could have played it earlier. It is possible Tikku bhai के he goes bishop f6, but यहाँ पे ना एक बड़ी unfortunate सी चीज़ हो रही है. I feel Nils के साथ कि after bishop f6, अर्जुन कैन एक्चुअली प्ले h5 here straight and ये बिशप इस डायगोनल पे कहीं भी और होता लाइक b7 c6 f3 मतलब मर नहीं रहा है मतलब आई एम जस्ट अज्यूमिंग लाइक कहीं भी और होता यू कुड हैव टेकन ऑन h5 बट बिकॉज g2 पे है आफ्टर टेकिंग दिस rook g1 and it gets pinned. That's a big problem in the position. So
Wow.
bishop f6, I'm guessing, is what he's thinking. But h5, this resource is really annoying, and I'm sure people in the chat, although I haven't seen this in the comments, but I'm sure people who are following would be asking, "Bhai, after a move like h5, can black not play g5? And isn't that we were talking about h pawn being a hindrance and all of that, and it doesn't make sense." Well, in this scenario, the h pawns in specific will pose a lot of back rank problems to the king. So, firstly, the king, it's not really important that your pawns become active. In any endgame, you are good as long as your king is active. Your king has to be super active. That's the problem overall. So, कहीं पे भी white can play h6 and ये king हमेशा के लिए बंद गया. At least 3-4 चालों के लिए आप इस king को बाहर नहीं निकाल पाओगे. And that's basically where the advantage comes from.
And yeah, we saw Nils shake his head just now. So clearly he understands the position is much more complicated. That rook a8 move was not the best. So the pressure building up. By the way, 18 minutes for Nils now to play 16 moves. That is
Yep.
not easy. And Arjun having like almost okay, more than double the time. So will be exciting to see what happens in the game. I think very, very likely Arjun win today, Sahaj Bhai, and he should get his first win under his belt. And after this, I think he will cross Wei and Wesley to be the new world number 9. So finally, an Indian in the world top 10. It's been a while, yeah? Uh,
Let's go, bhai.
feels like कि बहुत
We
time हो
have
गया है.
been waiting for that moment for like an eternity, bhai. Let's go. This feels way too long that it has happened, but yes, today it gets changed. Let's go.
And
Um, Oh, by the way,
Yeah,
chat, also like almost 1,000 people watching. Do like the stream. I have a very, very nice membership question planned for this exact game. So if you want to have the question, you want to have the 1 month of free diamond membership, do like the stream. Um,
by the
yeah.
way, update, there could be potentially like a no, no, maybe not. But I think a update in the Carlsen game. I think not exactly the move order I thought it happened. That's why no draw. But it feels like the knight has dropped back to d3 by Magnus, putting pressure on the b4 pawn. Knight d7 played, and now rooks are getting traded off. So it feels like this could be moving towards equality. Not a draw just yet, but at least it feels like it's completely equal now.
Magnus hai bhai, Magnus hai. With each capture, with each trade, he just gets more and more and more dangerous. Be very careful here. Be very. It looks harmless, but you know something is coming. Or for example, like एक I think Nodirbek एक हल्का सा discomfort feel करेगा इस position में, because after rook takes c1, I will go queen takes c1, and you cannot challenge the queen trade anymore. You cannot play queen c7, bishop है c6
Hmm.
और c8 पे आपके पास कोई support like कोई piece नहीं है जो बचा सकता है यहाँ पे. तो ऑलरेडी एक हल्का सा discomfort तो है Nodirbek की position में. एंड ऑफ कोर्स नो क्लियर प्लान. एंड मैग्नस कब से ये जो G4 H4 का प्लान है कब से रोक के बैठा है. दिस इज बिकॉज ही इज थिंकिंग लॉन्ग टर्म एंड ही नोज कि व्हेन नॉदरबेक काइंड ऑफ रन्स आउट ऑफ मूव्स व्हिच लुक्स वेरी वेरी लाइकली हियर, then he will slowly improve, and Nodirbek को वो repeat करना पड़ेगा moves, which is annoying. It has psychological disadvantages and all of that. And yeah, even though Bar is saying 0-0-0, I think भाई थोड़ा risk है भाई.
By risk to hai. This to always hai. With Magnus, I think you could have a king endgame and still he will somehow, I don't know where he will bring a pawn from and queen, but yeah, you always have to be on your toes. By the way, he pushes the a pawn. Um, Looks like a very logical move, defending that pawn on b4. And Magnus is ready with his next move. King f2 in an endgame. The king is an active piece. He's using it.
Exactly. And G4 H4 still he's keeping in the cards. Maybe he will play E4 later on. And now I think like in a position like this, every player in the world, maybe like okay, the top 50 players को अगर हम exclude कर दें,
Hmm.
every player in this position with black is gonna struggle, I feel. Because you don't have a plan, you don't have a move. And वही जो हम discuss कर रहे थे पहले, the art of doing nothing, that is so difficult to implement in a position like this, because if the art of doing nothing usually means you're making small improvements, but for black it is not apparent where that small improvement is coming from.
Hmm. Great point. And I think it's just about doing nothing. Yeah. I
Oh,
think that we keep coming back to that point, Sahaj bhai. By the way,
Nils mistake. Yeah, Nils ने कुछ गलती करी है भाई. एक और गलती. Bishop C6, and now yeah,
oh,
he doesn't see H5 at all भाई. Now he plays Bishop F6 and H5 now is winning. For Arjun, let's go. OP, chat, do like the stream. 1,100 people watching, almost 500 likes चाहिए हमको for the membership question. And we really should get that membership question out once, because it's based on this game, it's based on this position. So do like the stream. Let's go.
wow. And
And
h5 played by
played.
Arjun.
H5
Wow.
played. Let's go.
And seems like, chat, objectively it's a +2 evaluation. That means if Arjun were to play perfect chess from here, he is winning. Now that doesn't mean he will win. The game is still complicated because black does get a pass pawn of his own, Sahaj bhai. But good signs for Arjun. But after taking the pawn, he has to find the only move, bishop to c4. How easy is it to play that move and how difficult?
भाई आंख बंद करके खेलेगा वो बिशप C4 इस पोजीशन में, बिकॉज आई टेल यू द इट लुक्स लाइक अ डिफिकल्ट मूव, बट इन हाइंडसाइट लाइक पहला, ओ बाय द वे ही गोस GH5.
Wow.
ओ भाई, अरे नो, wrong color, wrong square, same piece, wrong square. He plays
Bhai.
bishop C2. Is that an error?
Yes, it is. It is. It's
अरे
not winning anymore.
भाई,
It's
I
plus point
thought
0.9.
no ways भाई, because I thought his plan was bishop C4 and bishop F1 to stop H3.
Why he's playing bishop e4? He wants to remove the bishop pair. He wants to say कि मैं bishop और rook के साथ खेलूंगा. आपके
अरे
pawns
यार,
doubled है. And that is practically a great idea, I feel. But there was just something better there.
एक second. If I can analyze this forward, chat, before we actually jump to a conclusion कि position is bad or whatever, let's also understand the time situation. या 15 मिनट पड़े हैं भाई, उसके बाद 13 चालें चलने, कहाँ से निकलेगी ये चालें? So let's say h4 is the best move. I think this is easy to find. Bishop e4 तो उसका प्लान ही है. Bishop takes e4, rook takes e4 आता है. h3 only move sort of. आपका h2 आ रहा है, so rook e2 से बचाना forced है. भाई बिशप g5 check and bishop f4 critical move for
I think
Nils.
he'll
If
find
he
that though.
doesn't find this, he is dead lost.
But
This
that
is
he'll
what
find.
Arjun missed.
But that he'll find.
This,
Yeah, this is
but
what he
you
missed. You're right.
understand this is what Arjun missed, right?
Right, but this is dead equal, by the way, after bishop f4. It is 0.00.
No, it's not. By 0.6, I see bishop f4, b4, h2, rook e1 to stop h1, king g7 आता है. भाई कहाँ से dead equal यार? कहाँ से?
King g7 is tough. King g7 is tough actually. Because I
किंग जी
might
सेवन की
just...
जगह भी आप f5 खेल सकते हो कि किंग जी सेवन इज नाउ 0.2 0.1 नाउ. बट b5 a6
Bhai,
c4,
look
भाई
at
ये
this.
सीधा सारे पॉइंट्स
Look at
बढ़
this.
रहे हैं, ब्लैक के पॉइंट्स कुछ नहीं कर रहे हैं.
Bhai, after c4, you have to basically keep pushing the king. King to g6, c5, king to g5. You have to bring the king all the way down to g2, man. This is not easy.
ओ भाई a6 किंग g3 c6 किंग, भाई क्या हो रहा है ये c7 h,
Bhai,
भाई इतना पुश करने के बाद भी h1 क्वीन इज अ बैड मूव. चैट,
Okay,
डिड यू
this
सी
is...
दिस? लाइक पिछले 10 चालों में किंग यहाँ से यहाँ लेके आया हूँ एंड मेरे को क्वीन नहीं बनानी. जो अकेली चाल जो मैं आंख बंद करके खेलता, दैट्स अ मिस्टेक है एक्चुअली. हियर h5 इज द बेस्ट मूव. लाइक व्हाट इज दिस?
The
अरे
only
भाई
game with a better ending than धुरंधर भाई. भाई क्या crazy है भाई. King g8 से पूरा g2 तक आ गया. वो मुझे थानोस कह रहा है. Now I have to
नहीं
do
भाई,
it
धुरंधर की
myself.
एंडिंग वाज एपिक भाई. वो तो आई स्टिल रेट दैट भाई. मैंने कल रात को ही देखी भाई, पहली वाली वापस. इट वाज सो गुड.
भाई come on. Arjun, I think, I do get his point of bishop c2 though. Double bishops में ना, it's very tough to stop that pawn. I think bishop 1 का idea काफी अच्छा था. But single bishop में, I can basically stop it on one square, like the light square, for example. So it's easier to control your opponent's pawn when he only has one bishop, because I can stop the rook on the opposite color of the bishop. So makes sense. But now h4. He might not play h4. Yeah, there are other options here. Like bishop g5 check hai. King g7 also looks very logical. He might just not play it.
बिशप g5 चेक ऑल्सो भाई. सिंस यू मेंशन, मेरे दिमाग में तो यही चलेगा ना, अगर वो एंड में जाके पॉन यहाँ पे था तब यही खेलना था, मैं तो पहले खेल देता हूँ, फिर h5 h4 खेलता हूँ. लाइक यू आर राइट, इट कुड हैपन. प्लस माई किंग गोज टू b1. आई मीन टेक्निकली स्पीकिंग मेरा किंग कहीं यहाँ होना चाहिए, वेयर इट कैन easily go to this side and it can also defend on this side easily. So my king should be in the center, like at least. And if you play bishop g5 check, you're kicking my king to b1. That's one step away. So like logically you can explain it to yourself in some way ke bishop g5 is a good move. It's tough, by very very difficult for Nils to
Bhai,
continue
it's
all of this in
really
12
tough.
minutes.
12 minutes to play 14 moves now. Less than a minute to move. Chat, do like the stream. Let's get more people in. The Arjun's game. In the crunch moments, Nils needs to push that h pawn to h4 to create any defending chances. Otherwise, after bishop e4, it is all downhill. By the way, let's have the two board setup. Just want to look at Magnus's game for a couple of seconds, because he has finally push the G pawn, Sahej bhai. So he is building up an attack after so long.
Bhai, crazy. h4, h5 incoming. So some plan on the king side for Magnus. And once again, I think Nodirbek is just thinking, भाई अब मैं करूँ क्या इस पोजीशन में? मेरे सारे पीस तो परफेक्ट पोजीशन पे, अब सिर्फ वेट करना है. और वेट करना आई थिंक चेस में किसी को अच्छा नहीं लगता. लाइक जस्ट टू वेट एंड डू नथिंग, बिकॉज एवरीबडी वांट्स टू डू समथिंग. नोबडी वांट्स पैसिव डिफेंस एंड मैग्नस इज फोर्सिंग यू. लाइक आई एम श्योर नॉदरबेक को पता है उसकी पोजीशन खराब नहीं है. मैग्नस को पता है कि इज नॉट
Yeah,
सिग्निफिकेंटली बेटर और एनीथिंग लाइक दैट. बट वो एक जो साइकोलॉजिकल प्रेशर है, प्रैक्टिकल प्रेशर है, बोर्ड पे बैठ के कुछ नहीं करने का जो प्रेशर है, वो नॉदरबेक कब फील करेगा.
agreed. And I think the point you mentioned, I just can't take on c1 and challenge your queen for a trade. That's very important. So if I can't simplify, then I'm kind of tied in defense, just waiting for you to create more chances, which is a horrible feeling to be in. Ki bhai bas wait kar rahe hain. Your opponent is landing punches, you're just defending. That's not the kind of boxer you want to be. At some point, one punch will land, and that's knockout. So Nodirbek still
करेक्ट.
okay. Time ज़्यादा है though. Yeah, that's the benefit for Nodirbek, which Nils doesn't have the benefit of. 10 minutes for Nils.
Yeah, tough, 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 very tough. Mad Max जी कह रहे हैं भाई Soul should have signed Arjun and since Indian organization and Arjun is strongest in fast format. What do you guys think? I think that title right now is between Nihal and Arjun. Like I think that is pretty clear कि इंडिया के जो बेस्ट फास्ट चेस की अगर हम बात करते हैं तो आई थिंक निहाल एंड अर्जुन आर क्लियरली द फ्रंट रनर्स राइट नाउ एटलीस्ट मे बी इट कैन चेंज in a few months. But I think between Nihal and Arjun, we cannot comfortably say okay, one is better, one is okay. Yes, Arjun does have two World Rapid and Blitz medals as well, which I think really puts him ahead. But also Nihal has, he's been dominating the online chess scene, the bullet chess scene, the Blitz chess scene for a very very long time, long before Arjun was. So it's both.
And Suresh bhai, you are right. And Bishop Check played, bhai. He
भाई
gave
क्या
that check.
you are telling me that exact thought process that we were talking about टिकू भाई where you saw that h4 h3 h2 and बाद में तो check देनी है तो अभी दे देता हूँ that's what Nils just went through and he has just played it on the board as well wow so big mistake king d1 I think is a automatic move अर्जुन बोर्ड पे नहीं है अभी because king d1 अगर आप जाओगे तो bishop f3 check में आपका रुक मर जाएगा so king f1 तो automatic है ये तो खेलने वाला है वो and Arjun is virtually winning.
Yo, well, this is the golden opportunity. Of course, not easy for him to be completely sure, but I do kind of understand ki, Nils playing practical chess, 10 minutes, he just has to do what feels natural to his intuition, right? He has to trust it to some extent. It's impossible to calculate everything. So many options for him. And now problem is, Sehaj bhai, if you play h4 now, I'm guessing the plan is b4. That's the winning move. Bishop e4 might just still transpose in some cases to the same line. So will Arjun find
And
b4 after
h3,
h4?
do you see the move after h3? Because that's the critical one, Tiku bhai. Because that's where you understand why the bishop on g5 is bad. Chat, white to play. Tiku
Oh,
bhai, don't say it. Chat, white to play
oh.
and win. And tell me why bishop g5 check was a bad move. And often in these endgames, it is moves like this which give you that extra push you need, and that turns the game from draw to winning just like that. Not rookie 2, something more direct. We're looking for something more direct, something more aggressive. थ्रेट्स चेक्स कैप्चर्स थ्रेट्स हमेशा ऐसे चेक करना होता है चेक्स है नहीं बोर्ड पे कैप्चर्स है नहीं बोर्ड पे व्हाट एल्स रिमेन्स
Very interesting. And chat,
the move
as you
is chat. Okay, I think I will just reveal it because nobody is guessing it. Yeah, it's a very difficult move to find, I think, over the
hmm,
board. The move is chat b5. Because hello, bishop takes b5 के बाद rook to e5 and suddenly your bishop जो bishop g5 check आपने दी थी चार चाल पहले that is the reason why you cannot take this pawn anymore on b5. What a find and what a nuance in the position. And if Arjun finds, by the way, b4 b5 is on the board. h4 खेल दिया उसने. So b4 b5
bhai,
आ गया board पे. Arjun is completely winning.
come on, Arjun. I think b4, b5 would be tough to find. Bishop e4, by the way, still a very good option. If Arjun is not able to figure out the nuances, he can just put the bishop on e4. His original plan also works. But उसके अलावा कुछ भी खेलेंगे तो game is again in very, very, in that gray area where you don't know what's happening. So b4, ideal. Bishop e4, great as well. By the way, Bishop e7 played by Nodirbek in the other game. Sehaj bhai, I feel like we might have a result in both these games. Carlsen also pushing with the white pieces. बहुत interesting setup hai. And if Carlsen wins, Arjun wins, I think Carlsen will be sole lead with Arjun half a point behind.
Correct, but okay, Magnus, I'm not so sure if he is winning this. I know pressure to डालेगा, but it is Nodirbek in front of him, and after a statement like this कि भाई मैं इसी मैच के लिए आया हूँ ये टूर्नामेंट ये खेलने भाई I mean this is I feel like he's just gonna be like a boss yeah he's just not gonna give Magnus any chances. He has so far not given Magnus any chances, and Magnus has the position where Magnus does Magnus things, and then he tries to tire out his opponents or outlast them. I mean so many times we've seen this. बट एक मन में वो फीलिंग तो है कि एक बार और देखना है एक बार और देखना है आई फील लाइक द लास्ट टाइम वी ट्रूली सॉ दिस वर्जन ऑफ मैग्नस वाज अगेंस्ट नेपो गेम 6 एंड उसके बाद से आई कांट रिमेंबर अ गेम वेयर इट वाज दैट लॉन्ग बैटल इन अ क्लासिकल मैच जहाँ पे मैग्नस ने प्रॉपरली मैग्नस की तरह धोया हो. This is looking like that position. I would love to see that, but I feel like today is not that day.
Let's see. Time will tell. By the way, Bishop E4 played by Arjun. He did
Arre.
not find B4. But I think, Sejbhai, that's a practical decision. B4, B5 may he would have to play perfectly. Yahan pe he has a bit more leeway, right? It's his original plan. He sticks to it. Maybe not a bad practical decision.
Bhai, I'm telling you, regardless of the result, okay? When Arjun goes back to his hotel room and he is opening his laptop, and then the first thing, this is what every chess player does, yeah? You go, you check on your phone, you check on your laptop to see bhai kahan galtiyan kari thi. The moment he sees B4 and B5, he is going to be so upset that he missed this resource because Arjun, he knows कि this is a clean win. ये खेल देता तो अगर जीत भी जाता तो शायद गेम बहुत ज़्यादा और clean होता. This is, I think, a
Hmm.
big miss for Arjun. But okay, bishop takes e4, rook takes e4. And now, Tikubai, I think it's also worth mentioning that we are kind of in a very similar situation to the one we were discussing before. So in
Hmm.
this moment, when Arjun played, I believe, bishop c2 here, and जहाँ पे हम h4 discuss कर रहे थे, जहाँ bishop g5 check was a mistake, वहाँ पे भी h4 के बाद we were going bishop e4 takes check के बाद हम king c2 पे रख रहे थे, right? हमारा
Hmm.
डिफरेंस ये है कि यही सेम पोजीशन आई है बोर्ड पे, बट इंस्टेड ऑफ पुटिंग द किंग ऑन c2 we've put the king on b1 instead. And
Hmm.
now I will tell you this, that this is not a good development for Arjun,
Hmm.
because like you saw, आप बिशप g5 चेक पहले खेलो h4 से पहले, उसका consequence क्या होता है, right, in a position like this. So
Hmm.
I'm going to the original position now. We have the exact same position in front of us, but a slightly inferior version, क्योंकि आप king c2 तो खेलोगे ही इस पोजीशन में, कभी कुछ भी हो, कितने भी आपके पॉइंट्स आगे बढ़ जाए, कभी ना कभी king c2 तो आएगा ही, एंड वहां पे आप एक मूव लूज करोगे.
Hmm. Sej bhai, but it's very interesting because उस पोजीशन में जब द बिशप वाज ऑन f6
Yes.
when you so it was also attacking the c3 pawn, for example, जो other variation थी. So
Yeah.
because the bishop came to g5 already, Arjun can basically start pushing his pawns instantly. And
Yeah.
also, he can just up. But by the way, we had this on the board. S3 played. So in
Yeah.
that position, apparently he had to go rook e2 first. That was the move, and that allowed bishop f4. But now he can directly go rook e1. But this is all thanks to the engine which I've looked at, and rook e1 is the best move. And basically, you save a move as white. I directly went to e1, controlling the h1 square.
Correct, correct. That is true. That is definitely a benefit in the position. I think you are absolutely right about that. You're not losing a tempo, so to speak. In fact, if you played king c2 here, na Tikku bhai, it's
Hmm.
exactly the same, because black
Yeah.
खेलेगा ही h2, आप खेलोगे rook e1, black खेलेगा bishop f4, and it's exactly the same position on the board. So it's not really that bad. So thanks for correcting that. But chat में someone asked b4 b5 is almost unfindable. Don't you think? I seriously disagree. I feel like players like Arjun and who are known for their calculations, like Gukesh, like Nihal, like Prag, like
Bye.
positions like this. I mean, this is like their bread and butter, bhai.
Sahaj bhai, he played king c2.
हाँ हाँ, तो भाई सेम ही पोजीशन आ गई ना भाई. अब H2 बेसिकली आप ये अस्यूम करो, H5 GH5 बिशप C2 के बाद निल्स ने खेला H4, आपने खेला है बिशप E4, आपने कैप्चर किया, आपने चेक दिया, मैं किंग ले आया C2 पे, आपने खेला H3. ये है पोजीशन बोर्ड पे. बट एक छोटा सा डिफरेंस है.
हाँ.
छोटा सा डिफरेंस ये है चैट, कि चाल मेरी नहीं है, चाल आपकी है. तो दैट्स एग्जैक्टली द सिचुएशन इन अर्जुन केस.
Exactly. And now after h2, I think you just have to play rook e1.
हाँ.
And then I think black will go for the same plan. Yeah, bring his king all the way up the board. And white will start pushing his pawns up the board. Sahaj bhai, I mean, this is the complete race. Black is a pawn up, technically, chat. Let's not forget that. Black is a pawn up. But what doubled pawns hai? And I feel like our pawn is also very strong on a5. And the rook on 8 is much more passive as compared to the rook on e4, which is doing a defensive job controlling h1 and can also do an offensive job, can come to a1, for example, to support the pawn if needed. So, kafi crazy imbalances, and now black is only two moves for fighting the game, h2 and king g7. But these are both very natural, Sahaj bhai.
H2, I think, is the most natural for sure. King G7 also more or less natural. But yeah, also chat, like in the situation where we are talking about Arjun sort of losing a tempo like this, also don't for like try to remember that after rookie 2 bishop f4, Arjun had to play rookie 1 as well. तो ही इज नॉट डूइंग दैट एनी मोर, अनलेस नील्स सेज कि ठीक है मैं H2 खेलता ही नहीं हूँ, मैं आपको ये रुकी 1 एक चाल में नहीं दूंगा, देन यू कैन से ओके ठीक है वो एडवांटेज अभी भी नहीं है. बट लेट्स से इफ ही गोज H2, रुक गोज टू E1, तो वो वन मूव का जो कॉम्पनसेशन जो डेफिसिट था वो वापस आ गया हमारे पास.
Wow, very interesting. And as we think about this, Nils has less than 8 minutes now. The time ticking down bit by bit. He's scratching his neck, but the calculation process is very tough. Sometimes these moves look kind of same, yeah? King G7, H2, kya difference hai? But there are subtle differences.
Yeah,
Two and a
a
half
lot of
minutes you
differences.
said.
Chat is asking why is just to suffer bhai, but like I think it's not just about thinking about the first of all, I think Arjun has like very good chances to win this game. I mean, I would put his winning chances like above 50%. So that I hope, like for me, it's very clear. And secondly, I feel it's also about, looking at new positions and looking, and it's like, I've been looking at chess for more than 20 years, and still like this is a type of position जो शायद जिसके बारे में मैंने कभी सोचा भी नहीं होगा कि ऐसा पोजीशन एग्जिस्ट भी कर सकता है. दैट्स व्हाट आई एम एनालाइजिंग राइट नाउ, एंड दैट्स द ब्यूटी ऑफ इट, या बिकॉज इट्स लाइक it can be so random and it can be so unique at the same time.
Agreed. Chess is amazing, man. Chess is really amazing. So deep, so beautiful. And 6.5 minutes for Nils. He looks at the clock, looks at the board, changes the hand on his chin. Still not sure about what's the best move. Chat, question to you. Do you think Arjun wins this now? Like, because we've seen he had a winning position. He bossed up a little bit. Still is better, much better, I would say. Practically, maybe close to winning. What do you think happens? Do you think Arjun converts this one? Sahaj, by final prediction, I think, from you as
I
well
think
for this
Arjun,
game.
I think I will put his winning chances more than 50%. Like he's
Agreed.
yeah, 100%. Also 5 ही minute है भाई नील्स के पास, कैसे खेलेगा भाई? More than 50%. Let's go. Also, chat, do like the stream because that membership question that we have is only going to be asked with 500 likes, and I would really, really like to ask that question, and so we can award the membership. Because it's also related to the game somehow, and
By the way,
yeah, so do like the stream, chat.
chat kariye Arjun wins, draw, no, wins, draw. बहुत सारे answers है. By the way, 428 likes already. Let's get to 70, 80 more likes and we'll be there. Meanwhile, by 5 minutes for Nils to play 10 moves. It's 2 moves a minute with the increment, of course, additional, but it's pressure nonetheless. With so many options, the king stuck on the back rank, by the way, that's always a news. That's why Arjun played king c2. Any, promotion comes with check. So the king on g8 also awkwardly placed. He has to push the h pawn. It would be 1 square away from queening.
It looks scary, but chat, I think in this scenario, the pawn on H2 is looking less scary because black के पास वो light वाला bishop नहीं है. Imagine वो bishop रहता भाई यहाँ पे, ये point सीधा queen हो रहा था यहाँ पे. So
Played.
H2 के बाद, oh, he plays H2. That was an error, by the way, rookie 1. So now Arjun is no longer, behind when it comes to, losing a move or anything along those lines. Remember, chat, that instead of going king c2 straight, he went king b1, king c2. But instead of going rookie 2 and rookie 1, he went rookie 1 straight. So एक जगह पे उसने चाल lose करी, एक जगह पे उसने चाल win करी basically.
And Chad, also want to point out, when we are playing these moves on the board, during analysis, the eval is changing constantly. So that just tells us कि जो engines हैं, they are also not easily able to navigate these complexities. Because imagine करो, आपको पूरा calculate करना है till the pawn queens. The first person to successfully queens wins the game. It's like a little like a video game है जो पहला बंदा pawn कोने तक पहुंचाएगा wins the game, and it's very tough. So even the engines are struggling to figure
You
out
know,
the nuances here.
I feel like, I've done this exercise before, like this, like I tried to test it myself because I have a lot of, chess opening files from 2010. That's when I really got serious with working with I started creating my own files. I have some files which are older than that as well. 2007, 8 में बनाई थी मैंने. 2010, because I was, I think, already a 2400 player. I was working, I was very serious on my chess. I was working very hard. And I wanted to see, bhai, ke back then, जो इंजन्स रहते थे उनका जो रिकमेंडेशन रहता था वो हाउ डज इट कंपेयर टू नाउ राइट एंड इट देर इज अ
Hmm.
मैसिव डिफरेंस नाउ वी आर सीइंग this move is bad, like you see a lot of inaccuracies in your files, but it's almost like you can't justify because that engine जो पहले 2010 में था it's not there to defend itself. Now similar to that, I feel 10 years from now all the engines that we have are going to completely change and all the evals that we have are also going to change as well. So the our understanding of this end game, like अभी हमें लग रहा है कि यहाँ पे ये move correct है ये move गलत है, there could be an engine 10 years from now who could tell us कि यहाँ पे इस तरह से आप जीत सकते हो, ये position is actually a dead draw. It's completely possible. So I feel
Yeah.
like with each of these developments we kind of we get closer to a newer answer which is not necessarily the truth because there is no truth.
But Sahaj bhai, बहुत deep philosophical बात कर दी आपने. There is no truth. I agree. And that's not consoling for Nils though. He needs the truth for, to play the best move. He does play one of the best ones. Only two moves, bishop f1, king g7, kept him in the game. He plays one of them, defends his passed pawn. And as we discussed, now the king has to walk all the way from g8 to g2. So it's time for Arjun to push his own pawns. b4, let's go.
Yeah, possible. By the way, as we said, bar एकदम 0-0-0 पे चला गया, but फिकर not chat because I think he's still fine. It's incredibly difficult to analyze this. We saw this line kicking ऐसे jump होके G2 पे आता है, आपको रुक sack करना पड़ेगा and आपके तीनों pawn ऐसे बैठे रहेंगे यहाँ पे. It's gonna be a crazy fight. Nobody's gonna know who's winning, and that's the beauty of it at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think no player, if they had to bet their house, will bet their house on any result here because anything can happen. So Saj by बहुत interesting chat. By the way, we are at 467 likes, only 33 likes to go chat. Then Saj will ask his first diamond membership question today. जल्दी से like कर दो भाई लोग.
Also, by like it's been a while. Candidates में हमने उतना नहीं किया था diamond membership. Like okay, in
हाँ.
the end we awarded like a lot of diamond memberships. At the end, but like वो daily वाले बहुत miss हो रहे थे हमारे. So I would love to
हाँ.
get that going as well. So yeah, in
Agreed.
chat में someone asking is rook bishop versus rook is possible? I don't think so. That is not possible here, but because I think it's going to be a more complex endgame. Like it's probably black is going to queen and white will probably win much faster because या तो कुछ blunder होगा या फिर एक time पे कुछ सारे piece straight हो जाएंगे. I don't think it's going to be rook bishop versus rook. But I have a question for you, chat. What has been the most interesting endgame you have watched as a viewer? So any interesting end game, you can think of any moments from like it doesn't have to be an important event, like it doesn't have to be any event. कोई भी किसी आपने stream पे देखा हो, कोई game देखा हो, any interesting end games that that you've watched, and also end games that you like to watch.
भाई मार्वल वाली एंड गेम काफी पसंद थी मुझे सहज भाई इफ वी आर इंक्लूडिंग एनी एंड गेम बट yeah, I think बहुत सारी come to mind. I think Queen at 6, Magnus versus Karyakin was one of my, it's maybe kind of an end game, I would say. That was one of my best ones. Um, Magnus
Oh,
Nepo कह रही है
blunder!
chat.
Blunder
भाई
by
mistake!
Nils. And then B5 is now completely winning for Arjun. Chat, do like the stream. We are only 13 likes away from the membership questions. So do hit that like button so that more people can join in on this action as Arjun takes down the Swedish number one, Nils Grandelius, with his last mistake. B5 is the move.
Bhai, it's so natural to make that mistake because your first instinct is white is pushing his pawns. I have to push mine. Which one should I push? I already have an H pawn. Pushing the other one makes no sense. My F pawn is blocked by my bishop. So E5 makes the most sense. Like it's so human, so natural. The design is very human, Sahaj, by of playing E5. But that's a question mark. Also because now your bishop can't control the defending squares. So we've kind of
Exactly.
basically said the bishop is no longer defending the queening squares of many of these pawns, and now b5 c4 just wins the game for Arjun.
भाई p5 a6 push this pawn up सबको just push करते रहो भाई push करो खुश रहो and also I think another reason for why e5 is bad on top of not being able to control the b8 square is that remember Tikku bhai you had to bring your king to g2 at some point in that analysis king g3 king g2 were only moves that means
Yeah.
race थी ये किंग क्या नाम था उसका रणवीर सिंह था नहीं राजीव सिंह ना व्हाट वाज हिज
कहाँ
नेम
पे
द
भाई?
गाय फ्रॉम रेस क्या नाम था उसका
भाई रेस मूवी देखी है क्या आपने?
रणवीर सिंह थी
सैफ
क्या
अली खान। सैफ अली
हाँ
खान।
रणवीर सिंह था आई थिंक उसमें ये किंग रणवीर सिंह है बेसिकली ही हैज टू देयर इज नो टाइम टू वेस्ट यू हैव टू गो g7 g6 g5 with e5 you lose a very crucial tempo in the position and this gives Rajiv Singh to play b5 राजीव सिंह ही था आई थिंक उसका नाम
Wow. So this is very, very interesting chat. So what I want to do,
राजवीर सॉरी माय बैड चैट
Rajveer. Sejbhai, let's do one thing. Let's have the bird's eye view quickly for 30 seconds. Predictions for each game in 5 seconds each, and then we jump back to Magnus and then we stick to Arjun. So predictions for all games, Sejbhai, quickly.
Andy draw. Zhu Jiner versus Erdogmus. I mean, I wish I knew. Oh no, Erdogmus is winning, completely winning actually.
Yeah.
Sorry. Arjun versus Arjun winning. Magnus versus by Magnus 4 घंटे और खेलेगा and then Magnus wins maybe. Yeah.
So
But
three results, yeah?
I don't know
Three
why.
results
Difficult.
and
Three
one
three
draw.
results minimum. Yeah, 3 results minimum.
Got it. So now let's jump to Magnus's game. By the way, Dogmas is winning chat. Zeus King is stuck in the center. So great position for him. Magnus, by the way, still pushing. Can we go over the last few moves and we jump to Arjun straight and stay there for a long time?
Yup, so this were the last couple of moves. G4 पे ही छोड़ा था हमने I believe. उसके बाद H4 आ गया बोर्ड पे. Rook C6, he plays G5, so making those slow improvements. And now he takes the rook on C6, then he takes the pawn on F6 as well, and creating this long-term, hole on the E5 square. And now he goes bishop G5, another beautiful move because if you go bishop takes G5, H takes G5, yes, it's equal, but good luck defending this by E5 is an outpost, C5 is an outpost. Your knight has literally no squares. Your pawn on H7 is a backward pawn. So many problems, I think, in Black's camp. And this is exactly the type of thing that Magnus like feels, yeah, so well. But he says no, queen c7 भाई आप पहले f4 खेलो ताकि मेरे को e4 का स्क्वायर मिले ताकि मैं अपना नाइट लाऊं यहाँ पे फिर उसके बाद बिशप मैं कैप्चर करने का सोचता हूँ तो
Yeah,
नॉर्दरबेक नॉट गिविंग अप
I love that move. Queen H2 check एक idea है. Queen C file control कर रही है. Of course, I feel like Nodirbek is gonna keep defending. That extra 10 minutes is huge by the way for Nodirbek there. कि Carlsen अगर उल्टा time होता ना, like if Nodirbek had 13, Carlsen had 23, suddenly the odds would be much more in Carlsen's favor. Let's see what happens. Carlsen, by the way, looking like not completely content with what he has. Maybe he feels winning chances उतने नहीं है. Of course, he has weakened Nodirbek's king, but he's also weakened his own king now because Queen is checking coming. Sage by looks like Magnus.
100%. But like I feel chat में a lot of people ask why is what is the Magnus effect and why is Magnus the greatest of all time and all of that. Like in this moment I would like really want to explain this to you point and I hope like I'm able to explain it in the best way that after a move like bishop g5 let's say 15 years ago the top 5 players of the world probably would have taken bishop g5 because उनको लगता है कि भाई किंग f7 खेलो क्वीन कुछ भी खेलो यहाँ पे क्या फर्क पड़ता है पोजीशन तो ड्रॉ ही है क्वीन दो नाइट क्या खेलना है यहाँ पे आप मारते किंग f7 के बाद आप बोलते आप ब्लैक का प्लेयर यहाँ पे ड्रॉ पूछता और व्हाइट वाला मान भी जाता बट मैग्नस इफेक्ट इज नोइंग के पोजीशन पॉइंट 0 से पॉइंट 3 हो गई है यहाँ पे तो मैग्नस यहाँ पे खेलेगा लाइक अगले अगले 3 साल खेलेगा दिस पोजीशन एंड दिस इज व्हाट यू सी क्वीन c7 आई थिंक इट्स ऑल्सो रिजल्ट ऑफ मैग्नस इफेक्ट टू एन एक्सटेंट फॉर मी
Yep, agreed. And I think Magnus building up the accuracy of all players, forcing them to play best chess, not make a single mistake. By the way, King G2 on the board. So not be thinking, let's jump to Arjun now, where Arjun has 31 minutes. Sehj, I think a lot of time. I think this is a good moment, by the way, for him to just calculate. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And chat me people are asking why will he play bishop to c7? Isn't that natural? So, guys, I feel in a position like this, when it's a race, there is no such thing as natural because it either works or it doesn't work. Yeah, like it's in the sense maths में like 2 plus 2 is 4. It's either works or it does. It has to be 4. Like अगर मैं I know कि मैं 3 चाल में queen कर रहा हूँ मैं 3 चालों में ही queen कर सकता हूँ only then it makes sense. So here especially in endgame, you analyze first, you calculate first, and then you make sense of it instead of doing it the other way around. I think middle game, you are mixing these emotions a bit. You can also feel कि ठीक है ये अच्छा लग रहा है and I can go in this direction. But in an end game, you have to be very, very, very technical. But technically speaking, bishop c7 doesn't make much sense to me because bishop takes e5 is not a threat. Because bishop takes e5 के बाद rook takes e5 is not possible as black and queen. So that would kind of be losing a tempo for me. So let's not lose a tempo. Let's push b5. Let's push a6. And I think he's completely winning.
Yeah, by the chat, 500 likes are done. So as Arjun thinks, maybe it's time to do the membership challenge, Sahej bhai, if you're ready.
Oh, amazing, amazing. So my question is, and this is, let's go back a couple of moves. So around this moment onwards, we have the question h5 के बाद, ठीक है? In there was
By
a
the way,
game.
chat, the solution is you have to type the solution followed by a Chesscom username. So it can't just be the answer, can't just be your username. It has to be the solution space your Chesscom username, the correct one. If you can't find username, the answer is void. Go ahead, Sajbhai.
And guys, also just want to put it out there. The thing is gonna be on Chess24 India channel, not on the Chesscom India channel. Just want to put it out
Yes.
there on the normal stream, not the vertical stream. That's the chat we are reading for this membership question. So Chess24 India, the non-vertical stream is the one we're looking at. Okay, so in last year, two Indian players played an endgame of a very similar style where the player with the black pieces was a pawn up and the player with the white pieces had just two pawns here on b5 and c5 or b4 and c4. Who were those two players? You saw this game, chat. You followed this event really, really well. And this player might have played, I think, the tournament of their lives in that in that event. Okay, I'm
Sajbhai, we have a
reading.
bunch of answers.
Wow, no one has guessed it, Tiku. Hi, that's
Oh,
crazy.
wow.
We have got chat here. Okay, so the answer is okay. I'll give you another clue because I feel no one is guessing this so far. I'll give you another clue. The tournament was Grand Swiss. Okay, and also
Ah,
not bishops. I'm talking strictly about the pawn structure.
I
Not
feel like
bishops.
I
And the
might know, but
tournament
I'm
was
not.
Grand Swiss. Yeah.
I
Go
might
ahead.
know the player's name, but I'm not gonna guess. So let's see. Sajbhai, do you see the
I
solution?
I still don't see the answer. Why? This is the
Wow.
first time it has happened to chat. Yo, that's crazy. I'm looking at all of them, but I don't see that name anywhere. Okay, I'll give you another clue. I think at this point I should just say it, yeah?
Maybe just change the question, Sajbhai. It's too
I feel
tough.
like, okay, Tikku bhai, you asked the question because I feel like no one is
Because
guessing this.
you've lost the
Uh,
chat so much that we can't figure out the first guy
yeah,
to answer
sorry, chat, it was a
anyways.
difficult question,
But
but this was the
so
game of Gukesh and Divya, where Gukesh had
ah
two pawns on the queen
yes.
side, Divya had three pawns on the king side, and all of them were sort of, pushing the pawns, and very similar structure here in this position as well.
So chat, I'm going to think of a question. Stay ready.
So,
But
yeah.
meanwhile, we have a bunch of moves, Sajbhai. Take us through some
Oh,
crucial
Arjun
moves
is
we've
winning.
played.
Let's go. Arjun
Yes,
is
let's get to the
completely
moves.
winning.
कैसे हैं हम यहाँ
E
पे?
E5, B5, no time to waste. E4, A6, no time to waste. E3, and now king, he goes king D3. I guess there was time to waste because there is no rook D8 check now. And now you just go C4, C5, C6, and black is basically busted. Let's go.
Wow.
Arjun OP. Arjun is going to score his first win.
By a crucial win, by the way. Yeah. And okay, let's say black plays king g7. So my plan is I'm going to play a7. Um, then move the bishop, just move the bishop back and b6. Yeah. Is that just winning? Simple.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Bishop D4. And chat में someone's asking which one of them had a tournament of their life. Why? Who do you think? Like, it can't be. I mean, it's very obviously one. Like, it very obviously it was Divya, no? And I would argue that in terms of tournament performance, like, very easily it's the best tournament of her life. Like, just based on why वो 26 मतलब I remember she defeated Amin Basim and then she defeated another grandmaster and then she only lost one game and it was to Abhimanyu, yeah? Abhimanyu Puranik, if I'm not, in the first round or something. By it, I think the best tournament, I think, for her, by a very big margin.
Yeah. And she was winning against Ukesh, by the way. I feel
Yes, she was winning as well. भाई वो तो
she
crazy
had
हो जाता.
found that move, she would have likely won, but she didn't. But draw what on man, she was the one pushing. So great tournament indeed. And
देखो भाई,
by the way,
question from your side.
हाँ क्वेश्चन सोच रहा हूँ मैं चैट अभी आएगा इन द नेक्स्ट 5 मिनट्स स्टे ट्यून्ड बाय द वे किंग D3 के बाद इट फील्स लाइक ब्लैक के ऑप्शंस खत्म होने वाले हैं निल्स ग्रेंडेलियस about to go down to Arjun, who is going to gain around, I'm guessing, 100 points, like 3.5 rating points from this, close to 4. And he's going to be 2755. And that does put him at the world number 9 spot. So, likely, no, the re-entry of Arjun to the world top 10 ए करके सबको पहुंचना है वहां सहज भाई यार खाली अर्जुन से नहीं चलेगा
करेक्ट भाई, करेक्ट 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 करेक्ट. बट अर्जुन भाई एक तो टॉप 10 में आए भाई. लाइक तो 6 months अगो वी वर डिबेटिंग भाई टॉप 10 में नेक्स्ट बंदा कौन आ रहा है, निहाल कब आएगा एंड ऑल ऑफ दैट. तीन तो
हाँ
ऑलरेडी थे ही वो तीन, मतलब या इट हैज टू बी वन प्लेयर फॉर श्योर.
Why at one point I remember like we had Arvind also at 2760. He was like world number 11. Like we had world number 11, we had 5 players, right? We
Hmm.
had Gukesh, Arjun Prag, Vishy in the world top 10, and our 11th was Arvind, something like that. So it was that crazy at one point. So hoping we can achieve those days again. It's going to be crazy, of course, if that happens. But yeah,
भाई
wish
अगर
for the
आपको
expect.
मेंबरशिप वाला क्वेश्चन नहीं आ रहा, आई कैन आस्क द क्वेश्चन इफ यू वांट. आई हैव
Go
अनदर
ahead,
वन.
bye. Go ahead, bye. Go ahead.
शुड आई गो
Chat same
अहेड?
solution. Huh? Same solution. Solution, comma your Chesscom username. Yes, let's go.
चैट आप एक बार रेडी लिख देना एक बार, मतलब ताकि वो फिर इट विल बी
By the
इजियर
way,
फॉर मी.
by the way, crucial moment. Arjun has to play one of two moves, either Rook to H1 or Bishop to F2. Because Bishop G3, I think such moves are incoming. Yeah, you cannot control both pawns. So Bishop F2 or Rook H1, crucial in this position. Played by
लो
wow,
भाई,
bhai.
प्लेड भाई, लो. And no problem, yeah. No problem whatsoever. I think he has calculated everything is completely ready. Oh, chat has said they are ready as well.
Hmm.
Okay, so 1 second, I just want to check the facts myself before I don't, second वाला वैसे उल्टा नहीं होना चाहिए. Okay, so the question is,
हंस रहे सहज में, हाँ? You're laughing about the question. That's
actually,
nice. I
yeah,
like that.
it's a funny thing, but Arjun has very famously, by the way, again, the answer is going to be on Chess 24 India on the normal page, not the non-vertical stream. Just want to put it out there. In the famous game that Arjun defeated Magnus in 20 moves with the black pieces and Tata Steel, what was the name of the opening?
Ah, good question, actually.
I'm seeing the name right now in front of me.
By the way, Bishop F2 played only move थी अर्जुन के लिए.
You can Google as well. Bishop F2 played. Yeah, E1 pe nazar. And he's completely winning now. Okay, okay, okay. I'm seeing it. Bhai, Meg, has just my question just become like super difficult because I'm not seeing a single answer again, bhai.
I think Arjun had the black pieces, chat. जहाँ तक
Yes.
मुझे याद है. So just frame your answer accordingly.
Chat up, you can just search the game as well. It takes like 2 seconds. अभी तक किसी ने नहीं लिखा भाई.
Wow. Sahej bhai, you've become like too smart. Bhai,
भाई ये क्या हो रहा है
too.
भाई? बहुत टाइम से क्वेश्चन नहीं पूछा
Okay, I
लगता
think
है.
we have to change the question, bhai.
भाई,
The
I
full.
don't think we have to change the question. We have to change the person who's asking the question.
नहीं नहीं नहीं. I think chat वो guess जल्दी कर रही है. I think वो देख नहीं रही. But okay, chat. I think another question coming up. The final one in the next 2 minutes. By the way,
I
Sahej
still
bhai, just
don't see it,
coming.
bhai.
Wow.
Can I say the name?
हाँ बता दो बता दो. I think it's too late.
Bhai,
The question change
it's
करना
too
पड़ेगा.
late. I think Chad, no one has
हाँ
gotten it. It's actually
हाँ.
Kramnik variation. Did you know this?
नहीं नहीं भाई.
Actually, yes.
ओके ये तो टफ ही था भाई. ये तो बहुत टफ था यार.
भाई अब टफ ही होगा ना ऐसे क्वेश्चंस तो यार, ये तो मतलब, और ये तो पता होना चाहिए आई फील, बिकॉज यू लुक, आई मीन हमने खुद कमेंटेट किया हुआ है भाई इसमें. लाइक वी वर ऑन द
हाँ
चैट
बट
व्हेन यू गाइस वर वाचिंग. आई मीन बट या, इट्स डिफिकल्ट टू रिमेंबर ऑल ऑफ दिस फॉर श्योर.
by the way Vicious 7 played by Nils. Let's just push the a pawn a7. I don't see an issue there. because then I just have complete freedom, right? I mean, you can't, your rook is also tied down to defending the a8 square.
हाँ
So
भाई आइडिया आइडिया देखो कितना क्लेवर है लाइक अगर आप C4 खेलते हो ना यहाँ पे तो ब्लैक
mhm.
खेल सकता है बिशप B6 एंड इफ यू टेक आई विल प्रमोट ऑन E1 ठीक है अब आपको
Wow.
बढ़िया सा एक नुआंस देखो यहाँ पे A7 एंड इफ यू प्ले बिशप B6 नाउ आई कैन टेक्निकली गो
Yeah.
क्वीन एंड इफ यू टेक हियर देन बिशप टेक्स B6 अब आप क्वीन नहीं कर सकते यहाँ पे एंड वापस ले आऊंगा मैं बिशप को सो कूल या
Yeah, yeah. So be very careful. C4 is a blunder, by the way. He should not play it. Arjun is calculating super important moment here. Let's just push the A pawn. हमारा रुक इसलिए फंसा हुआ है because the pawn is one square away from queening. So I can't move it up and down. I can't capture, for example, the E2 pawn when I could. That's why A7 also does the same job. Now the black rook cannot move up because A8 queens. By the way, he has played A7. Let's go, Arjun. About to win the game.
लेट्स
Beautiful
गो
game today, man.
Arjun OP, let's go. I mean, this is just basically over 38 seconds for Nils as well. I feel like he's going to resign. And by the way, Nils is going to go 0 out of 3. That's definitely tough for any chess
Bye.
player.
He
Very,
plays
very, very difficult.
Erdogmus
And
and
chat में सिंह पे
Nodirbek.
मैंने पहले भी भाई I checked everywhere like that thing was not there. Plus we can see the chat history as well and like we don't see it, yeah. So I think we'll change the question. We'll
Yeah.
make it like a bit like less technical and I think it will be better like that.
By the way, King G7 played. I think it's time. Let's just keep pushing the pawns. Let's not stop. Apparently, B6 directly also wins. So I don't see any reason to wait. But C4 apparently is the best move. Just doing it all with the pawns.
भाई
Let's go,
क्योंकि
Arjun.
बिशप B6 पे 8 queen, that's why. The same
Ha,
idea.
ha, ha.
And if you go rook a8, then bishop b6. Intermezzos are very, very important. Chat, this is like, I feel like I wish I had this advice when I was, a bit younger, but I only thought about this thing. I mean, I think I was applying it, but I wasn't told this. कि in rook pawn end, by the way, c4 played, great move. In rook pawn endings or any end games that involve the rook, always look for intermezzos. Like that's the key. That's the reason you're going to win the game. And like in this scenario as well, yeah, like then it becomes true. Like bishop b6 ke baad, a8 queen is an intermezzo. And that's the only reason why Arjun is winning. So always keep check of intermezzos.
Agreed. And now C4 ke baad, Arjun is doing it the smart way, not hurrying, basically doing it the smoothest way with no counterplay whatsoever. Seems like things are going very, very smoothly for Arjun, the India number one, about to enter the world top 10 again.
भाई
And
यार
he,
आप क्वेश्चन पूछ लो चैट में लोग बोलने लग
ha,
गए कि
so
मैंने किया
So
लिखा भाई
chat, question is incoming. काफी simple question है, and whosoever has been here for the candidates can answer it quickly. You can also take a guess, but it might be too late. The solution is you have to type something followed by a Chesscom username. ठीक है chat, ready लिख दो. I'll ask the question. Let's go. Meanwhile, हाँ, because I have the answer. I think. I
absolutely and
think.
also by we also had the I also have the answer but I didn't see it anywhere but maybe it's just me but yeah let's go ready देखो भाई अब प्रॉपर क्वेश्चन अब आप मुझे नहीं बोल सकते यहाँ पे इसके बाद चैट
हाँ. And this is a trick question. थोड़ा ध्यान रखना. ठीक है.
फॉर मी
So, नहीं, for chat.
हाँ ओके
By the way, chat, Bishop B6, look at this. Bishop B6 played by Nils. I
Nils
think we can take that bishop, no?
भाई क्वीन आई एम सॉरी बट क्वीन isn't that just a
Ooh.
फ्री पीस यानी फ्री पीस है ना तो क्वीन के बाद
Because I can just
और भाई
take
40th
queen.
मूव भी थी यार 40th मूव अब तो आधा घंटा और आ गया अर्जुन के
Now
पास
तो
ही इज गोना
it's
विन
yeah.
भाई ही इज विनिंग
Yeah. So question is chat for a 1 month diamond membership on the Chess 24 India horizontal stream. So we had the candidate stream. It was a lot of fun. I think we had a lot of guests. Rishi sir joined in multiple times, especially Vishali won. But we also had Tanya join us for the stream. And she was supposed to join us for X number of days. But because of some reason, she joined for X minus one. What was the X minus one number? So at the end, how many days did Tanya commentate with us? Simple numeric question is the answer. देखते कौन आंसर निकालता है भाई. सहज भाई, do you know the exact answer?
नो आइडिया भाई नो आइडिया क्या सवाल कर लिया भाई अब तो
भाई
स्पैम
बेसिक
कर
भाई, सिंपल
भाई
क्वेश्चन.
चैट ने 1 से 10 में जो नंबर आएगा उन्होंने पहले लिख के डालना है भाई 1 मत लिखना चैट
हाँ
1 से ज्यादा था
हाँ. So the correct answer is actually 6. So she was supposed to have for 7 days, joined for 6. And कौन है पहला बंदा इसे 6 लिखा है? With the Chesscom username. I'm trying to see.
Okay, I'm checking. One sec. 3-4 was written first.
I see 6, but I don't see the username. I see Tanishq Patel, I think, as the
हाँ,
first
6
one.
तनिष्क पटेल या उससे
Yes.
पहले शेषा ने लिखा था बट उन्होंने यूजर नेम नहीं डाला सैडली.
Yes. So Tanishq
तनिष्क
Patel
पटेल.
bhai, yes, I have taken your screenshot of username and आपको मिल जाएगी a membership soon. नहीं आएगी तो कल हमारी स्ट्रीम पे दिमाग जरूर खाना, but you will get the membership by. Congratulations. You win the 1 month diamond membership by.
अरे भाई सॉरी यार, मैंने गलती से वो.
उसका मैसेज डिलीट कर दिया भाई ने.
अरे सॉरी भाई यार, वो गलती से डिलीट हो गया मेरे से. सॉरी बट चैट वो मैं कॉपी कर रहा था मैसेज बट वो गलती से डिलीट हो गया यार. माय बैड.
But I've not written it down by. So भाई एक बार नोट कर लेना आप भी,
आई
just
ऑल्सो
for
हैव इट या.
second, you know, copy
सॉरी
of the
भाई.
username. So congrats भाई. So यह थी पहली membership. Of course अगर 1000 लाइक हो गए तो दूसरी membership भी करेंगे हम लोग, but कम chance है. I don't think chat can pull it off. But let's see.
भाई
You never know.
1000
Chat
लाइक
has.
तो हो सकते हैं भाई, क्यों नहीं. बिल्कुल.
भाई 2000 लोग देख रहे हैं, possible तो है. But by the way, look at this. Bishop B6 बाद 8 queens played by Arjun. Let's come back to the game. Let's go full screen, by the way. He's about to resign, I think, Sahaj, by Arjun, moments away from his first win of the event. Time पे भी आधा घंटा आ गया है. Position में भाई +6, +7 evaluation है. It is all but over.
Oh yeah, completely over, bhai. Takes here, takes on b6, and now he's gonna think. मतलब, like, generally, players spend a lot of time after the 40 moves are done. We were talking about this as well कि वो आधा घंटा जो होता है वो बहुत slow लगता है, but यहाँ पर कुछ तो गेम ही नहीं बचा है भाई. And
Yeah.
I, Tiku bhai, is a like there's some another event starting or something with
Yeah,
Faustly playing or
वो
something.
कुछ चक्कर होगा, वो इग्नोर करो. I think कुछ error हुआ होगा, maybe they have
अच्छा.
set up the same room. But anyways, by the way,
अच्छा, समझ गया.
Andy
Yeah.
Woodward and
Sorry.
Jorden van Foreest have drawn. So that's the first result. Not switching boards, but just updating you chat. कि वो draw हो चुका है. And Arjun's game is the second one likely to end. Super important win for Arjun. He will gain a few rating points. He will be joining the leaders unless Magnus or Nodirbek में से कोई जीतता है. So, नहीं, he will join the leaders, right? Very important. Yes.
Hmm.
नहीं, he will not join. अच्छा, Andy Woodward. अच्छा, नहीं, he will join ना. हाँ, सही.
Arjun is just, I think, a beast. Yeah, I mean, today's game I think was fantastic. I
And
really feel like he was out prepped by his opponent very clearly. In with Sicilian Dragon, he handled that so well, and also like taking that pawn on a7. I mean, like I just want to go back to that moment because I feel it was so important in this position to take that pawn on a7. Queens भी थी present board पे. I mean, ये 3 फाइल्स जहाँ पे आपने खोल दिया, and उसी की वजह से वहीं पे ही pawn पड़ा है हमारा a5 पे, वही pawn हमें जितवाएगा. So it's those micro decisions that you make early on that really really help you in the later part of your game. वही pawn queen हुआ है भाई.
Agreed. And it looks like Nils is taking his last think here of the game, and it should be over any moment. By the way, tomorrow is round 4, and guess who Arjun plays in round 4 chat? Any guesses? He plays Nodirbek with the black pieces tomorrow. So that's gonna be a tough match. Arjun, by the way, getting black against Magnus, Erdogmus, and Nodirbek. By matlab, I think it's a simple philosophy. Draw against D3, win the rest of the games, yeah?
Yeah, of course. Then he plays Jordan, Zhu Jiner, and Andy. Yeah, but the last three, I mean, like, especially last two are not especially very high rated players. So that will be interesting. But yeah, Shuruat mein, it's crazy actually. What a difficult event.
Yep, it's amazing. And while I don't see any updates in the Magnus game chat, it's still completely equal. Let's stick to this game because I think Nils might resign, and then we can look at the Magnus game. I think that's the smoother way to do it. Nothing has happened in that game so far. It's still completely even.
वो two
So,
camera वाला लगा लेते हैं ना. Maybe we can capture
we can
both.
do
Or what do
that.
you
We can
think?
do that. We can.
Oh,
By
he
the way,
makes a
knight.
knight. Nils has just made a knight. E1 knight on the board. Why crazy? रुक कुछ हो नहीं रहा है इससे. रुक टेक्स E1 के बाद फिर भी उसको क्वीन मारनी पड़ेगी. But yeah, and then bishop takes b6 will just lose the piece. But that's crazy.
I was just playing around. Bishop takes e1 is also winning.
Of
You
course,
can
भाई.
take with the bishop.
But
Rook takes
वही
a.
hope है ना. Maybe it's also a way for to get Arjun back on the board and bishop e1 के बाद he'll just resign. Oh sorry, rook e1
Yeah.
के बाद he'll just resign. I think a lot of people do that. Like players घूम रहे होते हैं तो उनको board पे लाने के लिए you just make a
Okay,
move.
let's go full screen. Let's go full screen. I think we need the moment to be captured, right? Also, by short, and then it is by. I think we have seen resignation from Nils. There it is, handshakes, and Arjun Erigaisi wins the match. His first win of the TePe Sigeman Tournament. A smooth game and a beautiful attack, pushing that queenside pawns for Arjun, and of course kingside pawns coming from Nils. But Sehjbhai at the end, being more precise in his calculation, helped Arjun to get his first win. A smooth win at the end. And भाई मतलब मजा ही आ गया गेम देख के.
100%. I think being surprised in the opening, handling it so well, calculating your way out of such a complex end game. I mean, this was the position. I mean, to go into this voluntarily as white, I mean, yes, it looks like white has chances, but it's always scary when there are, when there is a race like this. So, and Arjun handled it very, very well. And now Nils, by 0 out of 3
Yeah,
is the score. That's definitely
this
not pleasant.
could be a nightmarish tournament for Nils, who plays Erdogmus next, and then Nodirbek. By the way, jumping to the Magnus game now, Sahej, by Arjun getting a smooth victory at the end. What do you make of the move so far? If he can catch up from where we last left it, has Magnus made progress? Is the question.
So we left somewhere around here. We were talking about the Magnus effect, top players going bishop takes bishop and saying, let's just make a draw, and players would agree. But now it's no longer the case. He does go queen c7, and note that he's not taking on g5 whatsoever. Plays king f7, queen e2 aata, and king e7. And to answer your question, Tikubhai, doesn't feel like Magnus has made much progress since, but I also don't think that Nodirbek is closer to finishing the game anytime soon. I feel like still a lot of chess is yet to be played, and only 4 minutes for Magnus and 12 minutes for Nodirbek. I'm guessing this is those crucial moments that he was looking for against Magnus. This is what helps you grow. This is a very, very high tense situation for Nodirbek right now.
Yeah, and I think time is less of an issue now because we only have three more moves to go. The time control. Bishop has been captured finally, but Sejbhai, that has a clear benefit to Magnus because the h7 pawn now could be a target later on. But I'm guessing he's going to even trade on e5 now, like just exchange everything and hope that that's enough to hold against Magnus.
Yeah, exactly. And now knight takes e5 is possible, but
Hey,
why
सब
is
कुछ.
Magnus
Knight takes
but why
e5.
is Magnus allowing this? I don't understand.
Yeah, knight takes e5, then knight f5, knight, sab kuch exchange. Like in three moves, three pieces will be exchanged and queens are being on the board. Yeah, that's maybe close to a draw.
But what's the plot? What am I missing? There is a plot here, right? Magnus doesn't go into this. Is it really that simple, the draw? Magnus will not allow this otherwise.
Maybe he doesn't see a way, yeah? Because knight, bishops
There is a
gaye,
there is
knights.
always a plot with Magnus. By king g3, I guess. Queen. I mean, maybe still some chances for Magnus to win. King g3,
Hmm.
perhaps. I don't know. Like कुछ checks
I,
रोकी, queen h5 से मैंने enter करने का
hmm.
कोशिश किया.
That's a fair point. King g3 definitely looks like a plan. Uh, a, mm, Although it's very tricky, yeah, because black also has queen c3 ideas, for example, and there are a bunch of checks. So likely result maybe a draw, but I think this is the moment when Magnus needs something. Nodirbek, as we know, will be happy with the draw here. It takes on e5. Let's go full screen. I think crucial moments in the game.
Draw तो नहीं होगा भाई. Draw तो definitely नहीं होगा.
Arjun and Nodirbek have now both played Magnus, so they can now target other players. Agreed, but they've not played each other just yet. So I would say, in terms of favorites to win the event, Magnus being one, the second would be the winner of that match. And if it's a draw, then all three have their chances, right? So Nodirbek has defeated Zhu Jiner, whom I guess Magnus and Arjun would both back themselves to beat. And maybe same for Nils as well. So I think it's completely even Stevens right now. If anything, Arjun's score right now looks more impressive because he's drawn Magnus and he's defeated Nils.
Yeah, true.
I mean, there's no way.
Falcon ji बोल रहे हैं Arjun and Nodirbek are now both have played Magnus, so they can target. Yeah, exactly. They can target, but okay, no one's really a target here. Why?
By the way, do you think Nodirbek could play on with the move like knight to b5, for example, with the idea of queen e5 and knight c3?
भाई नाइट भी में तो मर रहा है ना ये.
Oh
क्वीन
wow.
भी मर रहा है ना भाई.
Sorry, bhai.
तो नाइट
It's
एफ
been
आई.
it's been 3-4 hours now. तो
या
4 hours
या
पे
नो नो आई गेट इट, होता है भाई. तो
प्लेयर्स तो
ये
ब्लंडर ना
तो
करे, हम तो करेंगे.
I feel like this is a pretty normal thing. Like it happens to I think all chess players where like you have a black. I used to call it a black spot. Yeah? Sometimes you just don't see a square like
हाँ.
is hanging. It happens a lot.
देखो भाई, हंगर नाइट ब्रो, ये क्या लॉजिक है भाई? एवरीबॉडी हैंग्स अ नाइट, एटलीस्ट नॉट अ क्वीन
I
लाइक यू ब्रो.
still I'm trying to understand what is the by the way, last time there was a queen pawn ending in a classical match between Nodirbek and Magnus. Nodirbek won that match. Just wanna mention that.
Interesting. Okay, now f4 should be automatic, I feel. Okay, queen a6 also possible. I think definitely an option to consider.
Hmm.
I think Magnus, though, understands this is very close to equal now. Um, he will play on because he's Magnus, but very, very close to equality.
Yeah, true. बट मैग्नस इज येट टू प्ले मैग्नस. और भाई वो पहले भी पढ़ा था बट वो ऐसा नहीं कि मतलब ऐसे गलती से इग्नोर हुआ था, जान के इग्नोर किया था भाई.
By the way, many people are asking कि वो समय का शो देखा. Yes, I think we both did see his वो कपिल शर्मा शो.
अरे
Crazy
इट वाज
episode, भाई.
क्रेजी.
Hilarious.
एक्चुअली वुड यू बिलीव मी इफ आई टोल्ड यू इट्स द फर्स्ट टाइम आई सॉ द शो.
Oh wow, really? Kapil Sharma
Yeah.
wala. Oh, crazy,
Actually, I
bhai.
have never okay, maybe I shouldn't say this also, but I've never I know I should. My mom loves it, my brother loves it a lot, and but I had never ever seen like a any show like that before. But
Wow.
it was my first one. But it was very funny, bhai.
Yeah, it was hilarious. I think Samay's timing is crazy. I think I also understood that timing is basically also practiced to majority of extent. Like, but yeah, it was hilarious. By the way, Nodebek, Magnus, both sitting in front of a chessboard, both know it's equal, both know the other's trying to fight. If Magnus overpresses Sahaj by, I mean, that's always a concern, right? Magnus might overpush and give Nodebek a sniff. By the way, 40 moves have been reached after that last capture. So now the chances of anybody winning go even further down. And Magnus just had a look at his score sheet. He's realized 40 moves हो गए हैं, भाई घर चलते हैं.
Yeah, true. Chat में अथिया जी बोल रहे हैं, भाई सहज आई नो माइनस इज ग्रेट बट प्लीज अंडरस्टैंड योर स्ट्रीम वॉच बाय मेनी सो जस्ट गिव पॉजिटिव रिस्पॉन्स फॉर प्लेयर्स हु वांट्स टू बी ग्रेटर देन मैग्नस इंस्टेड ऑफ सेइंग दैट नो वन एल्स इज लाइक हिम. I'm not sure where this came from because we were not talking about it right now, but I think in essence, even those players, I know them personally, and even those players say these things themselves. So it's not really something that is unbelievable. Plus, I mean, it is backed by a lot of research and data, and lots of times where we have put this thing to a test, and he has prevailed. And if he
And I
is the
think,
greatest at something, then what's wrong with saying that? If you
and
are
I
the
think
best at
it's,
something, you should be called that.
by the way, F4 played Carlsen turned around to look at something, but then played pawn to F4. I don't know what that was. But also, like, I mean, I would say you call a spade a spade. Yeah, this is not. This is sports. Like if Magnus is number one ranked in the world, he's number one ranked in the world. Like this is not the Schrodinger's equation. Nobody is the one until observed. Um, he is the best player by far who's playing currently. You can debate between Gary and Magnus, maybe Fischer, maybe you can include players like Karpov and Vishisar as well. But he is the best player who's active as a professional player right now. There is no doubt about it. So yeah, I think everybody looks up to him. Even the players you're mentioning, everybody knows he's hard to beat. And when you beat Magnus, you enter headlines of
भाई
newspapers
लाई
across the world.
डिटेक्टर पे बैठ के हिकारू ने खुद कहा था कि लाइक आर यू द बेस्ट ब्लिट्स प्लेयर इन द वर्ल्ड एंड हिकारू सेड नो मैग्नस
Yeah,
कार्लसन एंड इमेजिन हिकारू इज सेइंग दिस अबाउट ब्लिट्स इज लाइक आई वुड से
that's his forte.
क्लासिकल
Yeah.
में इट्स नॉट इवन अ डिबेट यार. क्लासिकल में तुम बात ही नहीं कर सकते कभी भी, बट ब्लिट्स में तो कर सकते हो भाई. हिकारू हैज प्लेड अ लॉट मोर. ही इज समवन वुड से दैट दैट्स हिज स्पेशलिटी. बाय द वे, डू वी हैव अ रेपिटेशन इनकमिंग और व्हाट्स हैपनिंग? या दैट्स अ
Yup.
रेपिटेशन भाई. चेक ड्रॉ इनकमिंग चैट, लेट्स गो.
Let's go, bhai. And Nodubek doesn't even think. He knows it's a draw. He's calculated it all till the end. And this feels like it's about to end in a draw, a comfortable draw at the end for Nodubek. There were moments when Magnus was, showing signs of pushing. but it doesn't feel like it's much at the end. I mean, would Magnus play queen e2 here, Sahaj, after queen d2? Like maybe that's the last try?
I mean, not really. I don't see that as winning. I feel like after queen d2 and queen e2, you can even just go. Yeah, this is a draw as well because it's what we call corresponding square. So the king can reach h5 technically. I'll put my king on g7. Then the king has to reach d4. My king can reach c6 in the same amount of time. Like, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 moves it will take you. It's too much time, but I have 1, 2, 3, 4 moves only. So if I can keep these two under check, then this is a draw.
Also, when Nodirbek just plays queen c1, yeah, and says up queen 6 kilo, and I repeat the
हाँ वो
move.
भी है
So,
वैसे
so he
किंग
would, I
f3
think,
खेलेगा वो
by the way, he
देयर
did.
इट
And
इज
there it is. It is a draw, a subtle eye contact between the players, and they agree to a draw. Magnus is dumbfounded, by the way, by something. He was shocked. I don't know what shocked him so much, Sahaj bhai.
apparently Magnus had an advantage here somewhere he was talking about which Magnus missed but I don't think it was anything huge.
Hmm.
It wasn't anything huge in the okay, maybe like somewhere around here there was something, but okay, it felt like a lot. But you know, I feel Magnus ने वो Magnus वाला वो slow way में नहीं किया यहाँ पे. I feel like,
Hmm.
or maybe just Nodirbek put up like an insane defense. That's also possible. But yeah, generally
Yeah.
this is the situation where he wins.
Yeah, I think with the pawn structure being symmetrical, it's always going to be difficult. And
Well, what a
black
defense,
did
yeah.
Yeah, did not give control of the C file. That was very crucial. And of course, countered this king side advance that Magnus had very, very effectively. And with this, we have Nodirbek, Carlsen, Andy Woodward, and Arjun in the lead with 2 points after what, 3 rounds so far? And still one more game to go where Erdogmus is completely winning. Just let's have a brief look at the game, Sahaj, by 1 minute look, and then we can even end the stream, I feel, because Erdogmus is completely winning and it feels like we're going to have what, 5 leaders now after round number 3. So this tournament is not really one person running away with it just yet.
Oh, yes, of course. I think there will be Yagiz, there will be Jordan, there will be Arjun, Andy, Magnus, and Nodirbek. Basically, all of them will have the
Hmm.
same amount of points, more or less. So, yeah, Jordan 1.5, but I think 4 players will have those many points. But yeah, he is definitely winning, dead winning position. But he is in time pressure. By look at that, look at by same situation as yesterday. He's
Yeah.
like, look at his body language. This is something he really has to work on.
Right. Let's do one thing, chat. Let's stick around until the 40th move. I
Oh,
think.
wait, what? Knight c3 check? What? You are
What?
telling me?
What? What?
W- No ways. No, she didn't even let him play the move. Bhai, did you see that chat? Knight c3 check was just taking, and this happened in classical. Yeah, crazy. Something we never ever see. But okay, the position was lost anyways. Not like it mattered. But what a blunder!
What? I am sorry. What? Knight e3 just missed. Wow.
That's crazy, Like it's not something we see very often. But okay, let's not forget Gukesh's blunder against Nodirbek in Tata Steel. I feel that's worse
Yeah,
than
of
this. That is
course.
still way worse than this. I think.
No,
Like,
I
okay, it
think
happens. Black spots happens with everyone. Like, if it can happen to the world champion, it can happen to anyone.
no, for sure. But I think for Zhu, I think it's kind of a recurring pattern. Also, we saw that Rook C8 miss in round one. We also saw similar stuff in the Prague Masters, Sahaj Bhai. And we also saw some tactical mistakes at the candidate. So clearly, tactical play is something she's really struggling with. Of course, it was already lost and she was kind of suffering for a long time. But I mean, she saw it instantly.
But
And this is so common, right? अब
but to be
खेलते ही
honest,
दिख
like
जाता है भाई.
I don't think by this is a we can classify this. Okay, yeah, like for the viewers, it's a blunder and we can say all of this. But okay, like अगर वो 93 ना खेलती तो क्या वो बच रही मतलब पोजीशन बच रही थी नो ऑफ कोर्स नॉट तो आप एक चाल में हारो या 10 चाल क्या फर्क पड़ता है राइट लाइक
Hey,
इट्स
but
द
I
पोजीशन
mean,
इज
it's
स्टिल
like,
ऑब्जेक्टिवली योर लॉस इज -4 आई मीन you can do whatever you want here you will lose this.
yeah, but it's like, at least if she had fought until the 40th move, like it still gives you some chances. And even if she had lost anyways, like this is not the way you want to lose. But of course, man, like at the end, Yagiz played a beautiful game. Even though I think we're seeing that pattern with him as well, he really gets under time pressure, serious time pressure, and sometimes can mess it up. So that's another win. So, Kul Milake, bhai, we got two results today. Arjun won against Nils, and Erdogmus wins against Zhu Jiner. Do we have the standings? Would love to check that out, Sahaj bhai. We have 5 players with 2 points, and it seems like it's all coming at the suffering of Nils Grandelius.
Yep, absolutely. With 0 out of 3, that's I think very sad, and I hope he picks up a couple of points. But for now, it's looking really sad for Nils Grandelius. I mean, basically the tournament is being played at his home. Yeah, he is Swedish number one. So for him, this is definitely a bit sad. But hopefully he can make a comeback. Magnus and match ho gaya and all of that, so he should be fine. But between these five, by favorite, so I think अभी भी top 3 ही लग रहे हैं मुझे. It has to be between Magnus, Nodirbek and Arjun. But let's see who's gonna win.
By tomorrow's pairings, if you can have the stand, you can keep the standings for a minute. Basically, it's round number 4 tomorrow, and Arjun plays black against Nodirbek. That's an important game for Arjun to at least hold if possible. We also have Magnus black against Jorden. That's going to be a crucial game. And then we have Yagiz white against Nils. Bhai, matlab, Nils is really gonna hope he holds tomorrow. Yeah, I mean, otherwise 0 out of 4 के बाद अगली game Nodirbek, this is looking very tough.
अरे भाई 0 out of 5 तो मेरा ही हुआ था भाई एक बार, and I can never ever forget that feeling. It is horrible to lose consecutive games when it happens to you 3 times. That's just very sad. So yeah, hopefully he can make a comeback. But yeah, let's see what happens. Almost halfway through the event, only 7 rounds here. But so far, not major surprises overall, Tikubai.
Agreed. And I think one question I want to address in the chat, I think on the chess community channel, some people are wondering which language are we actually speaking in. We're speaking in Hindi and English both. That's the normal language of commentary we do on Indian channels. And if you're here coming from outside of India, you might hear some words, in Hindi. Ignore them. Focus on the English. We'll try to, keep English in mind as well for you guys. But yeah, that was the only point I wanted to address.
Yeah.
And chat
And
tomorrow.
I only recently found out, because guys, I do live in Hungary, right? So I recently found out how there is a Hinglish, there is also a Hunglish.
Oh, wow.
There is actually, I know people who speak Hunglish, like they speak like proper Hungarian and like proper accents, and then they will like switch to English as if nothing was different, which is crazy. So yeah, that's the language we speak, with Hindi and English. But I think if you speak English, you should be able to understand more or less from context, what is going on.
And don't worry, we'll give you enough expressions to, with blunders, our jaws will drop to the floor and it'll be very obvious if it's not by the bar. So thank you, Chad, for joining today. It was amazing to commentate with you guys. Saj bhai, thanks for the amazing commentary. Samay bhai, just absolutely flawless broadcast. And Chad, we'll be back tomorrow at the same time. And it's going to be an exciting round. Let's see who among the 5 players is going to take the lead. Will Magnus Carlsen do Magnus Carlsen things? Or will Arjun, Nodirbek, Yagiz take the lead somehow and put Carlsen under pressure? Tomorrow, crucial day. See you there. Bye-bye. Good night.